Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if ancient immortal Naruto high school DxD. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Havoc-Teir and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Anyway, here's the story. Enjoy. Kyoto. Kyoto was under attack by a combined force of Chaos Brigade and the dragons. The defenders, the Yaokai, were backed up by their strongest, but the sheer weight of the enemy numbers and the overwhelming might of the Dark Dragon forces. Their strongest member, Yasaka no Yoko, has taken on the enemy leaders and defeated the White Dragon Emperor and Dark Dragon Kruch Crescent Circle Dragon, however they were saved by their fellows before she could deliver the final blows. Both were now preparing to re-enter the fight. Their underlings have kept the Kyuubi busy, preventing her from recovering, whilst allowing them to do so. The siege had just entered the third hour, fallen Governor Generals Aizel had entered the conflict with the bulk of his forces, allowing several isolated Yaokai units time to regroup into battle groups and re-establish solid battle lines. Morale was low, as even Yasaka was on the brink of chakra exhaustion and was about to fight against two divine dragons, with little to no support. Though, little did all parties know, but their constantly flaring chakra levels and heavyweight fighting has roused a mythical entity that has slumbered since before the current age. A being that has passively protected the Yaokai from the likes of Great Red and Office, the Infinity Dragon. The only two beings to recall its existence. The only one they both agreed to never bother again. A being they both can't sense rousing from its deep slumber due to the actions of their younger dragon kin. Office snapped towards the direction of Kyoto, eyes widening in concern, from her place in the void, he is awakening. I should warn them. A deep but low chuckle drew her attention to the void's only other resident, the giant red dragon aptly named Great Red, the dragon of dreams, who replied to the human form kin of his, they should have known better. That foolish boy Crom should have heard of the stories of him and the others. Not heeding the words of one's forebears is his own folly. Leave them. Let this humble those who allow their arrogance to guide them. Back in Kyoto. Ria's Gremory and her peerage are trying to aid in the defense of the Yaokai, but their foe is far too numerous and by far easily overwhelming them. Several Yaokai squads have had to save them already, as this fight is not one for mere children to inhabit, yet she is stubbornly attempting to help. Why wouldn't she, especially as she has her Red Dragon Emperor at her side? Elsewhere Yasaka, gaining a reprieve from the dragon assault, connects to the ley line to try and recover as much strength as possible and settle down the growing energy that is building beneath the city. It makes no sense as to why it is building so rapidly, but it is, and she is trying to get it under control before the dragons renew their attack. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at things, Yasaka's work was interrupted as her foes renewed their offensive, forcing her out of position, abruptly cutting her link and causing the lines to fall into a state of imbalance. Volley, in his balance breaker, chuckled upon sensing the growing instability and rapidly forming bomb beneath their feet. Seems like our job here is done. All that's left is to kill you and take your precious daughter. She will be useful for our plans after all. Yasaka snarled up a storm at this upstart, like hell I will let you live to touch a single strand of hair on my head, let alone my daughter's. Prom looked upon him passively, no longer enjoying playing with this one. Thus, he began his approach, knuckles cracking, speaking menacingly, oh, I am so going to enjoy. Abruptly the ground rumbled, jolting incredibly violently, causing many to lose their footing as the ground literally shifted out from beneath them. A loud bang followed by a rumbling explosion, as if 1,000 bombs were going off one after the next. Everyone covered their ears, the fighting halted, as the nearby mountain seemed to just erupt as if it was a volcanic eruption, launching smoke and rubble hundreds of meters into the air, parting the few scattered clouds. It was then the Yaokai sensed it. A new chakra signature so completely overwhelming, so dense, so powerful, yet warm and comforting as if everything was going to be okay now. They were safe. The beast beneath opened its eyes, and that is when the dragons sensed it. Their folly for not listening to the old texts. A being not to be crossed under any circumstances. Its brethren it has slept beneath. Protected. They were foolish to contend with this one. No. They outnumber it. They are not yet beaten. The fallen and devils that it began filtering in all watched as a figure rouse within the smoke, towering above them all a good 150 meters tall. Only when it roared, the smog and dust blasted apart did they land on its figure. The kitsune like none other. Dull white fur that seemed to shimmer lowly, black markings running from the back of its paws, running up its limbs to its spine, traveling down towards its tails, each of its 10 had a single stripe down it to the base of its back. Its brilliant blue eyes were glazed over and misty, understandable, as it has just awakened after its several year-long sleep. Markings around said eyes flow back to its long rabbit-like ears that were twitching as if recalibrating to the world at large once more. As it rested back on its hunches, shaking off the dust, earth, and stone loose from its one-of-a-kind fur, all were staring at this being in awe, concern, or fear as they counted its 10 lazily swaying tails to confirm what they already know. This was a 10-tailed kitsune. Isaka herself was in awe, shock, and a healthy amount of disbelief. Sure, she too had been raised on the myths of the age before last, told of the history of her kin in an era where beings of immense power battled for dominance on a constant basis. An era that only after the kitsune of that time rose to power was their peace. None more famous than the Kyuubi of the time that had apparently evolved into a 10 tails. Though, she cannot recall the name right now. Her mind was still trying to get over the fact that those legends and myths were true. Prom had paled on seeing the 10th tail. His kin had records of this being. Very few records, but they had them. His name lost to time, but last he recalled of those texts said that this being of 10 led the 9 against the rogue god and its life-consuming tree that had birthed them. This being was one that even he knew better than to try beat. Upon their victory, their power was so great that none of their era could oppose them, and they had ordered all to be at peace. A peace that lasted an age. They were labeled by the dragons as the only X-rank calamity. Death on sight. They needed to leave. Now. Volley on the other hand was pumped. The 9 tails was powerful enough sure, but a 10-tailed kitsune. His power must be unrivaled. Taking it down will cement his place in history. His parade was rained on by his sacred gear, Albion, who spoke briskly, "I wouldn't do that if I was you, partner." Surprised, Volley asks internally, "Albion? Why not? Taking its power should be easy. It's still sleepy and an easy target. I can still sense its power, which means I can take it." "No. You cannot. That thing is on par with Great Red and Office. Though, I suspect that even together, it will push them back. Do not do this, Volley. It will kill you. All the more reason to take its head. Take it out before it can gain strength. Let's pull out our trump card." Externally, Volley turns to his temporary ally, the Dark Dragon, grinning with a newfound bloodlust. "Crom. Let's go kill that thing before it gathers its bearings and gets fully powered up. It is our chance." Crom looks to him befuddled and unamused. "Didn't Albion warn him about that thing?" Speaking slowly, Crom replied, "Surely you are joking right now. That thing has killed more dragons than anything else in history. It's killed a god. A god at the heights of its power. Surely Albion." "That's my point." Volley shouts, turning to the yawning 10-tailed, "It is weak right now. Our best chance to overwhelm and slaughter it. Take its power for ourselves and cut down Great Red with it." Crom thought on it. True. Even he can tell that the kitsune's strength is not what it is supposed to be at. Even now, his power is slowly raising, almost 20% more than when it first awoke. This is the best time to strike if any. Nodding to that trail of thoughts, Crom nods to his temporary ally, "You make a good point. We'll have to hit it with everything we have, or it will only grow worse for us." Volley smirks and nods, responding, "I'll go straight to Juggernaut Drive then, finish this in a snap." That last comment snapped Yusaka back to the task at hand, stopping these 2 dragons from harming the clearly drowsy kitsune of legend that has only just awoken and needed time. Flaring her chakra, Yusaka snarls, transforming to her true form, roaring out, "I will never allow you to harm our savior." The roar and chakra surge snapped all her Yaokai from their stunned state and took up their arms. Their leader was right. They just needed to hold out until their legendary myth regains itself and joins the battle. The devils and fallen all sense the battle return and break from their ogling of a being that should not exist and continue to fight back against the Cow's brigade. A few opportunistic devils however make their way to this unknown beast. It should serve their plans well. The glassy-eyed being of a forgotten age caught sight of the spike that drew its eyes as it tilted its head in confusion. Was there a fight going on? Who was fighting? How long has it been since it fell asleep? The wind feels nice. The blue sky is really blue today. An invasion of power in its chest. Kind of burns. Scratching the spot absent-mindedly, unknowingly interrupting the devil trying to enslave it, breaking the reincarnation ritual just in time. It yawned again just as a being with bat wings hovers ahead of it. Curious. They are talking. "Serve me and I will reward you with another of those guys. Man. It's been a while since it has last come across one. Was it Orochimaru or Madara again? Doesn't matter. Another chakra spike and its eyes fall to it. A raised brow, 9 tails. That isn't one he knows. Who? How long since a white dragon just tackled the vixen? "Brrr dragon, I thought I taught you what happened to abruptly." The kitsune was tackled too from the side. Another dragon, pitch black scales, covered in a golden aura landing atop it and holding it down beneath its claws. The 10-tailed glanced up to see the dragon grinning, a bloodthirsty twinkle in its golden eyes, with flames arising from its throat, Crom announcing. "Not so tough now, huh, kitsune? Right? Well. I see. Things have changed it seems. Not entirely, as these flying lizards seem to think that Kitsun will let them get away with this shit again. The dragon's mouth opens and flames simmer up through its throat. The Kitsun sighs before its form was engulfed in the dragon's flames. All stopped and watched as the new Kitsun was barbecued alive. A stunned state of shock and horror. As the flames died down, the Kitsun was revealed, unharmed but also no longer confused nor misty-eyed. Instead it was fully aware and awake now. It grinned foxily, speaking loudly enough to be heard by all. "So, little lizard. Is that the best you can do? Is that all the firepower you have?" Crom felt insulted. His flames are the stuff of legends, able to melt anything, even other dragons. None can escape unscathed until now. Growling deeply, he channeled his flames again, but the Kitsun continued. "Allow me to show you what true flames are." The fox's maw parted and a sonic boom broke out, the bright bluish-white retina burning, flames erupting forth, cutting through the dragon's growing fireball and his scales in several short bursts. Crom screamed and roared in agony, his scales were literally ablaze as he writhed and shook in pain. How was that even possible? He is a freaking dragon. What the actual hell? This isn't right. Not wanting to risk this further, Crom vanished into a magic circle. This was not over. The Kitsun shook its head as it raised up. Far too naive for that level of arrogance. Truly, you dragons need to be put in your place again. Now standing, its eyes turned to the city, currently besieged. The chakra users were battling dragons and others. It did not matter. Those dragons will learn why he was feared. Letting out another earth-shuddering roar, all fighting halted once more as he did so, all the dragons glaring at him as it declared. "You flying lizards. Last warning. Leave or die." They roared back at him, clearly not believing a lowly fox could challenge them, legend or not. The Kitsun let out a flame-laced breath. "Fine. Your arrogance will lead to your downfall." They all charged him, flames in their eyes and mouths, and the Kitsun grins, his own flames simmering within its mouth. 20 dragons against one 10-tailed Kitsun. They are going to need more dragons. What sounded like a thunderstorm echoed off the mountains, buildings, and skies as the Kitsun spat out fireblast after fireblast, rapid fire, that each shattered the sound barrier, smacking their target, singeing a path through their scaly hides as they dropped. Less than a quarter of them managed to evade, but 3 were caught by near misses that still set them ablaze, thus they fell too. The last one unharmed froze under the murderous glare of the Kitsun, who only now stood on all 4 legs, the fox speaking lowly. Then, there was one. "What will you do, little lizard? Fight and die? Or surrender and live? Your choice," he trails off as his flames return to its mouth, near enough pure white this time around. It was not much of a choice, nor take long for the dragon to decide, as it bowed its head, wings flat exposing its wing roots. "I surrender." The white flames cease, and the Kitsun nods. "Very. You will surrender." A new voice drew the Kitsun's eyes to the nearby skyscraper, the place where an armor-plated white dragon was holding the vixen from earlier by the neck and clearly draining her power. The white-coated Kitsun snarled deeply, filled with malice and loathing left over from its last encounter with these lizards. He glanced at the surrendered one, who had landed off to the side, growling out. "Does he speak for you?" The purple-scaled dragon shook its lowered head, voice shaky. "No, Lord 10, for I now serve you." The Kitsun nods before snapping back at the white one, glaring murder with heckles raised. "You dare harm and drain that vixen, baby lizard. You have signed your death warrant." Volley cackles, shaking his head. "With her power and my might, you have no choice but to submit. You can't kill me without harming her." He trailed off as the Kitsun abruptly roared to the heavens, glowing lightly. Slowly its form began to shrink down to that of a regular human size. 6'1", lean build, white hair paired with dazzling blue slit eyes, 6 whisker marks on tanned skin, and an old military-like uniform of a green flak jacket, a headband with a strange leaf-like symbol upon his forehead. Then long white flowing tails trailing after him as he stretches and yawns, popping his joints back into place that have not had use in an age. He muttered to himself. "Man, it's been so long since I was like this." The man looks around briefly before locking on to the white dragon. "Well, baby lizard, you are about to make a big mistake. So let the lady go, and I will let you leave with both your legs and wings working, nah." Volley grinned within his juggernaut armor. In that form, he could easily grab and entrap the 10-tailed Kitsun and suck him dry. Just need a distraction to get in close. One he happened to have in hand. "Let her go." "Fine." The dragon released his hold on the vixen, dropping her off the skyscraper he was perched on, her limp body caught by gravity and fell, form shifting back to a human-like. The Kitsun's eyes, face-palming, so damn predictable. Should have chosen my words more carefully, before abruptly vanishing from his hovering position, using pure speed, appearing with the vixen in arm, Princess Carrie. The building shattered from the force of his impact, hitting the glass with both feet and standing perpendicular to conventionally accepted gravity, not that he noticed. Now in contact with the woman, he can sense chakra exhaustion as her overall levels were a little lower than 20%. Just then he noted the white dragon's claw approaches his form and he sighs again, 9 pitch black orbs materializing at his back the following moment. The next second one forms a blade and slices through the dragon's left arm then wing, all before the dragon could comprehend. The two kitsune had already moved again. The white dragon roared out in agony as his armor had been sliced through effortlessly with his arm beneath slowly disintegrating and nothing, no matter what he did, was able to resist it. The kitsune watched a dragon turning human-like being fall to his demise, though not the entire time as he looks to the now stirring vixen and arm. Her golden eyes part, meeting his cobalt blue filled with a gentleness she was unaccustomed to, he asked softly as to not spook her. "Morning sleeping beauty. Sleep well." She nodded mutely, unable to find the words and too weak to look around, and the legendary kitsune of myths nods once, "I'll get you back to your people. So, you can recover. Then we can talk once you have," he chuckled lightly. "I have no idea how long I was asleep or what's going on, so I will need to be brought up to speed." Before she could gather the words, the area shifted and he was putting her down beneath what she recognized as the tree in the shrine garden. Looking up at the silver-haired man, she tried to speak, but he smiled as he began to float away, grinning like a fool, "I'll be back in a flash." And just like that, he vanished in a silver flash. Appearing above the chakra users, the 10-tailed Yaokai channeled chakra to his voice box and bellowed in a commanding tone, "All outsiders. Hear me. Those without chakra will die in 30 seconds. Leave before then or forfeit your lives. I will not repeat myself." The entire city fell silent for a moment, unsure what to do. The 3 factions were here to help. Would he kill them too? Does he even know what is going on? Probably not. As one, all the angels left. They will come back later. Aizel too, unwilling to test this being's words, ordered his forces away. Surziches was unsure to take the threat seriously or not. Sure, he has 10 tails, but that is only 1 tail more than Lady Asaka. She couldn't match him so he should be fine. That being said, his sister and her party are here right now. After pondering it for a full 2 seconds he decided it was best to get his sister and her peerage to safety, thus teleporting to his sister's side, and before she could speak, Surziches does. "Riaz. Time to go." But Nai saw Maria's complaints, but Ursay's gauntlet spoke up, Dryag the red dragon speaking to them all, Ria's Gremory, all eyes falling onto the summon gauntlet, surprised at itself summoning, and the grave tone it spoke with, that being is something that even Great Red and Office would not want to cross. "Leave now or you will die. It is a being of its word so do not cross it." Now the devils grew sweaty and nervous. A single extra tail turned a Satan-level kitsune to the same level as one of the Big 10. Damn. This could be troubling. With that thought, the devils all swiftly teleported away. All but one. Kaneko Taoju, an Akasho turned devil, who was more than a little curious about this powerful new kitsune. She had managed to slip away from the teleportation circle, and as she had chakra, she should be safe from whatever the Jaiubi was about to do. As promised, when the 30 seconds elapsed, a rain of kunai, an unusual long dagger, with 3 prongs rained down all over the battle space, and the kitsune took hold of 2 black balls that form into long daggers. He vanished into a flash of silver. For a full 5 minutes flashes of silver rippled across the cityscape, leaving the Yaokai at a loss for words at the spectacle. They were so frequent and seemingly random that none could keep track, yet even the enemy had no time to even scream as the flash appeared and vanish continued. It would seem, the new kitsune was a fox of his word. An hour later. The kitsune flashes into the garden, where he left that 9 tails vixen, he touches down gently, glancing around at the area that now lacked said vixen. He sighs, speaking his thoughts aloud, guess I should. "Ah, you're back," a voice drew his attention behind him to see the tiredness in the vixen body language as she leaned against the door frame. Though, she looked stunned at the sight of the white-haired kitsune, face marked by 6 whiskers, brilliantly shimmering blue eyes, and his 10 tails swaying calmly at his back. Though, what drew her eye the most was those 9 void-like balls hovering at his back she knew instinctively were dangerous. The myth waved at her, vixen. What's the matter with you? Beside the chakra exhaustion of course. Shaking her head, Yusaka locked eyes with the crystal blues of the 10-tailed kitsune before her and bowed, Lord 10. My name is Yusaka. Kyubi no Yoko of Kyoto. It is an honor to be in your presence. Enough with that lord crap, the man waved off that line of thought, leaving the vixen unsure about things, though thankfully he continued, just call me Naruto. Haven't used my clan's name in like an age or 2, so I will withhold it for now. Naruto. An unusual name, Yusaka mumbled before she froze upon realizing her words and bowed again repeatedly. Naruto however just chuckled at that, it is not the first time someone had said that. So, with a head shake, he responds. Yeah, I get that a lot. Though, I got it as a gift from people left behind by time. So, even after so long. I will treasure it. A gentle smile he donned calmed Yusaka's worries of accidentally insulting the mythical man before her. That being said, those balls at his back felt like nature, but condensed and given form. Is that even possible? Naruto naturally noticed her gaze and followed it to his truth-seeking orbs hovering at his back. He blinked at that, forgetting he had called upon them to deal with that white lizard as he had his hands full at the time. With a wave of his hand, they dispersed into nothingness, and he spoke up. Sorry about that. I forgot I called upon them when I was carrying you. Good catch though, those things are rather nasty if touched. Isaka was bewildered, those things just vanished as if they did not exist. Such power and he casually just. Her thoughts were cut through as a lone dragon landed gently in the garden. Her natural instinct was to charge her chakra and flames, but Naruto stepped before it, speaking rather clipped, good. You follow orders. That makes things easier. Human form. Now. The dragon was soon replaced with a dark-skinned woman, slim figure, purple scales covering more sensitive parts, white hair and green eyes. As soon as her feet touch down, she takes a knee and bows her head, speaking formally, I, Ariana, have swear loyalty to you, Lord Ten. Naruto stands there for a solid minute, contemplating things for a moment before shrugging, fine. You will act as my guard for now until I figure out what exactly is going on. She nods once, fist on the ground, head still bowed. By your will. Naruto turns back to Yusaka. As for that talk, I think it'll have to wait as I can sense my brethren are all rousing from their own slumber in response to my awakening. The vixen was surprised by that. If Naruto was the kitsune who evolved to 10 tails, then when he said brethren, that could only mean, Yusaka squeaked out. The Great Nine. Naruto quirked a brow at that, snorting, what kind of name is that? Ariana answered in place of Yusaka, I believe that Lady Yusaka speaks of the myth of the 10 who led the Great Nine against the rogue god and its life-consuming tree which birthed them. Naruto looks genuinely confused. They had become a myth. The 4th shinobi wore a myth about him leading the Bijuu against Kagaya and the 10 tails. Damn. Something was clearly lost in translation, or he is hearing things. Taking a deep breath, Naruto asks slowly, so, let me get this straight, both ladies listen intently to his words, according to your myths, I led the Great Nine against a rogue god and its life-consuming tree. They both nod, and Naruto takes a second to process this crap. They completely glossed over the whole war, rearranged the fact that he, Kurama, Kurabi and Jayuki had teamed up to rescue the others. Madara's ascension to 10 tails Jinchuriki, though mentioned Kaguya's return. Not the infinite Jinjutsu bounced off the moon, nor the epic showdown between Kaguya and 2 generations of Team 7. Taking another heavy breath, Naruto shakes his head, you know what? I am not going to even touch that until the others get here. I want a bath and some ramen, then I'll go help fix this place up or something. As he strolls away towards the forest, Yusaka was confused for a moment before she called out, Lord Naruto. Naruto glanced back at the vixen, annoyed at being referred to as a lord, but asked anyway, yes Kyoto Yusaka. Yusaka blinked at that, confused, but answered up slightly hesitantly, well, the baths are inside. Where are you going? Naruto raised a brow, glancing at Ariana who looked just as lost as he was, before he looked back at the younger kitsune, pointing to the forest, to find a lake or stream to bathe in. I did not want to intrude into your home uninvited. Not wanting to be rude or anything Yakno. I have manners. Yusaka bowed again, speaking formally, which was really annoying Naruto something fierce, but listened to her as she said, it would be an honor to allow you to bathe here in our shrine. Naruto let out a rather indignant grunt, sighing heavily, grumbling lowly, too low for the current company to overhear. Taking a deep breath, he eventually answered, okay, fine. But I insist that you drop the whole formal talk. It irks me the wrong way. I am not some kind of nobleman or anything. Leave that to the Hyuga. His words were a shock to both Yusaka and Ariana, the latter looking at him incredulously, whispering no, we're near quiet enough to escape his keen ears, he's basically a Yaokai god. How can he say that? I am no god, lizard, Naruto snipped, glaring at the human form dragon, who flinched before bowing a full 90-degree, Ariana squeaking out, forgive me lord. But the lord should already, Naruto griped, and she flinched again, correcting herself. Forgive me, Naruto dono. Naruto then looks to Yusaka who stood rigid before she stated, hi, Naruto-sama. This way. Naruto grumbled again but followed after the vixen, idly wondering when the others would arrive. It has been a long time, apparently, and he is more than a little excited to see them again. At the pyramids of Egypt, a sudden unpredicted sandstorm picks up over the whole region and forces many to shield their faces and eyes as a being of sand seemed to arise from behind the ancient constructs. Those that did catch a glimpse of the monster claimed it towered high above the structures before seemingly diving into the sand as if it were water. A random storm also blocked the sudden burst of flames from the Sphinx that too vanished just as suddenly. None spotted the stretching reed with blue and blonde streaks atop the Sphinx, who was joined shortly by a tall agile blonde, faded to blue tips before he stood and the pair looked east together before both vanishing into the sudden sandstorm. A survey submarine studying near the Marianas Trench suddenly picked up 2 signatures on its sonar, both rapidly rising from the direction of the deepest parts of the ocean. The onboard cameras turned to see only the shadow outline of a turtle and what they assumed was an octopus of some kind. This would confuse many scientists around the world as none suspected a turtle could survive the depths of the deepest undersea trench on the planet. In the Amazon rainforest, a sudden earthquake was recorded emanating from a site of ancient structures. Many locals claimed the world's end was upon them, which was only confounded by the abrupt humming of the sky itself. Panic was all over. This allowed the 2 responsible to slip away, heading northwest at speeds thought impossible for organic life, to find their family members. This is the first time in so long that they have all been awake, so naturally all were excited, eagerness overflowing. In the plains of Mongolia, a massive explosion rocked the nation, and every animal in the nation began to act erratically. All but the horses, who seemed smug and even proud for some reason. The ground trembled and rocked beneath the loud pounding that seemed to shudder for several minutes before fading away. In a hidden shrine in the Kyoto region, another multiple-tailed vixen opened her scarlet eyes upon sensing a presence re-emerge. Lifting her head, allowing the sun from the small window to grace her scarlet fur, she senses the presence explode out that indicated a full awakening. Ruby eyes glisten in amazement and joy in equal measure, her long wait is now over and she can return to his side. It has been far too long without one another. Stretching and yawning, too little time this time around, fully energized, it was time for a family reunion. She did not want to be late. Pausing for a moment, it seems the others too are all rushing here. Interesting. Will this era be able to handle them all? Too bad. It has no choice but to. A vulpine grin split her lips as she stepped out of the hidden shrine that had masked her presence for the last forever. This was going to be so much fun. Deep beneath the underworld, a dormant volcano suddenly reignited and a form of a large ape, flowing 5 tails at its back, could be made out in the whirling and bubbling magma pools. It opened its eyes and found itself smirking. Its siblings had awoken, so she will too. Time for their return, and this age will rule the day that forced this outcome. Naruto slipped into the shrine's baths that were a full-size bathhouse tucked away in the majestic temple that apparently housed the home of every Kyuubi since this era began. It was pragmatically functional with a tint of regality. It was rather tasteful if you ask the shinobi. Closing his eyes, Naruto subtly accessed the planet's energy and the feel of his 9 siblings coming closer brought a smile to his face. The fact that his fellow kitsune was near enough already suggested that she was already nearby and never left. He smirked. She was never far from him. Abruptly, he snapped to the door, Naruto snarling at the arrival, "What are you doing here, lizard?" The dark-skinned beauty was only in a towel, white hair up in a ponytail, her pale purple scales seemed muted as her figure moved against the bright tiles that surrounded her. Ariana spoke submissively. Lord 10, I wanted to be of use to you. I do not need you for that role, little lizard, Naruto all but sneered, his previous experience with her kind guided his ill-placed rage. Though, seeing her flinch, pale, and step back he literally froze. Naruto had realized what he was doing. Sure, she had surprised him, but she was not an enemy. Not anymore. Letting out a very deep breath, Naruto looked back at the innocent dragoness and spoke softly, "I am sorry, Ariana. You startled me and I began to recall the crimes your ancestors committed. Crimes I and my kin had to end." Ariana nodded meekly, slowly, and no doubt nervously. Seeing this, Naruto waved her over and could not miss her hesitation. He remained patient as this was his fault. Forgetting at times he is not a simple human shinobi anymore, but rather a Kyuubi level kitsune. Bane of the dragons. Slowly, and with no little amount of effort, Ariana approached carefully and followed the gesture to sit, to find herself beside the boogeyman of her kind. The silence was thick and heavy as both occupants attempted to calm down and relax. For a few minutes, nothing happened. This was broken by the perking up of Naruto, who snapped to the north, his white furred ears standing tall. Oh, that did not take her long. Ariana dared herself thus asked, peeking at her new master, who? Well, Naruto trailed off, scratching his cheek chuckling lightly, unsure exactly what to call her these days. I guess you could say she's my little sister, but also, kinda like my mate, and yet not. Once she was considered my wife, but we never actually got married. We just kinda just he trailed off with a shrug. Ariana's thoughts were visible as she immediately shrunk into herself, yet before she could speak a new voice spoke up, "How mean of you, Naruto." The dragon looked around the bathhouse, the origin of the voice not in sight, but the 10-tailed beside her let out a tired sigh and looked to his left, "Come on, give me a break, Hinoka. Things haven't exactly been clear between us." Ariana blinked. Once. twice. 3 times, unsure how she missed the redeed that had suddenly appeared in the bath on the opposite side of the white-haired man, her scarlet eyes glaring at her. Hinoka, a red-haired, former clanswoman of Naruto turned Kyuubi, glared at the dragon as she spoke tightly, as true as that may be, why are you here with one of those damn lizards? She surrendered. Naruto spoke softly, with a shrug, gaining the vixen's attention, who looked into her leader's blue eyes. Oh, so now you're sleeping with the enemy. Am I not good enough for? Naruto glared at her, forcing her to silence, then to lower her head with her cheeks gaining a light tint of pink. Hinoka whispered, sorry. I was just. I know, Naruto whispered as he hung his head back, how long has it been? Like 2 millennia or so. Hinoka shrugged slightly, dunno, time seems so. Naruto chuckled lightly, yeah, I get that. He paused looking at the door, his brow raised, oh. This is a surprise, you guys arrived quickly. A new duo stepped out from the changing room and Ariana came face to face with a mint-haired woman and another man with long white hair, gray eyes and pale skin, who said. Well, you see, Fu was super excited to get here so. The woman looked indignant at the claim, her bright orange eyes glared at her companion, mint green hair tied up in a bun, with a light blush upon her caramel skin. Oh then, who was the one who kept egging me on? Huh, Utakata. Yeah, the now named Utakata waved off lazily, reaching the edge of the bath, foot slipping in, and he nods in approval, impressive, the pH ratio is ideal. Naruto and Hinoka snorted, shaking their heads, though Fu followed after him, dropping beside Ariana, her wings vanishing to keep them dry, and let out a deep sigh. Oh, so needed this. Right, Naruto commented with a foxy grin, this era at least has good baths. The others all nod, agreeing with that. The last cycle didn't ever seem to get it right. Fu muttered, shaking her head in disappointment. Naruto shrugged. It happens sometimes. Any word from? Utakata began but Naruto just pointed back to the door, all eyes following to see the twin-tailed tanuki and a tri-tailed Nekamada strolling in, towels wrapped around their bodies. Naruto, Hinoka, it has been too long. Yujito. Naruto and Hinoka nodded back, the former looking to the redhead, smirking. Gaara. Heard you two have been busy in recent times. The now identified Gaara shrugged lazily with a yawn, these deserts are the closest thing to home. Though, this incarnation of humans lacks our fortitude, so no villages of sand exist like ours did. Not everyone has chakra this time around, Naruto informed, and the 2 new arrivals both nod. We know, Yujito reports, nodding at the others in acknowledgement. A gesture that was reciprocated immediately, before the blonde looked back to the leader of their outfit. Yujito continued. This isn't the first time either of us had awoken in the current cycle. Naruto raised a brow. Oh. Did my awakening interrupt you guys? No, Gaara yawned again, before looking back at Naruto, his teal eyes loaded with mirth. We were done playing with the humans over there. I'd say a new voice, all eyes looked to the tower of a man who strolled in, and Naruto grinned without looking back at him. I thought you'd be first here, Han. A deep guttural chuckle as the mountain of a muscular form, tanned skin and hard black eyes dropped into the bath. Han continued, it took me a while to regain my bearings. Then the locals all tried to wrangle me in. He broke into a crooked grin, they didn't stand a chance. Naruto hummed in acknowledgement before his gaze flowed over the returned family. Where's the monkey? Han let out a tight sigh, likely, the underworld. Underworld? Han nodded, we've both been awake in this current era before, much like the Sphinx over there, gesturing to Yujito, who grinned catty at that, so I think Kuro is probably in the middle of something down there. She'll come back when she's ready. Naruto shrugged, it's a shame, but it is what it is. Though, as you've probably guessed, we have another Kyuubi here. She owns this place and leads this era's chakra users. Yeah, Hinoka nodded, along with Yujito, the redeed responded, smelt her on the way in. Her little kid too. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that, not having seen said child, but then again, he hadn't been looking. Yujito says, so, we are fighting for them now. Fu smirked, mirth in her compound pupils. Yeah, if what I overheard is correct, those damn scaly hide bastards need to be reminded of their place. You just want to outfly them, again. Utakata commented dryly, and she beamed at him nodding rapidly, of course. They call me a dragonfly here instead of. It is not just dragons this time, Naruto informed, cutting off the energetic creature known as Fu, everyone's eyes falling to him. There are more than them posing a threat of our kin here. Once we are brought up to speed, we lacked. Then, and only then, will we move to secure them. His foxy grin turned feral, untamed, and damn right vicious. Ariana actually gulped at the sight of it, her scales fell cold upon the sight of the others matching his grin without hesitation. Who responded first, as expected, so, we get to kick butt, tear limbs from limb, and show this new era who we are, right? Naruto nodded once, firmly and uncompromising, yeah. We have a lot of work to do. It should be fun. The others nodded before Naruto looked to the lone outside. Ariana here is a young lizard who has sworn her fealty to me after I decimated her flock, who thought they could overpower me upon waking up. All eyes fall to the lone dragon, who grew impossibly tense under the gaze from these mythical creatures turned flesh she now sat beside. Fu grinned, budging her slightly, jolting the dragon from her fear-induced trance and returning the gaze to the mint-haired woman. Fu spoke calmly, at least for her, so, you are joining us now, huh? It should be fun to teach you how to fly and fight. In unison, both Naruto and Hinoka's ears perked up, Yujito followed by Gaara, all looking to the door, where they heard shuffling feet and a woman's voice hushed and speaking to another, remember, Kanu. He is our greatest hero, so be careful and respectful. I will, Okasama. A clearly young voice. He has 10 tails, right? The one from the stories. Yes. So, show him the utmost respect. It was then the woman stepped into the room and came face to face with 6 of the great 9 of the myths. All relaxing into the bath within the shrine. Isaka froze upon seeing the gathering within the temple's bathhouse. It took only a fraction of a second for her to realize what, or rather who was currently in attendance, causing her golden eyes to widen in disbelief. Naruto grinned at that, so did the others who offered cheeky grins or fleeting waves, and light chuckles echoed through the room. This is when the chibi version of the vixen stepped in, similarly dressed in a towel and hair up in a bun, a mirror the older version, and she too froze upon seeing so many people she did not know. After a brief stint of surprised silence, Fu broke it, oh, she's the age's 9 tails, the mint-haired shinobi turned Biju looked to the other 9-tailed vixen, relation. Hinoka shrugged uncaringly, gaze on the ceiling as she enjoyed the warmth of the bath, no clue. It's been like an year or 2 since we were all together, so I doubted. Or it's unlikely to matter. Utakata murmured, looking between the 2 adult vixens, analyzing their signatures in totality. He was the group's foremost expert on medical conditions. His focus then switches to mother and daughter, it is intriguing though. The 2 of them are nearly identical signature-wise at least. Isaka snapped out of her bewilderment at that, looking to the second silver-haired man, She was waved off by the human form slug, Utakata stating, it doesn't matter to us. Just a curious coincidence. Naruto then perked up, oh, the last 2 just arrived. All we are missing is that monkey. They all nodded though Yusaka spread her senses, snapping back to the door where another mountain of a man stepped in, his shades dark but grin light. His skin was dark, stretched across his bulging physique, tattoo of a bull on his shoulder, and a light blonde goatee donned his face. Oh yo, if it isn't 9-0, coming back like oh no. Naruto and the others chuckled at his bad rapping, no matter the time or era, his rapping hasn't gotten better. The final expected member strolled in after him, clearly a lot calmer and more composed, speaking up as his shimmering pink eyes land on his fellow water user, really Kurabi. Not even introducing yourself before rapping. Have you not learned anything during our slumber? Now known by Kurabi, looked at his younger counterpart, shaking his head with his grinning smirk on full, oh no, come one young 3, do know where we go from where we come, yeah. Div it up, Yakimaru, Naruto called out, the young man looks to his senpai, who held a knowing smile, that's just who he is. Don't stress about it. Yakimaru sighed as he nodded tiredly, making his way over to the rest, responding with, as you say, Naruto Nai. Just figured asking was fine. An exercise in futility more like, Yujito muttered, and they all chuckled at that with even Kurabi looking amused, making his way past the still stunned Yusaka, who was trying to get over the fact that the myths of old were gathering in her shrine's bath. Talking casually and without a care in the world. The fact that the beings here are potentially the longest living Yaokai in existence, with the power to back it up, did not escape her notice either. With them here, the Yaokai have a good chance to survive the coming storm. It took the prodding from her daughter to snap her out of her thoughts, Kanu speaking softly, Okasama. You are spacing out with our guest. As youngest present trailed off, Yusaka looked to see the group all smirking at her. She was somewhat embarrassed about spacing out, and this bowed again, speaking formally, much to their ire, forgive my inattentiveness. Anoka snorted like a lady, save the formalities. We don't use them and don't expect you to either. Yeah, Fu spoke next, backing up her fellow supposed myth, we aren't all that special. But Yusaka began only for Naruto to click his fingers, recalling what he learned earlier, speaking up, oh, that reminds me. Get this guys. Everyone leans in, focused on the 10-tailed kitsune among them, apparently, we are known in this era as the legendary myth of the 10. Anoka, Yujito, and Utakata immediately snorted, Fu burst out into cackling laughter, Kurabi and Han smirked with soft chuckles. Yakimaru sighed hard shaking his head. Naruto too was amused at the reactions to his statement. Isaka watched this in stunned silence. Did they not know of their heroics? Bringing peace for an age, their stand against the dragons, and the killing of a rogue god. She blinked at that. She should converse with Lady Amaterasu at her earliest convenience. Naruto continued to speak, gesturing to the really stiff dragoness at his side. "This one informed me about it," she said, and I quote. "The myth of 10 who led the Great Nine against the rogue god and its life-consuming tree which birthed them," end quote. They all shook their heads at that, the amusement falling off as their host finally joins them, her daughter beside her, Yasaka asking, "Is there any discrepancies?" "Although," Yujito began, voice light, "it isn't completely inaccurate. Barely scratched the surface of the fourth Shinobi War." Gaara finished, voice hard as diamond. This stunned the three youngest, Ariana, Yasaka, and Kanu. Yasaka asking, "Shinobi War?" The group all nodded. Naruto began, "The fourth Shinobi War was the only war fought by all nations against the rogue force that tried to take over the world. We had 70,000 shinobi against their 100,000 monsters and reanimations. It was nothing short of bloodbath. I was a member of the village hidden among the leaves, holder of the 9 tails of that era, Kurama no Yoko." Karabi spoke next, relaxing further into the water. "I was a member of the village hidden among the clouds. Holder of my old friend and former partner in crime, Gyukyushi Oni." Who then spoke, "I was one of the first casualties in the conflict as I came from the village hidden by the waterfall. We weren't as strong as the big 5, so we were hit pretty hard at the beginning. Lucky 7 Shimei was my first friend, a parent of sorts, and my final protector. He gave me his life after the smoke settled. So, I called him my dad before he parted for the Pure Lands and carry his legacy proudly." Not wanting the solemn air to hang and dampen the mood, Utakata spoke up after a heavy sigh. "I too was taken out in the initial stage of the war, but Seiken was stubborn and didn't let me pass on. As a wanderer after my escape from the village hidden in the mist, I was unaware of the danger until it was too late. In the end, Seiken apologized for its torment of me by swapping places with me. I have forgiven its transgressions and now just go where the wind takes me." Pan grunted, "Very much the same for me. After witnessing what my own did. The village hidden among the stone did not deserve my service. I traveled long and far to aid those who needed." Yakimaru sighed again, speaking up, "Well, me and Isubu were friends. When he went missing, I went looking for him. I found him after Naruto Nai freed him from the enemy control. To protect him from being reclaimed, he seemed shelter within me. In the end, to fix my already weak body, he gave me his all and told me to keep moving forward." Yujito spoke up after, "My partner was like my older sister. When the war broke out, we were already in enemy hands, my body being used as a puppet for them to channel her power to fight against Naruto-kun and Karabi, like most of us. After all was said and done, Madatabi gave me her body and moved on with her siblings. She said that their time had passed and that they trust us to do better in peace than they did." "Indeed," Gaara commented. Naruto and Hinoka snorted, knowing full well that Shukaku's successor was a man of few words. Isaka hadn't blinked the entire time, just listening intently to ensure she recorded everything to memory perfectly. This was highly important for her people after all. Though her daughter drew all eyes to her, Kanu asking as she looked at the female redeed, "What about you, lady with the red hair?" Both Naruto and Hinoka flinched at that. Hinoka's tale wasn't really a good one, just wrong place, wrong time. Hinoka looked to Naruto, who looked back, before they both looking to the young vixen, Hinoka responding, "That is a long story that is rather difficult to explain. Though, I will say that I had died but was stuck in the land between worlds. Lord Kurama and his father, the great sage of 6 paths, took pity on." "It wasn't pity." Naruto growled at her. Hinoka flinched from the familiar rage. The others all nodded. Yujito, who was sitting beside her, took her hand and stared into her eyes, speaking softly. "You protected the world silently for 2 years alone and unprompted, from forces who seeked its destruction. Even after your body gave out, flesh turned to dust, you stood firmly in your resolve. You earned the second chance more than anyone." Voices from the others all in agreement, though the 3 youngest all gawked at the information. Hinoka, this new 9 tails, had protected the world they now inhabited from forces of the Gap, likely Office and Great Red, and even after her death continued to do so out of sheer willpower. She most definitely earned her tails if they understood that right. As the soft small talk continued, none realized that the supernatural world was reeling from the arrival of a force unknown by even the oldest in living memory. The only faction with answers were the dragons who were preparing for Armageddon. This prompted the new moderate devil faction to do the same. Both types of angels were in the dark about this threat, though the Grigori caught wind of the devils arming up for a new war. This prompted them to do the same. This caused the angels of heaven to arm up in response to their fallen brethren, as to not be caught off guard. They had an alliance, true, but one can never be too careful. In the underworld, the Devil Council was formed in an emergency council as all the Yaokai who had called themselves residents had all packed up and began moving towards the territory of the Kong clan. No explanation for this was given by the few who were held to be questioned. Even after several interviews with the captives, they remained unyielding and more often than not showed increased defiance to their captors. torture was often even less effective. Deaths have occurred with all the final words echoing the same thing. Your reckoning is at hand. The Great Ten has returned. Naturally, the devil higher-ups did not take this seriously until now. Surziches had just revealed to his council the words of the Red Dragon Emperor and his warning in regard to the 10-tailed kitsune that defeated both Crom, the crescent circle dragon, an entire flock of greater dragons, and the juggernaut drive White Dragon Emperor within the space of 2 minutes. We need to bolster our armies. No. We should demand them to hand over their kitsune for questioning. What about the Kong clan? They must know something. Order them here at once. Silence. Surziches demanded, his magic flaring dangerously. Once they all settled down, he continued. If what the Red Dragon Emperor said is correct, then before we rush off and draw its ire, should we not do our research? We must handle this. How foolish. Zekrom Baal scoffed, drawing eyes to the now standing nobleman, leader of the council. He continued, ensuring he had all eyes and ears upon him. Simply demand that thing from them, or they will be cut off from our protection. Then, subjugate those within our domain and discover what they are hiding from us. Many agreed with the man. They would, as they were in his pocket, but it was Falbium who responded, did you not hear Lord Lucifer? Going to war with the Yaokai will only provoke a response from a threat that has kept both Big Red and Office at bay. Before Lord Baal could respond, Seraphol Leviathan, the Satan of diplomatic affairs, spoke. Not to mention, they did not attack us at all. In fact, it only seemed to have a problem with the dragons for some reason. Do you wish for them to aim their wrath upon us? Indeed. Surziches responded, a nod of thanks sent the way of Lady Leviathan, before he looked at the council ahead of his podium, speaking up. All we know of this 10-tailed kitsune is that it was dormant until the battle in Kyoto. We do not know how long it has been or when it fell asleep. All we do know is that the dragons are aware of it and at them. This suggests a history. Everyone nods along to this, so Surziches continued smoothly, from the warning we got from the Red Dragon Emperor, he too is aware of it, however, the way in which he spoke of it was more like in passing. Not directly. Meaning this was before even him. Surely you jest. Why do you think Lord Beelzebub is not here? Seraphol poses and they all notice that indeed the Green Satan was not present. Surziches takes up the conversation, right now, he is combing through the archives with a fine toothpick for any records or references to this 10-tailed kitsune. I will be talking with any devil dragons that remain in the underworld for answers. Lady Leviathan will be traveling to the dragon territory to seek an audience with Tiamat. What if they strike before you return? Then we call upon our allies and hope it's enough. Falbium states grimly. Bremery Estate. As soon as the council was dismissed, Surziches teleported to his clan estate where Riaz and her peerage was being kept, not risking them falling into enemy hands with all the chaos around the world in response to the new Yaokai. As he entered the family room, his sister was clearly on edge, whereas the rest were sitting on the sofas. Though, Issei too seemed more than a little jumpy for some reason. Clearing his throat drew attention to the Satan, Surziches speaking up, sorry for the wait. I have questions for you, Issei-kun. Or more accurately. Before anyone else could speak, Issei's dragon gauntlet appeared in a bright flash of red, Drake speaking up immediately, Red Satan. The answers you seek, I do not have. That kitsune is powerful enough to contend with Great Red in office, that is true and proven. Everyone gulped at that, but Surziches asks, then, how come we have never heard of it before? The chuckle heard from the sealed dragon was foreboding, but Drake replied, that is because it has existed before even, we dragons. Gasps of shock at that, Surziches trying to wrap his mind around that, but before he could ask, Issei did, how is that possible? Surely. It is Issei, Drake replied with a tight sigh, continuing after a moment, not only that, from what I recall from my hatchling days, we dragons waged war against them. Them? Akeno asks, curious about the fact that this was not singular. The silence was profound, and none escaped swallowing to moisten their throats. It was clear Drake was hesitant to speak, but he did so. The elders refer to them as the Great Ten, though the Yaokai refer to them as the legendary myth of the Ten, I believe. We consider them X-rank calamity class threats, and according to the old texts, they should never be provoked. Everyone was sweating bullets now. The Yaokai just gained a threat so great that even the dragons are trying to avoid confrontations with them. Though, Grafia noticed that the red dragon had sidestepped Akeno's question, Lord Drake, you did not answer the original question. Who are they when you said them? Another lengthy pause, and everyone swore they saw the gauntlet sweat, Drake answering slowly, their names have been lost, but their descriptions are known to me. You have their leader, the white-furred blue-eyed, 10-tailed kitsune that you all witnessed awaken. User of white flames that can outburn the sun itself. It has been proven, so do not question it. Everyone gulped at that. Drake continued, his second in command, always seen at its side, a scarlet 9-tailed vixen with red eyes and the ability to control dimensional spaces. She was able to hold back Great Red during the war alone. Another Kyuubi, Kiba muttered, a heavy exhale followed by his gaze returning to the contemplative Satan. Surziches muttered, if they have a second Kyuubi with that kind of ability, we will have to do something about that. Braig snorted, rather rudely. You will never get close enough to try. Brafian narrowed her cold glare at Issei's arm, and if Drake could glare, he would have. Akeno asks, what do you mean by that? Do you think if Great Red could not get close, you devils could? Do not insult us dragons as right now, we are the only things keeping you alive. Drake ranted. Like seriously, Great Red was at the pinnacle of strength for his kin, and this upstart thinks he could best his best. What a joke. Surziches lets out a tight sigh, knowing that to be true as he could never hope to match that dragon though, this Kyuubi is certainly a threat. Speaking up again, what of the others? Braid continued to debrief, the octopus. An 8-tailed Inyashi. Half bull, half octopus. Do not let that fool you as he is just as fast on land as beneath water. Don't recall its powers though. Surziches nods, asking anyway, so, in relation to. It's at least twice the strength of that vixen Yasaka. Drake commented dryly, causing them all to pale. It is said that their weakest is at least 50% stronger than she. That may change the longer they are awake. We have to get a handle on this, and quickly. Grafia commented. Surziches looks to his wife and nods. Yes. I will send a message to Lady Yasaka requesting an audience and try getting a peace treaty signed as soon as possible. The cackle from Drake drew all eyes to him, it lasted quite a while surprisingly, before he finally wheezed, you do not get it yet, Red Satan. These beings are the closest thing to gods to the Yaokai. Certified high-dai Yaokai-like beings. Now that they are awake, they will be brought up to speed on what they missed in during their slumber. All those who connected the dots all paled at that. Swallowing hard at the prospect of the upcoming storm. Issei asks, still out of the loop, what does that have to do with? Braig snaps at his partner, annoyed at his lack of intelligence in this moment, partner. The Yaokai will tell their gods exactly who and what has transgressed against them since records began. They will want blood. Devil, fallen, heck I will not be surprised if the church is hit too. Maybe a few of the pantheons. Now Issei paled, looking at the grim looks upon everyone's faces and gulped hard, but that means. Exactly, partner. Now you understand, Drake spoke softly, having calmed down enough, though he speaks up, the 7-tailed beast is known as Dragonfly. It has repeatedly outflown our best and packs a punch that would shatter clean through even my hide. Head shakes of disbelief echoed far and wide, Dry-eyed continued, the 6-tailed is a slug. Its fluids can return others from near death to fully rejuvenated or melt scale to muck in under 2 seconds. They look the same so you will have to trust it to give you the right one. None spoke so the red dragon continued, the horned horse of 5 tails, nothing can stop it from running, and those that try don't live long enough to talk about it. It also breathes superheated gases of various types. The air was tense enough to be seen, though Dry-eyed continued, the other 5 tails is actually here, in the underworld. All snapped to look at the gauntlet of the red dragon at that, Surzich is demanding, it is? Where? How long? I can sense its presence, but no idea exactly where it is. Just that it is a gorilla of some kind. Dragon forms and Surzich's pales, the Kong clan. All the Yaokai in the underworld are gathering up in their territory. Ah, Drake said, and all could feel the nod of agreement in his words, they must have awoken due to the others. That 5 tails is capable of throwing senior dragons, breaths lava that it is immune to, and is more than a little cunning. Surzich's finishes sending off is familiar with the notes he took regarding this 5 tails. Seraphil will need it. Drake continued, the 4-tailed turtle. His scales are tough. We do not know how tough. Though, of them all, it is a pacifist and does not like fighting. Many let out a little sigh, thankful that not all of them are bloodthirsty. Drake decided to take that comfort from them, did not save us from its wrath though. Some idiots attacked it for a full day before it snapped. No bodies were recovered. Many exchanged glances, Drake continued, the 3-tailed Nekamada. All eyes widened in disbelief that one of these overpowered Yaokai was a Nekamada. This meant that it was likely the progenitor of the race, based off its age, which now firmly put even Surziches and Grafia in the fear category if it finds out about the devil's crime against the race. Drake could taste the fear in the room and he was sealed inside a gauntlet held by a pervert. Thus, decided to up it further, yes. It is what you call the forebearer of the race, but they were nothing but a cheap knockoff. Her flames make even mine look like timid campfires. He cackled at the stress he was sensing in these devils, Dryad continued, finally, the 2-tailed Tanuki. Winds and sands answered his call, so as long as he stands within either, he is impervious to damage. Tanked a full squadron of ice breathers for an hour and glared them down. The silence was thick and weighted that lasted a full 10 minutes. Hibba broke it with a question, looking to the still slowly flickering green gem, why are you telling us all this, Red Dragon? what is in it for you? All eyes look upon the gem on the boy's arm as it lets out a deep, heavy sigh. Drake spoke solemnly, due to the war my kin started, these great nine and the kitsunes do not like dragons. Any dragon. Understand. It took a moment before what he meant sank in, and all locked on Issei who was the last to get it and paled, squeaking out pitifully, you mean? Yes, partner, ever since you gave me your arm, you smell just like a dragon. I doubt they will care about technicalities and will likely kill you on sight. Drake confirmed that which all suspected. Riaz rushed over and brought him into a boob-filled embrace, trying to calm her pawn, but this time it wasn't working. After all, his very power has now doomed him, and the decision to give up his arm to save the woman currently hugging him will now lead to his demise. Being strong enough to kill gods and dragons alike. What kind of fucked up situation is this? Kyoto Council Chamber. After the bath and food, the recently awakened group was led by Yasaka and Kanu into the council chamber. Naruto and his group were hit with a healthy dose of nostalgia, recalling their own time standing before such councils, but it was bittersweet. This time round, however, they were greeted with a standing ovation and cheers from the Yaokai in attendance. It was frantic and enthusiastic to say the least as they strolled in front of the overflowing room. Each section had specific races which shared their likeness in various forms. From the expected Kitsun and Nekamada to the bulls and slugs. There were a beetle group too, that Fu waved to enthusiastically, and they cheered louder at being represented at the very pinnacle of Yaokai kind. It took a good half hour for any semblance of calm to return, but the energy was still electrifying. Didn't help that Karabi kept strongman posing along with his fellow bullkin. Fu was chatting with her fellow beetles a mile a second, and they were keeping up with her high-energy speech. Utakata was calmly speaking with his fellow slugs, though the snailkin was among them too, and were discussing various topics and issues. Vegito was near enough ordering a situation update from the few Nekamada in attendance in a hushed whisper that was below even a breath yet to each other, it seemed to be normal. Gara was stoic alongside the other Tanuki, who were more than a little proud that they numbered among the myths of old. It was a surprise that his name was actually known to them. Yukimaru slipped in with his fellow turtle folk, the tortoise too, and they were calmly waiting for the quiet to return, though spoke shortly with one another. Han was eyeing up the other horse folk, the rhinoceros kin too, who were all eyeing him up just the same. It was silent, but they all knew they'll be racing soon enough. Naruto and Hinoka were with their fellow Kitsun, who all more than a little star-stuck at their arrival. Naturally, they had seen Naruto's awakening and his easy defeat of the dragons. His power is unquestionable, and his 10 tails were the proof of it, as they were far longer than theirs and far more graceful in their opinion. Hinoka wasn't far off either. Her pale crimson hair was a new taste for many, and her long red tails matched that of Naruto, though his seemed to a few inches longer than hers. At a glance you couldn't tell. Her crimson eyes were alluringly dangerous and tell of a quick mind and no doubt quicker body leaning towards an agile fighter. Seeing Yasaka trying to calm everyone down, Naruto let out a single growl and all fell silent, looking to him, and the glare he sent the room silenced any protest. He then looked to Yasaka, who nodded her thanks before she addressed the room at large. Thank you all for coming despite it being so late in the evening. Seeing no one objecting, Yasaka continued, as you can all see, the legendary myths are not just myths, but have finally returned to us. Over the next week they will be getting caught up to speed with our history, as they have all been dormant for some time now. Many nodded to that, it was understandable as they had all watched a kitsune emerge from beneath the mountain. Yasaka continued her address, as such, feel free to interact with them should they approach you for questions. I will now allow them to introduce themselves. Legendary myth of the 10pt.2. Kyoto Yaokai District. Vegito needed air. After spending a few hours with her fellow Nekamada, she had heard of all the recent history of her descendants. It was cruel, filled with strife and hardships by many races. Most notably, the devils. This ultimately led her to this point. Running across the rooftops of the Yaokai territory of Kyoto to clear her head and get things out of her head and into a perspective to figure out her next move. Naruto will come to her when she has calmed down enough to talk, he always does, but right now, she is undetectable until she calms. Leaping over another alleyway, she smelt something familiar yet off nearby. As curious as any other feline, Yujito follows her nose to find a young Nico-like girl, white hair and fur with a single tail. She was attempting to sneak around and was doing a decent job at it, for a civilian at least. Following her, Yujito can smell the Nekamada running thick within her, but something was off. Really off about it. Her chakra too was giving a weak signal as if it were covered by something unnatural. It was rather perplexing, so Yujito continued to follow this kitten until she entered a bathhouse. She followed inside, unseen and unnoticed by all. This is also when she spotted a second Nico with the same feelings from it. Black with twin tails, seemingly following the white one as she reached her room. This was a genuinely curious encounter. Yujito could tell the two were related, that was obvious, but what was this taint they both had? The white one took out a device and pressed a few numbers before speaking. Hi President. Yes. I am fine. No. I am alive. Just. What were you thinking? You know how dangerous what you did was? The voice on the other end of that device. The white-haired Nico nodded, responding, yes. But, that kitsune said those without chakra. So, I was safe. That doesn't matter. Listen. The Red Dragon Emperor has told us about that kitsune and his group. The dragons call them the Great Nine, but the Yaokai call them the legendary myth of the Ten. Does that mean anything to you? Yujito watched a black cat perk up, clearly knowing what was being said and understanding the gravity of it. Yujito though, cursed the fact that a stupid red lizard has been telling stories. Oh, Naruto is not going to like that at all. She tuned back into the white one's conversation. No, I do not know about much Yaokai history. I will ask around since I am here. Be careful, Kaneko. The two kitsune are able to go head to head with Great Red and Office. Both Nico paled at that and Yujito smirked, recalling that little scuffle. Slowly, the now identified Kaneko responded, Hi President. I would be careful. Good. Though, I think you should also be aware of another one. A three-tailed Nekamada is among them. We think she's the progenitor of your race. That caused both Nico beings to freeze in shock. Yujito chuckled lowly and thus was discovered by both the other cats. Not seeing any reason to hide anymore, Yujito stepped into the low light, her three blonde base, blue tip tails coming into view. Oh, poor kittens. You should see both your faces. Kaneko was slack-jawed at the fact that she hadn't even sensed her at all, then what she said clicked and looked around for a second person, completely ignoring the calls from the device. Seeing this, Yujito looked to the side directly into the eyes of the still hidden black cat and smirked, You cannot hide from me, young kitten. True to her words, the black cat stepped into the light before puffing into a certain stray devil who was really nervous right now standing before the original Nekamada. Kaneko was stunned that it was her sister, somehow also stalking her, and now they both stood before their ancestor. Yujito inspected these two more closely as she was no longer needing to remain discreet. The black-haired one was by far stronger and more in touch with nature, but the white one seemed more tense and hesitant. She finally orders, names, now. Hi Kaneko Taoju, Rook of Ria's Gremory. Kuroka, her sister. Yujito looked at the white-haired girl, who reflexively cowed away as the low growl was heard, Rook. As in those enslavement things I have heard of from the others. Kaneko was in a tough spot now. She can't betray the president by saying yes, but lying to her races first was also out of the question. Thankfully, she was saved by her sister, Kuroka, who spoke, yes, I have two bishop pieces. They turned us into half-devil Yaokai hybrids. Yujito nodded, smelling the taint, but she bites back her hiss that wanted out, speaking softly, then, this is something I cannot ignore. Will not ignore. This drew the full attention of both Nikos and the secretly listening audience from the drop device. Kuroka muttered lowly, our pieces cannot be removed. We are forever. You perhaps, Yujito said with eyes hard as tungsten, eyes meeting her fellow feline dead on. But I happen to have the perfect man for the job. Boo. Kaneko blurted out, earning a catty grin from her predecessor, the only man I have laid with. The only man, Kuroka muttered before it clicked. You mean our race's patriarch? Yujito smirked while nodded, and both other kittens sensed a brief flickering of her super dense chakra ever slightly. The control on display was impossible to comprehend fully, but both younger cats were in awe of it. Suddenly, a bright flash of silver, and there stood Naruto, Hinoka and Gaara, the 10 tails speaking up, you called, Yugi. Yujito glared at him, but it lacked any heat, before she smirked, Narukoi, let me introduce you to our youngest kittens. Naruto looked over the two Nekamada, eyes unbelievably piercing that caused both catgirls the feeling that nothing escaped this man's eyes. Correction. Their patriarch's eyes, which suddenly narrowed to fine lines as if finding something. He growled deeply. A snarl followed by. I see why you called me, Yugi-chan. He glances at the other two new arrivals, thoughts. But he did not need ask, as both growled at what their own senses were picking up. Gaara spoke, such a waste of resources. This is nasty stuff, to think these are what runes can do, Hinoka growled, glaring at the chest areas on both, I think I can make a counter. Do that, Naruto commented, stepping forward, eyes fixed on the white-haired girl, who stiffened under his gaze. Her tail was puffed fully. Naruto spoke firmly. Relax, kitten. I know more about your kind than either of you. He kneeled down, eyes fixated on the piece within her chest, as if directly inspecting the chest-like piece. Gaara, what are your thoughts? Gaara was inspecting the other Nico, eyes just as piercing, our Fuinjutsu would likely work. Though, I am unwilling to test it on live targets until I can study them directly. Hinoka spoke next, nodding, yeah, even ours are the same. Naruto nodded, before glancing back at Yujito who nodded at him, asking then, can you use that? I could, Naruto confirmed looking back at the piece beneath the surface of the team before him, lifting his left hand up, though, we should keep an eye on her vitals. No idea if it will fight back. In that case Kuroka spoke up, drawing all eyes back to her, she bowed her head, please. Test it on me. Leave my little sister for afterward. Both Naruto and Yujito looked to one another, and again, Naruto received a nod, thus he stood up, okay, kitten. Moving towards her, Gaara stepping aside, allowing his brother to gain access. The Catwoman and Naruto raised his left arm again, it began to glow a soft white hue. Before Kuroka could react, Naruto thrusted his hand into her chest, yet she found no pain or anything. Hineko gawked at the fact that the kitsune had his hand in her sister's chest, yet she seemed unaffected. Naruto frowned, kissing his teeth, before glancing back at Yujito, these things are a piece of work. We should find the fucking asshole responsible and shove a Rasengan up his ass. Yujito nodded once, the fact that Naruto swore means that it's serious. Then add in the Rasengan plus a specific body part means it more so. Now, the ass is only one step below the balls her head, so yes, he was not happy. She asks, can you? I can probably. Naruto murmured as he continued to figure out these evil pieces, though, if Mama Dearest would like to lend a hand here. Without warning Yujito placed her hand on the elbow of his embedded arm, channeling her chakra, and immediately she perks up, then eyes narrowed in focus, I see. They really did a number on her physiology. Some of that is likely to be down to generation splitting your two, plus that error we made. Naruto informed and Yujito nodded, but that alerted both Nico ladies, Kaneko asking. Error? Not now, kitten, Yujito spoke distractedly, eyes narrowed in focus. Mummy and daddy are busy with your sister. Hinoka snorted, glaring at the cat, oh, cut that shit out. It's rather. I agree. Gaara commented, eyebrow twitching. Sorry. Both Naruto and Yujito said in unison, but their tone indicated that they were not in the slightest. A full minute later Naruto and Yujito looked to one another and nodded, before looking back at the black cat, Yujito speaking, kitten, you are about to feel a little lightheaded and may faint. It's fine though, we have you, okay. Kuroka gulped but nodded, these two made their entire race, so it should be fine right. They know what they are doing. Whatever it is they are doing. Naruto whispered, on three. Abruptly he yanked out the two evil pieces and as expected, Kuroka fainted but was caught by Yujito immediately. Naruto stood though, eyeing the two bishop pieces in hand, speaking softly, how barbarically complex. Gaara and Hinoka approached, eyes glued ominously on the pieces of crystal that was handed one to each of them by the white-haired man. Naruto handed them over. Here. Investigate them. The two scholars of their group did just that, already lost in thought and murmuring silently. Naruto chuckled before looking back at the concerned mother hen like Yujito, speaking softly as he approached, how is she? She is fine. You do excellent work, Yujito murmured softly, glancing to his careful expression, smiling softly. It'll be fine. Work on the other kitten. Got it, Naruto nodded before looking to Kaneko who straightened up, the man stepped forward silently, relax, kitten. This won't be pee. They all sensed the magic surge and narrowed their eyes as they all stared and watched as the Gremory magic sigil and appeared Ria's Gremory, her peerage, and her brother Surzich's Lucifer. This was a bad idea. As soon as they finished materializing, two massive explosions of killing intent smack across them, bringing them to their knees, with even Grafia and Surzich's struggling to breath and only barely able to hear the ice-cold breath of one Nekamada progenitor. You filthy bats. You have some nerve coming here, Naruto hissed lowly, he had Kaneko clutched protectively against his chest, carrying her like a child in a princess carry, having leapt back during their arrival and landed beside Yujito. Gaara had one arm raised with sand rippling across it, Hinoka raised her right, preparing for the attack. Dibba pulled his sword, Akeno was already powered up in shrine garb, and Ria's powered her power of destruction, but when Issei pulled out his dragon gauntlets, he was crushed by the overwhelming killing intent from all four. Naruto hissed so coldly, the frozen tundras of the Niflheim would be jealous, another lizard. Let's just blast them all, Yujito hisses, though she's still clutching the rousing black Nico, it'll do the world a favor. Wait. Surzich's called out, trying to hold back the intent, shielding those behind him, I only wished. Foolish bat. Hinoka muttered, her intent glowing, eyes narrowed, you are trespassing and dared teleport before us. We came here for her. Surzich's looking to the white-haired Nico, she belongs with her. We are the progenitor of her race, filth, Yujito hissed and Naruto growled, his 10 tails now waving dangerously aggressive. This is when Grafia attempted to prepare an emergency escape, but the transfer magic fails to connect to the circle back in the Gremory estate they just left, or any of the other Gremory circles, even those here in the human world, that caused her to stiffen in concern. She noticed the redhead's piercing ruby gaze, eyes hard as stone, that were locked in on her, which reminded the Queen Devil of what the red lizard had said about her control of spaces and dimensions. This was a truly terrible idea. Naruto spoke lowly now, hand over the lizard and we might decide not to kill you all. That is hardly a choice, Surziches muttered, still trying to regain his breath, holding out against such high level of killing intent, but thankfully Kaneko had their back still, placing her tiny hand on Naruto's whiskered cheek, calling him Grandpa. Naruto looked down at the kitten arm, a brow raised at the title, though he heard the excited chirp from the blondish blue-haired woman at his side that he refused to acknowledge. He spoke softly, killing intent trailing off, "You have a question for me?" A request, Kaneko whispered, and he nodded, thus she continued, "Let them go." "Fine, you have to remain here though, yes? What about the others? I am sure many of our kittens still remain within the underworld." Yujito asking, interrupting the duo's bonding moment. Naruto looks back over at her, with a soft smile, saying, "I never said we were not going to look for the lost kittens, just that this one would remain here with us." Yujito nodded, a soft smile gracing her features before looking down at the now waking Kuroka, who looked adorably cute in a drowsy state, like the kitten she is. Yujito would have squealed to the heavens at it, but memories of the dragon telling stories returned, looking at Naruto. "That red lizard has been telling stories. They know about you too, Kitsun, and my connection to these kittens." Naruto nodded, understanding the situation, eyes glued on the said red lizard, his intent beginning to raise again. Kaneko, who pointed out the still open call on her phone, offering, "They were listening from my phone." The smartphone that was suddenly encased in sand before being compacted to the size of a penny. Gaara was in no mood for games. When Yujito stepped beside him, Naruto spoke next, directly to the dragon before him, "I will not ask a second time, lizard. Submit or you all will face us, as no doubt you have noticed your teleportation magic does not work here." Surziches glanced at his queen and wife, who gives him a subtle nod, before returning his gaze forward and cursed the situation internally. It was supposed to be a quick snatch and grab, rescue of his little sister's rook, if lucky grab the Nekamada progenitor too as a bargaining chip for negotiations. It seemed to be a trap, as that nine-tailed vixen was here too, able to lock down space-time apparently. How were they supposed to know that Naru was the name of the 10-tailed kitsune? If the 10 tails can go up against and hold off both void dwellers alone, right now he is backed up by a vixen who could probably match him, and supported by the flame incarnate Nekamada and invulnerable tank Tanuki, made fighting an effort in futility without a doubt. His slow mechanical look to the pawn of his sister's employ caused widened eyes from the devils present, beside his wife of course, who came to the same conclusion as her husband. Issei was damn right terrified right now. He was warned about this kitsune's hatred to dragonkind and did not think it would appear to bite him so quickly. Now that the Satan was looking to him now, it all but confirmed that they were powerless to protect him. His heart dropped at that. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, the still struggling Riaz summoned all her might to pull her pawn back, halting his attempted advance, declaring, rather boldly, "You cannot have my precious." "Riaz?" Surziches hissed at her, eyes narrowed dangerously in a murderous glare. A first for all, which truly highlighted just how dire the situation was. He continued, "This is no time for your greedy whims, unearned arrogance, or misplaced pride. These beings can and will kill all of us with little effort or care. But Naisama. They already have." "Riaz?" Surziches responded sharply, though it was Issei himself who convinced her to let him go, unknowingly sealing himself onto a fate far worse than death, speaking up, "It is okay, President. You have given me a life when you brought me back when that fallen killed me. This is just me giving it back." His smile was heavy but resigned, yet before they could all give their farewell speeches, Naruto appeared before the teenager, hand glowing faintly as it was thrusted into his chest. Everyone was wide-eyed and froze in shock. None moved, with the impaled Issei staring down at the arm currently embedded into his chest, only managing to mutter out, "Huh." A full 30 seconds before the devil heiress known as Ria screamed and Naruto yanked his arm clear of the boy's chest, a swirl of emerald flowing out with it, green energy filling the room briefly, threads of the same energy slowly breaking from the boy to the orb. All the loose energy began to congregate upon the glass-like orb now held in the 10-tailed kitsune's raised hand, the blue eyes fully slit as he glared at it. Naruto muttering, "Did you think you were out of reach of us, red lizard? That we'd let you escape upon the death of your current holder? How naive of you." Riaz had caught Issei's limp body, unseen by all, as their attention was focused on the kitsune, holding what seemed to be one of orbs from the gauntlet of the red dragon, but was glowing far greater than any before, pulsing continuously with greater and greater luminance each time. The soul of the dragon perhaps. That was broken by the stirring Issei, who slowly opened his eyes to see his president above him, who had tears running down her cheeks, thinking that he was dead. He muttered out, "President." "Issei. You're okay?" Riaz asks, to which the boy thought on it a moment before nodding, though he felt rather weakened at the moment. Issei replied, "Yes, President. I am just really tired." Thank the Satan's Rias breathed out before guiding his gaze to the brilliant shining orb held by the kitsune. Issei's eyes widen as he instinctively knew what it was, reaching for it, crying out. Drag. Naruto and Hinoka had just finished collecting all the seeped power from the room and sealing it within the orb completely. Hinoka confirmed this, that's the last of it. Ara stepped up and tapped the orb with a finger and strange script covered the grapefruit-sized ball, causing it to condense further to the size of a tennis ball. No chance of escaping now. Stop, please, Issei pleads, not wanting to see his partner die, but the beings were not listening to him. Naruto grinned darkly, speaking with loathing, I have been told of your story, little lizard. Your arrogance is truly a curse upon this world. Fear not, once I find that white one I wounded before, he will be following after you to the afterlife, never to return. I will not beg for my life, Kitsune of old. Just end this charade. Drag can be heard by all. Naruto made no move to have heard for a full 5 seconds before he stated finally. As you wish. You are braver than most, I will give you that. Upon those words leaving his lips, white flames engulfed the sphere, his hands clenched, and the ball shattered, imploding into itself, the shattered pieces still searing white flames to ensure nothing was left behind. Not even the ash remained. When everyone opened their eyes, the kitsune was kneeling in front of Kaneko, who was standing before her predecessor with hands on her shoulders, as if a proud parent presenting their child for inspection. Naruto's arm glowed white softly again and with a far gentler grace, pushed his hand into her chest and took hold of the rook chess piece within firmly. This time there was a reaction. Just not from Kaneko. Rias fell forward onto her hands, gasping before clutching her chest, above her heart, but she wasn't alone as the others of her peerage followed suit, all losing breath and strength at the forceful destruction of their link with their friend. Surziches wanted to intervene, he really did, but the fact that the vixen nor the twin-tailed man had broken their gaze from him means that so much as a twitch they did not like will result in a fight they won't win. Swallowing spit, he hoped whatever was happening with his sister would not be fatal and that she was strong enough to hang on a bit longer. Eventually, after a good minute, Naruto slowly and gently pulled out his hand that was firmly clutching a rook chess piece that was pulsing and humming with the tainted devil energy. This time however, the patient remained standing and just felt lightheaded and lethargic. Naruto stared at the thing in his hand for a few seconds and shakes his head, barbaric. Rising to his feet, Naruto hands the piece of runic inscriptions to his fellow seal expert, with this, I can assume that you can come up with something, right? Ara nodded, taking the powered-up article, and theories began to formulate already. Turning back to the Satan and his party, Naruto's group all sneered, the male kitsune spoke colder than the Ice Queen's magic could reach. As a courtesy of the request from the kitten, we shall allow you to leave unharmed this time. But take this warning with you. An otherworldly level of killing intent smacked into the two Satan-class devils, causing a primal fear reaction of going stiff as a board, breaths held, and pupils contracted. They were on the way to passing out, but the will of their opponents prevented them from doing so. Yujito finished, we are coming for the sons and daughters of the Yaokai. Ara added. Do not impede, deny, or confront us. Hinoka finished for them all, or hell shall know our wrath. The only two conscious devils nodded mutely as they shakily spin up their now active transportation magic circle. Vanishing the next moment. The following morning. Naruto stretched and yawned in his fox form. The familiar warmth and chakra from his usual bunkmate filled his senses, which was expected, as he finally opens his eyes to find himself in his den, located deep in the forest within the shrine grounds. Over the ages, he had grown fond of burrowing beneath the earth and creating these spaces like his natural counterpart happened to do. He wasn't in his full-powered form, but rather a far more conservative one, being a little bigger than most stallions. Though, it seems that this time around, Hinoka seems adamant about creating a new line of kitsune, as the differences between the two of them and this generation are surprisingly numerous. Not that it matters. They were kitsune too. Must be from those jabs made by Yujito last night about how they had created the Nekamada race, and subsequently, the Nakasho. The race those two kittens are. It seems his influence on the Nekamada meant they were able to eventually create a superior form. Yujito had never been that smug before. Hope it isn't contagious. Glancing down at his side, Hinoka too was in her conservative anima form cuddled up beside him. Looking back, their tails were firmly interwoven, meaning he can't get up until she does. Internally snorting to himself, a smokeless shadow clones, followed by old reliable substitution jutsu. Climbing out from the den, Naruto yawned as he glanced up at the sky. Midday. Should go hunt for food. No doubt the vixen will be hungry and whiny when she finds out he sub-bet out for a clone again. Spreading his senses, he picks up the entire garden, and surely enough there was an abundance of rabbits, deer, and a few wild boars. Jackpot. Devil Council. The entire council had gathered again on the orders of Satan Lucifer this time. Apparently, there was news that had to be passed on, and now even Satan Beelzebub was in attendance after his survey of their archives for any word on this new enemy. Once the door was shut, Surziches signaled to Ajuka, who stood and took center stage. Everyone had noticed the hard steel gaze and frowning face of the Red Satan, indicating the seriousness of the situation. Ajuka began calmly, drawing eyes to him, "Thank you for your speedy arrival. I unfortunately do not have much of anything to report. We have no records regarding this 10-tailed kitsune whatsoever. I have checked all the way back to the very beginning of our race and not a single mention of such a being." Many murmured at that. It was unheard of that such a powerful being hadn't been recorded by them or their predecessors. Just how old was this thing if they had no mention of it? Seraphol Leviathan stepped up next, taking the podium, and was surprised by the cooperation of the nobles, speaking formally. "I went to the dragons and all our reports are true. None of them are talking, but have warned us about the awakening of this being." She paused, assuming someone was going to ask a question about her words. When none came, Seraphol continued. "Apparently, in an age before our own, they had a conflict with the Kitsun and his allies and lost. Badly. A deep hatred for them had since fostered within the Kitsun, so diplomatic overtures since have been strained at best, deadly at worst." As she stepped away, again to a silent room, Surziches stepped up and the air grew tense as his eyes could incinerate any of them on a whim. The Red Satan began. "Last night, my sister received a call from her rook, who had stayed behind in Kyoto after the Kitsun's declaration of death." Many raised brows, but that was the limit of movement, Surziches continued. "She had begun to rely intelligence, confirming our own gathered from the Red Dragon Emperor himself." "Such as?" Lord Bale asks with a raised brow. Figuring it would help out later, Surziches answered that. Descriptions of the Kitsun and his team the dragons had. No names though, but enough to identify them moving forward. Many murmurs broke out on hushed whispers, Surziches continued, regardless of speaking over them, "The 10-tailed Kitsun you have all been made aware of. On par with Great Red and Office. Has a loathing for anything dragon-related, confirming what Satan Leviathan says." Many nodded, so he continued, "His second, another Kyuubi that has abilities related to controlling space-time apparently. Red-furred with similar strength to hold back the void dwellers using techniques we are unfamiliar with." Many worried glances shared, Surziches pushed on explaining the other tailed beasts the dragon had informed them about, skipping the three-tailed Nekamada, as he wanted to address that last. As he finished with the twin-tailed Tanuki, Zekrom Bale spoke up, "Is there not a three tails? The way you—" "I was getting to that," Surziches hissed at the man who went silent, allowing the Satan time to continue. "The reason I skipped the three-tailed beast is because who she is and the gravity of the situation we find ourselves facing." Now the air was thick enough to be barely visible, tension through the roof, as Surziches takes a deep breath before explaining, "The three tails of the new group of Super Yaokai is the progenitor of the Nekamada race as a whole." Many lumps were swallowed in the overbearing silence that statement had elicited. A wary breath from the Satan broke many from the silently panicked minds. Surziches continued explaining, "During my little sister's rook debriefing," said Yaokai revealed herself to her. "We were able to listen to the conversation that confirmed that she did indeed create the Nekamada and by extension the Nakasho race." "What does that mean?" "It means," Surziches spoke through clenched teeth, glaring at the stupid counselor, who cowered away, he continued, "that she is aware of the history of the race and wants blood for the transgressions against her children." Paled face appeared all over the room as realization hit them all like a freight train. Even the other Satans grimaced at that. Surziches was not done yet, that is the good news. Many gulps of air were taken as he continued, "The bad news is that the other parent of the race." Fear rose, hoping and praying it is not who they all thought it was. The grimace upon the Red Satan's normally cheerful face caused iron weights to settle in stomachs across the chamber. Surziches nodded once, speaking tightly, "Yes. The two progenitors of the Nekamada are the three-tailed Nekamada and the 10-tailed Kitsun. I had the pleasure of meeting them last night." Many panicked and sweating minds snapped to him in disbelief, he had met them last night. Is that why he looked so upset? Surziches continued, "Not only did they kill the Red Dragon Emperor, who was helpless against his might, right before me, but they also somehow managed to remove the evil pieces from both my sister's rook and the stray cat Kuroka. Both are now staying with them." Ajuka blurted out, "They what? How? It shouldn't be." "I watched them do it," Surziches replied to his friend, a heavy sigh slipping through his lips before meeting the green Satan's eyes dead on. "All I know is that 10-tailed Yaokai plunged his hand into chest of former rook Kaneko Taoju and removed the piece without harming her in the slightest. In the space of 30 seconds, all her devil aspects were purged from her system and removed in one go." "Impossible. Any ill effect on Ria's in her peerage?" Ajuka asks, ignoring the pompous council's cries of indignation. Surziches nodded, saying, "They have been unconscious since it happened." Their life signs are stable, but they are not waking up. Ajuka returns the nod, I will come with you after this and check on them. Might be able to discover how it was accomplished and find a countermeasure. Suddenly Lord Bale spoke up, this cannot go unpunished. All eyes land on the old devil, the Satans with narrowed eyes, that allowed the man to continue, we shall take our armed forces and subdue the Kong clan and secure the five-tailed beast that resides there and any Yaokai who have fled there for protection. Did you not hear what I said? Surziches hissed, power flaring, they already have their sights set on us. They even gave me the warning that they are coming to find any and all Nekamada that remain in the underworld. Then, we strike them down. How on the seven hells do you propose we do that, huh? Seraphil asks bewildered and angered. Naruto's burrow. Naruto totally called it. Hinoka was pissed when he got back to his den. Fully and completely pissed. Ready to destroy a continent or two. Until he presented the food. He was pardoned. Not forgiven but pardoned. After that they headed back to the shrine where they were going to run into the new big dogs around here. The Shinto pantheon. Not that they knew it. Kyoto shrine. Isaka was nervous. Damn right terrified. The moment she had called out to Lady Amaterasu for an audience, the deity had materialized in her office with her two brothers, Lord Sasanu and Tsukuyomi, and all dressed for war. After answering the many questions they all had regarding the last 24 hours, Amaterasu had revealed that their sight on the city had been hampered. Not just Kyoto either, they lost sight of Hokkaido, Okinawa and Nagasaki. Okinawa and Nagasaki had returned to their view just before dusk, but Hokkaido and Kyoto remained blocked from them. So, when Yusaka had contacted them, they were preparing for war with whatever is causing this phenomenon, and we're not taking chances. Only to find out that a kitsune from an age long forgotten had returned. Imagine their surprise upon hearing the name Naruto was for them. They knew of him from the tales the Shinigami had told of him. The chosen one of his cycle who brought peace for an age. They had long thought he had perished in the age of Shinobi, only to find him here, awoken from his hibernation and slumber, to save his kin from the genocidal groups seeking to disrupt the balance of nature. Even more surprising was that his entire team was with him. All slumbering until now. Amaterasu and her brothers went rigid hands on swords, which alerted Yusaka that something was amiss, and she was the only one not aware of what. The goddess of the sun spoke first, we did not come here for a fight. You can stand down, Naruto Uzumaki, Hinoka Uzumaki, Kurabi of Kumo, Fu of Taki, Utakata of Kiri, Han of Stone, Yakimeru of Crystal, Yujido Nai, and Gara no Sabaku. As the goddess listed off their old names, they appeared from the shadows all over the room, not looking anywhere close to pleased and tense, whilst glaring at the god standing defensively before them. Who spoke first, no little amount of venom in her tone, the last goddess to claim that tried to wipe out all life on the planet. So, do not expect an apology from any of us. Amaterasu nodded at that, slowly and carefully removing her hand from her sword, her fellows doing the same as they drop out of their defensive stances, trying to show their non-hostile intent. These being were able to erase them if they all have access to those balls Yusaka had described. The young Kyuubi did not know just how dangerous those truth-seeking orbs were. The killing intent had lessened, but the old shinobi were clearly ready for anything. Any wrong twitch. Yusaka had never been this tense. The air was thick, weighted, and loaded with enough killing intent to kill low to mid-class devils by proximity. She herself was having a challenging time just trying to breathe in the presence of these beings. Eventually, Amaterasu spoke slowly, we are not the rabbit goddess Kagaya. The great 10 all tensed upon the name, truth-seeking orbs appearing behind them all, on reflex, numbers matching their respective tails. Apparently, that was the wrong thing to say. Yakimeru spoke next, voice tight, we killed her at the end of the age of the shinobi. Just like the rest. Why mention her now? If she was remembering correctly, and she really hoped she is, that one was Yakimeru and is the pacifist and least likely to commit to a fight, so Amaterasu faced him, we just wanted to show you that we are aware of your strength and what you are capable of doing to us. Thus, have come to seek an audience. Yakimeru nodded once, visage unyielding, tone flat as he replied. And why would you want to speak with us, exactly? Well, Amaterasu began hesitantly, eyes flickering to the 4 void balls hovering at the gray-haired purple-eyed human form 4-tailed turtle. Yet before she continued, Utakata spoke up, it was you, huh? All eyes fall to the 6 tails, whose eyes looked between Yusaka and Hinoka, nodding before he looked to the sun goddess. His tone flat too, Utakata explained, I would say a few generations or so removed, but the markers are all there within the signature. Naruto and Hinoka both offer stiff nods, having not break their gazes from the 3 deities in the center of the room. Hinoka spoke next, so, what we suspected is true. The kitsunes of this age are not related to either of us. Isaka gasped at that, looking from the goddess to the other Kyuubi then back, in time to see Amaterasu nod once more, speaking up, the last one died 3 generations ago. She flinched upon seeing the balls behind the two kitsune lengthened into daggers, eyes void of life, but it was Kurabi who stopped them. Chill, you two, let them explain before we make it rain. The blades return to sphere form, and again, they offer stiff nods, allowing the goddess to explain herself, Amaterasu explaining swiftly, her name was Shizuka, a lost soul who had seen her kind hunted to extinction. She grew bitter and angry at the world for damning her race, who all seemed to fall in the defense of others. Those too weak to defend themselves. The Great Ten all looked to the kitsune of their outfit, who let out tight sighs, Naruto speaking lowly, seems like a family tradition of ours. No matter the age. Hinoka nodded sympathetically, watery eyes that she refused to let cry at the thought of her descendant being in so much pain and suffering of being alone. Naruto just looked resigned at this point. Amaterasu continued her tale, like her kin, she never harmed anyone out of malice or hurt, silently protecting those around her and those who asked her for help. She was not the nicest person to be around, drunk a lot, gambled more than most, but she was an honest woman. Isaka was eyeing up the other two kitsune in the room, they were still tense and remained on guard, even if they looked somewhat distracted and upset that their family members were gone. As if this wasn't new to them. The sun goddess continued, like the rest of her kin, when the world was at risk, innocence in danger, she was the first to fight back. When Yomi was at risk of collapsing and unloading the dead into the world of the living, she sacrificed herself to buy us time to rectify the problem. By the time we got to her. Naruto finished her thought, the Shinigami took her to the Pure Lands, right? Amaterasu nodded once, before finally turning to the 10-tailed man, her golden flickering eyes solemnly gazing upon him, I am sorry we could not. Utakata cut in, so you cloned her, right? Made small adjustments to cut away the undesirable traits this Shizuka held, right? Sasunu spoke up, we did. The result was promising and as you can see, Girl Yasaka is the latest success in uniting and protecting this nation of your descendants. The last of the chakra users. Han snorted, they are weak. Cheap copies of. That's enough, Kurabi warned, with a heavy glance to the addressed, and Han looked back to his fellow strongman and fell silent. Naruto on the other hand, remained impassive, is that why you have exposed yourself to us? In hopes of what? Earning our forgiveness? Or support? Amaterasu nodded once, not breaking eye contact, in part. Yes. Brave, Fu murmured, earning a nod from both Gaara and Yujito, the latter speaking up, what of the crimes committed against our own in our absence? Up to you, Sasunu offered a shrug, your honor is your own. Tsukiyomi however added, we do wish for some restraint to be had. That, however, is only a request. We cannot directly influence your decisions beyond that. Amaterasu spoke next, still having maintained steady eye contact with Naruto, Yasaka is my direct descendant, true, however she and her foremothers are based off of yours. Do not blame them for. We do not blame them for anything, Hinoka cut in, arms crossed as her truth seeker orbs vanished along with the others. She continued, just trying to figure out where we fit into things now that our suspicions had been confirmed. For a solid 10 seconds nothing happened before abruptly Hinoka just vanished. The other 9-tailed beasts in human form caught it, but none stopped her as Naruto looked after her with nothing but understanding in his eyes. He will finish here and then they can comfort one another. The Shinto gods had to blink twice before they realized Hinoka had left. Looking around briefly, Amaterasu saw the clear signs of weariness upon the faces of the others, but it was soon replaced with acceptance. It is clear that they all understand the pain of loss and were not strangers to dealing with it. Amaterasu and the rest were brought from her spiraling thoughts by Naruto who spoke up, his voice was low, but none missed it. It makes sense now, I suppose. The kid's strength was familiar, yet it also wasn't. Did? Amaterasu questioned, Naruto nodded before looking to Yasaka, who grew red-faced at being addressed as if a child, dared not talk back to him as that would be rude, and from his perspective, she was. Naruto though continued to explain, that hair coloration reminds me of my own before I ascended. Kurabi nodded once, arms still crossed, oh 9-0, coming through the gold now yo. Utakata nodded too, yes. I recall that too. So, the parts removed from the clone child. Naruto sighed, shaking his head, speaking softly. Yeah, it explains the chakra too. It all adds up if you count the fact that no doubt their template too was like only a half at most. Amaterasu cut in here, you mean to tell me. Yet before she could finish, Naruto used his shape-shifting ability to return to his Jinchuriki appearance, looking 17 and just fresh from waving off his dad back to Pure Lands, golden blonde hair and lighter whiskers marks on his cheeks. But the smile, Naruto waved at the shocked four, while his own chuckled at seeing that form after so long. Kurabi spoke next, yo 9-0, looking right at home now yo. The gods and Yasaka were surprised, but they could see what he was hinting at. The golden eyes of Yasaka were likely due to her foremothers being birthed by Amaterasu, but aside from that. Naruto shifted back to his regular appearance, shaking off the weird feeling he got from returning to his pre-Biju look. It is never good to dally on the past for beings as long-lived as they. It will consume you. Naruto continued, still soft-spoken, what you deemed as undesirable was likely remnants of our own split heritage, and Hinoka's influence too. You likely had no idea. I won't blame you, however, I want to know who exactly hunted down my descendants. Tsukiyomi dared ask, eyes narrowed on the Gyuubi, you wish for revenge. Naruto looked pained at that insinuation. Him, revenge, how many people had he seen go down that path and end up going crazy? Sure, he has a heavy dislike for lizards right now and is working on it, but revenge will only beget more revenge. The cycle of hatred is born. Thankfully, seeing her leader and occasional lover in deep thoughts, Yujito answered the moon good, revenge. No. Naruto is not that kind of person. More like he wants to know how his own died. Their names. Their hobbies. Most hunters take notes to understand their prey's habits and abilities. That is what he's after. Yakimaru spoke next, though protection of our own is paramount, we will at least let them know we have not and will not forgive them for their heinous acts of genocide. The others all nodded in agreement with the four-tailed turtle, and if the pacifist is saying that, then no doubt the others are itching for a fight. The Shinto gods hope these beings don't take things too far. Not that they could say that aloud. Bremery Estate. Ajuka finished his scan on Issei and sighed hard, looking at his friends beside him, speaking softly, his pieces are the worst of them all. Likely due to the fact that his gear was taken out. The fact he is alive and well is just as miraculous as it is concerning. Serafol nodded to that, explaining from a medical point of view, it seems that this, Naru, you called him, the 10-tailed kitsune, was able to essentially unhook the sacred gear from the boy's soul and magic circuits without damaging. She paused upon looking over a particular spot, a connection that should have connected to his gear, shaking her head, Serafol continued, no. More like he regenerated the damaged parts, rewired it around the gear, and connected it back again. The level of precision required for that. As she trailed off for a second time in astonishment and fear she suspected had happened, the proof laid before her, Surziches nodded in understanding, that level of fine control, paired with his overwhelming might and power shouldn't be possible. His fellow Satans nod to his words, Ajuka saying, then again, seeing how old they are, they have had more than enough time to practice their abilities. Needless to say, if we got to war, we would not survive. Surziches nodded tightly, expression tightly frowning, I know. Their killing intent alone disabled both me and Grafia. Ajuka sighed at the thought of the strength required to pull that off. We can't win a war against them. Appeasement is our only possibility. Serafol nodded at that, arms crossed as she leans against the bed holding the young devil, responding calmly despite everything, any ideas on how to do so? Besides obviously not obstructing their recovery of their fellow Yaokai. Surziches thought on that for a moment, going over everything he knew on the 10 Yaokai gods of sorts and what they are and may demand of them. For a while he remained unmoving, yet his colleagues and friends waited patiently for his answer. Eventually, Surziches finally spoke after a good 2 minutes, find any and all Yaokai, regardless of reincarnated or not, criminals in holding cells, or slaves on farms. Soldiers in our forces, or married to nobles, it does not matter. Gather them and treat them for any aliments conditions, and give them the choice of returning to the Yaokai nation. Both his fellow Satans nodded, Serafol asked, what of the council? Baal is likely to cause an issue. Maybe raise an army. Ajuka sighed at that, rubbing his chin before agreeing to the woman, that is true. We will have to move fast. Surziches frowned but nodded, looking at the still out cold Issei, his resolve hardening, eyes a dangerous scarlet. That we do. Our race's survival rests on it. Serafol, I need you to handle the Yaokai front. Contact Lady Yasaka and try figure out where we stand with them. She nodded at that, understanding her role and expertise was required with nothing fancy added on. Surziches continued. Take any appropriate action you have to either delay or warn me about their arrival. Do not antagonize them in any way, shape or form. Remember, they are highly protective of their own. Threaten them, they will tear you apart with little warning. Serafol nodded once firmly, pushing off the bed and heading to the door, saying. I will be fine. Just stop the idiots from destroying us. Surziches wanted to laugh, but his mind was still running a mile a minute as he looked at Ajuka, my friend. As much as I want to figure out this mystery with the reincarnation system, but. Ajuka cut the man, hand waving that off, no sweat my friend. Where do you need me? Grigori headquarters. Azazel was staring at the report he was holding from his intelligence department regarding the devil's recent movements. His face was unreasonable upon discovering the cause of all the commotion was that 10-tailed kitsune that awoke during the Battle of Kyoto. Apparently, it is so old that the only race that even has any record of it were the dragons, and it was in their ancient texts. Not only that, but it has also apparently gone up against the likes of Great Red and Office, simultaneously yet still forced them back. This changes everything. The next report states that it leads 9 others. All were of similar unrestrained strength, with even the weakest among them able to trump the likes of Lady Asaka with little effort. They range from the 10-tailed kitsune, another 9-tailed fox, an 8-tailed ashioni, a 7-tailed bug, 6-tailed slug, 2 5-tails. One was an ape and the other a horse. A 4-tailed turtle, the progenitor of the Nekamada, a 3-tailed Nekamada which is most interesting. The final member is a tanuki, twin-tailed and the most defensive of them all. The game has most definitely changed. Looking to his assistant, generals and subordinates, Aizel sighs as he rises to his feet. According to these reports, the devils are afraid of what these new super Yaokai are planning. As neither we are not, they have any information about them, they are trying to gather up any Yaokai on their territory for interrogation. I want all our lookouts to move to assist in their escape. Aizel raised a brow, asking, would that not cause us issues with the devils? It will no doubt, Aizel confirmed firmly. He sighs before addressing his own ideas. I have a feeling that they have much bigger issues heading their way than us intercepting and rescuing fleeing refugees. These super Yaokai are likely being brought up to speed, so, if they so desire, they will likely come down here to rescue their kin. Aizel nodded, understanding that, though it was Shemyahaza who replied. I see. You want to offer them their own in a way that shows we mean no harm. Exactly, Aizel nodded firmly, smirking confidently. These guys are likely family focused, so if we show them we are trying to help them, they will not harm us. We cannot fight them, so we will join them. 2 days later. On clan territory. The woman strolls through the refugee camp outside the clan's main compound, filled with Yaokai from all walks of life seeking shelter beneath her protection. Her long hair, that reached her very firm ass, was originally midnight black, had shifted over the countless centuries she has lived, still had black roots down to her ears, but trailed off into fiery red. Her one solid purple eyes gained a warm orange hue to them, which only enhanced her features if you asked her. Then again, it might be the 5 tails swaying calmly behind her. Then again, her descendants are flanking her paired with her rough and rash philosophy, and confident grin might also help. It did not matter. The little bunny child standing ahead of her, peering up with those big beady eyes that have now filled with hope, caused the woman to bend down and smile, speaking softly, so, kiddo, what's your name? The child, black hair and fur with random patches of white, tilted his head to the right before answer, Yulio, lady. Said lady nodded firmly, good name, Yulio. Do you know mine? The now named Yulio shook his head, but spoke up, but, mama said that you're like super strong and will protect us from the bad man. The 5-tailed lady chuckled deeply, cocky grin in place as she nodded, her chimp guards grinning too. At this rate, the boy will be among their ranks in no time. Eventually the lady spoke up, hand over her chest, yes, I am super strong. My name is Kuritsuchi of the Magma. My children here and helping me keep everyone safe and warm. If you need anything, asks us, okay? The boy nodded repeatedly with a big tooth smile that reminded Kuritsuchi of another. She finds herself matching the kid's enthusiasm as she raises to her feet. Go on. Go play with the others. She featured to a gathering of children, both hers and the refugees, playing not too far away. Yulio nodded again and waved as he ran off. Kuritsuchi waved back with a soft smile until he was gone. Once out of sight, her face hardened, looking to her escort, that is why we are going to fight. Am I understood? They all nodded, understanding the unsaid decree perfectly. Yes ma'am. Kuritsuchi nodded firmly, frowned tight as she looks over her 6 guards. Like her, they all basically wore the hidden stone Jonin attire. So what? She lacked imagination. She isn't that nutcase Fu or the smooth-talking Karabi or the ever-unpredictable knucklehead. Even after all these countless centuries, she can't figure out that man. The only difference between them was the fact that they all had golden tassels on their rank slabs, denoting them all as elite captains. Something they came up with when she was asleep. Whatever. This is when one of fastest scouts arrived, landing before his all-mother, whose eyes became cool pools of boiling magma. Kuritsuchi spoke lowly, report. All-mother, a devil force is gathering just beyond the jungle line and your great Iniki gardens. They all felt the temperature raised at that, but Kuritsuchi knows losing her temper will only harm the innocent currently in the camp. Taking several deep breaths, she nodded to the small chimp. Looking to the first of her elite captains, she announced, prepare the 4 through 8 squads. We are going to intercept them before the trees. See if we can buy any more time. 2 of her captains bowed before body flickering away. One of the others stepped up, all-mother, are we really going to abandon our position here for the surface world? Kuritsuchi maintained a stiff face, looking to the oldest of the group, Wu Fen, yes, Fen, we are. As I have explained previously, my friends have awakened and are no doubt up there and awaiting us. Then, together with our friends, we shall tear down the system that has suppressed and oppressed us in this age." She grinned darkly, the others followed her lead and began to howl and thudding their chest. Yes. Kuritsuchi knew this was going to be so much fun. Perhaps as much fun as that war with the dragons. Speaking of. She glances in the direction she knew the dragons were nesting. Kuritsuchi interrupting her children's posturing, speaking up, any word from the scout sent to the lizard border. I wonder if they'll make their move. Kyoto Shrine. Hisaka had been pacing in her office all day. None have seen her forebearers since the meeting with the Shinto pantheon a few days ago. It was revealed that their own direct descendants had been hunted down to the last, who sacrificed herself to save the world of the living. Apparently, it was a family tradition to do so. That sent a cold shudder down Yusaka's tails at the thought of that. This was broken by the arrival of Yujito, who parted the door, flanked by Megumi and Kaneko, speaking swiftly, "What's wrong with you, kid?" Hisaka sighed, a slight tint to her cheeks at being referred to as a child by the legendary mythical 10 members. Ever since Naruto referred to her as such, the others seemed to have followed the trend. Though, the leader of the Yaokai spoke regardless of her feelings on her assigned name, it's Lord Naruto and Lady Hinoka. Yujito raised a brow, arms on hips, speaking swiftly, "Did you check his den?" Hisaka blinked owlishly at that, confused. They have rooms here in the shrine. Why would they have a den? Then her memories from their initial meeting. Naruto had fully intended to bathe in the open, acting as if it was natural, as if they were. It clicked. Hisaka sighed, face meeting palm, muttering out, "Why didn't I think of that? He is so feral. Doesn't he know he has a room here?" Yujito chuckled lowly, shaking her head, "Foolish little kid." Hisaka glared at the feline who smirked cattily, grinning like she caught the canary. Yujito continued, "All of us are like that. We've lived few many ages, most the time we spent away from society, as it was easier not to get too attached to those who were not as long-lived." She shrugged after the fact, before gesturing to the other two, Yujito continuing. "Anyway, these two have made a few requests that I wish to discuss." "Requests?" Yusaka with a raised brow, the new Nekamada matriarch nodded, arms folded, "We apparently have more than a few lost kittens in the underworld, and I wanted to know when we can lead a group there to find them." Hisaka sighed at that, but recalls the message from the devils she received yesterday, stating that their diplomatic envoy will be arriving promptly. Seraphol to be precise. Looking back up, having rubbed her eyes, Yusaka says, "Well, on that front, I can tell you that Satan Leviathan, the devil in charge of their diplomatic affairs, will be arriving momentarily." Both the younger Nekamada and the Nakasho tensed, Yujito narrowed her eyes, tails swing rather aggressively, "Explain." "Now." "Easy," Yusaka replied back, but flinched at Yujito flickering chakra as she was in no mood for games at that announcement. Sighing again, Yusaka began to explain, "It seems that Surziches wants to negotiate with us for a peace treaty." Meguri snorted, arms crossing, no doubt worried about our capabilities, now that our progenitors and their friends have awoken. The other two leader-class Yaokai nodded, but it was evident that Kaneko was hesitant about the prospect of war, none blamed her though. Until recently, she was among their number, but now her race's first have taken her directly under her wing, like a mother raising her kittens. Yujito nodded to her kitten's words, "No doubt. Is that why you've been looking for my Naru?" "It is," Yusaka confirmed promptly. She takes a moment before continuing, "Though, I am unsure how to address him. Seeing as my mother's grandmother was a clone of his decadent." Yujito smiled softly, a slow relaxing breath as she recalled Naruto's acceptance of others, and speaking so softly, so gently, "He called you kid, no. Just as always, Naru does not blame nor judge you for what has happened. Neither does Hinoka. If anything, he might take you under his wing, your kid too." Hisaka really hopes that to be the case. She did not want to impose on him, but as the current leader of Yaokai and Kitsun, his presence is incredibly important for both her and the race as a whole. Even if they were not directly related like she originally believed. Yujito's voice broke through the woman's thoughts, "You see." Hisaka looked to the original Nekamada, whose smile was warm and motherly. Yujito continued, "Naruto won't care about that stuff you are worrying about. You are one of his, regardless of what your relations are. To him, you are one of his. No questions. No debate. That is it." Hisaka nodded, smiling with her whole frame relaxing notably as he tails shift calmly behind her, as she was assured by that knowledge. That came to a screeching halt when Yujito gained a Cheshire cat grin, "I guess that also makes me your stepmother." Hisaka facepalmed, Meguri nodded with a low chuckle, and even Kaneko looked amused at that. Yusaka mumbling, "You are going to be a handful, aren't you?" "Without a doubt," Yujito confirmed with a chuckle. Meguri on the other hand was enjoying this, thus said, "It would make me your stepsister, no, Lady Yusaka." Isaka glared at the Nekamada clan head, who was still highly amused without end, shrugging off the notion from her claimed sister. Yusaka poses, then, is the Nekamada and Nakasho joining under a single banner or making separate houses? Both Meguri and Kaneko look to one another and shrug, before looking to their original who to shrug, Yujito answering, it is still early days for the Nakasho. Depending on them both, the next few generations will have to decide that depending on their numbers. Kaneko looked down at her feet, Yusaka noting the blink hue to the young kitten's face and chuckled at it, responding softly, I see. Yujito continued after, though, I suppose we should get my dear Naru. Do you know where his den is? Isaka shook her head, responding, I did not know I had to even look. Would you know where? Yujito shrugged, I've spent enough time in his dens over the years to guess roughly where they are. I will not be able to pin it down directly. He is a fox after all. As cunning as they come. Isaka grinned at that, nodding in approval, then, I suppose that I should look for myself. Better chance of finding it. Yujito grinned right back at the young kitsune, hands now resting on her hips as she leans forward, how about a challenge then? Nico against Kitsun. Isaka folded her arms over her larger bust, a challenging glint in her glimmering golden eyes that narrow on this cat before her. Oh? You think you can outfox a fox at our own game? I do, Yujito informed confidently, her two kittens joining in their foremothers posturing. In fact, these two kittens will find it before you do. Both Meguri and Kaneko looked to her bewildered at that claim, Yujito explained, after all, Megi-chan wants to meet her race's father, and Kono-chan also wants to get to know her grandpa even more, since he carried her back. Both younger cats flushed slightly at that. It was true after all. Kaneko had never been held like that, and it was super comforting. Meguri was curious as ever other Nekamada of their progenitor's personality, as he had snared their original's attention so completely that she hasn't stopped to even consider anyone else, which is a rarity for their race. Isaka just nodded, she herself was in the same boat to learn from the original Kitsune. The knowledge and wisdom of countless ages and civilization they both no doubt possess, the abilities they more than likely have, and she may be able to learn and pass on to Kanu. She cannot fail this. Looking dead into the mythical cat's eyes, Yusaka replied, you have a game. Isaka steps into the shrine garden, the Nekamada having already left, and she was about to expand her senses, but spotted her daughter, Kanu, in her fox form, attempting to slip into the forest unseen. Curiosity may often be associated with cats, but it is sometimes said the foxes are canines that run cat software, thus Yusaka followed after her daughter, shifting to her own smaller fox form, a large dog or small wolf size, and stalked silently through the bushes and forests. Following her kit, Yusaka was surprised to see Kanu expertly avoiding things that would typically be used to track a prey with practiced ease. Even for an experienced kitsune like her, Yusaka knew that if she wasn't focusing, nor looking for her, she might not have noticed Kanu's presence here. Isaka's interest was firmly piqued now. For a silent 10 minutes Yusaka stalked after her kit who was darting through the forest and making double backs, retracing steps, and even long silent leaps to break off any tail. Yusaka was impressed. She hadn't taught her those things, so who did? Eventually though, Kanu stopped at a random tree. Just stopped. Like a statue. Yusaka hid herself fully from all sensory input as much as possible, just to be safe, and surely enough she felt the slightest flicker of nature energy from her daughter. Again. She had not thought of that either. The rustling in the bushes off to the side drew Yusaka's eyes, and 3 other kits from the clan moved just as silently and with practiced ease as to make minimal noise or tracks. The 4 all nodded to one another before walking towards the mound of earth beside the tree and vanishing into the dirt. Yusaka's eyes were wide in shock. The mound did not flicker nor can she sense anything over it, but that was clearly an illusion. An illusion that revealed nothing but earth and nature so perfectly, one would never know it was there. Slipping up, Yusaka made a quick sweep of the area herself to check that none had followed before she too moved through the illusion. Naruto's den. Yusaka followed the loose dirt path down into what could only describe as a wide open meadow. A sun was high in the blue sky, the wind was gentle, and the space filled with tall grass and wildflowers with numerous kits play and cheer with one another. As they did, Yusaka's eyes finally landed on the relaxing figures of her fellow Kyuubi, her scarlet fur flowing in the gentle breeze, and beside her was none other the white-silver fur of the man she had been looking for. Relaxing on the soft grass, Naruto watched the kits of a time-forgotten play with the current generation. This physical yet interactive illusionary space was a clever use of both his and Hinoka's powers and imagination. The illusionary kits were theirs from a bygone era that couldn't directly react, but they could yip, bark, and generally play along with the current generation of kits that had stumbled into den yesterday. Using them as a medium, Naruto and Hinoka have been teaching this new generation the skills they had passed on to their own children that had turned them into games as their father had taught them to do. Hide and seek was turned into hunter and stalker. Tag was turned into evade and escape. Leapfrog was turned into a fine-tuning of appropriate power control training for precise bouncing of any distance. The play fighting showed how to analyze your opponent in real time and strike at any opening. At last one, Naruto was personally tweaking to start off ease, and each time the current generation won, the illusions got better. On a few months, the new generation will be able to catch Anbu-level Shinobi off guard. The best part of it all, the kids had no clue it was going on, thus ingrained in their subconscious. Haha. Those Yamanaka knew their stuff, even after all this time. His concentration was broken by Yasaka's arrival, though Hinoka picked up his slack as Naruto turned to look at the stunned Yasaka, looking around at the space which was obviously a lot larger than the outside. Naruto smirked, chirping lightly, causing Hinoka to smirk knowingly. Her powers weren't the most damaging or wide-reaching, but when used correctly, she has turned tides of battles against the largest of foes. Just ask Great Red. His chirp caught the other nine-tailed vixen's attention too, who snapped to him and meeting his calm blue eyes with her golden. It took a moment for Yasaka to recall why she had come looking for him before approaching calmly, still trying to get over the fact that this grass beneath her paws feels real, along with the warm sun and gentle breeze. Just before she was about to speak, Naruto's gaze shifted back to the entrance and his brow raised. Glancing back, Yasaka saw Yujito appear, followed shortly by both Megari and Kaneko, all in cat forms of different sizes. When Yasaka's eyes met the mixed-colored Yujito's, she grinned foxily, and it is clear that the cat did not like that fact she had lost. It was fleeting though, as the Nekamada group saw the surroundings. Yasaka noticed the recognition flash across Yujito's features before she whispered something to her company. The three cats moved calmly towards the two relaxing adults, tail up high for Kaneko as the smallest, the size of a kitten almost adult cat, of the trio as to not get lost in the tall grass. Megari was a large cat, about the size of an average dog, whereas Yujito was a large panther size with her three tails saying calmly at her back. When they all got close, Naruto asked, "So, what can we do for you all?" Yasaka replied first, "I wanted to ask for your help with several diplomatic issues and if it was okay to possibly learn under you." "Kit, I don't think I have much to teach you," Naruto replied softly. Yasaka shook her head looking out at the kids having fun and playing around, speaking up. "I can tell you have been teaching Kanu things she never really paid attention to before when taught. When I stalked her here, if I hadn't caught her sneaking into the forest, I doubt I would have noticed her at all." Yujito got a flash of recognition, that's how she got here so fast. She followed her kit that already stumbled upon the den. This vixen was sly, no doubt. Yasaka looked back at the two older kitsune, who too were watching the kids play until they sensed her gaze and in unison looked at her. She continued, still softly spoke, "I know I am not your. We do not blame the for anything, kid." Hinoka repeated her statement from the meeting with the Shinto pantheon a few days ago. Yasaka felt her heckles rise in embarrassment at being referred to as a child. She knows she should not but could help it. No one has called her such since her mother, and it was really hard to adjust to hearing it again. Naruto continued, oblivious to Yasaka's thoughts, saying, "Neither of us do. As for teaching you, I don't see why not. I don't really know what or how I would go about it, as no doubt your own mother had taught you her ways, but it's worth a shot, I guess." Suddenly Kaneko bounced up onto Naruto's side, drawing his eyes as she asks, "Can I learn too, Grandpa?" Naruto raised a brow at that, so she has chose Grandpa as his title. Though his eye did fall to Yujito, who pretended not to notice. Looking back at the kitten, Naruto responded, "Why not join the others playing? I am sure you'll have fun." Kaneko looked at the play fighting scene ahead of the two large foxes, and it only took her a few seconds to realize something and bounce off to join in. It wasn't play fighting but combat practice in their animal forms. She has never done that before. Megari wanted to go too, but she had an image to maintain, yet that was shattered when Yujito nudged the woman with a tail. Looking back her matriarch, she saw the nod of assent and she felt like a kitten again as she bolted into the fray, shifting to a small form to enjoy herself a bit more. For the next hour, they all watched over the children play fighting, games and train. Not that the youngest knew it as such. Kyoto Shrine. Sitting as calmly as perceivably possible one could hope to be in the main office was one Satan of diplomatic affairs, Serapho Leviathan, having come to try and negotiate with the Yaokai leadership before things escalated to full-blown war. Why was she trying to appear calm? Well, standing on either side were two of the awoken Super Dai Yaokai characters she had been briefed on. One was the two-tailed Tanuki. He had introduced himself as Gara of the Desert, leader of the Tanuki family. The other was the four-tailed turtle, Yakimaru of the Crystal, and head of the joint turtle and tortoise tribe. They had met her at the border and escorted her through the town and into the shrine, and Serapho had never been this terrified. As a Citri, her sensory abilities are second to only perhaps the Leviathan clan of the old faction, and can very clearly sense that these two were by far stronger than she was, and they weren't even trying to be intimidating. Quite the opposite if anything. From Surzich's report, the turtle is a pacifist by nature, but if pushed is a very dangerous creature that has outlasted the best of the dragons in endurance. The tanuki is basically impervious to injury if there is wind or sand nearby. So, like always. During their trip here, she had sensed what she assumed was the others of their group scattered around the district and even spotted one flying at high speed doing what she thought were impossible maneuvers leading other flying Yaokai in an exercise in aerial mobility and combat. Now though, Serapho was awaiting the return of Yusaka in her office. She hadn't sensed her anywhere yet, but one of the attendants had mentioned to Gaara that she had gone to speak with Naruto. She assumed that was the full name of the 10-tailed kitsune, as they had only heard the term Naru before, so it made sense. Just then, the door parts and in stepped a dragon attendant, bringing tea, which was a surprise as Serapho was told these Dai Yaokai hated anything dragon-related. As the Pittite woman provided the green jasmine tea, Serapho felt compelled to ask, "Are you a dragon? How are you still alive?" Gaara and Yakimaru looked to one another, amused, but otherwise remained silent, allowing the dragoness to respond, "Yes, Lady Leviathan. I am a dragon. My name is Ariana and have sworn my fealty to Lord Naruto in exchange for my life to be spared." That made sense if the kitsune was rumored to despise dragons enough to want them all dead. Yet, Serapho felt that this was a slither of hope, a guiding beam of light, which meant things were not yet unassailable. With a nod, the Satan smiled, "I see. Well, thank you for clearing up my confusion." Ariana bowed, speaking softly. "You assume that I would have been slain on sight, yes?" Serapho nodded, assuming that, and Ariana knew she almost was, twice, so responded with, "When my flock attacked, I was only barely able to escape my lord's opening salvo, as I was at the back of the pack. My siblings were not so lucky. Lord Crom had been defeated and withdrew with only that gear user remaining. I was given a choice, surrender or die. It was not a choice I dallied with." Serapho nodded, the reports did say the kitsune had defeated the Crescent Circle Dragon, White Dragon Emperor, and a flock of dragons in under 2 minutes. If she was in that position, she would have bowed too. Ariana though added, "Though, I am grateful that he is a man of his word, I am also aware that if I overstep his boundaries, I will be incinerated by his white flames. Do keep that in mind." Serapho nodded again, swallowing hard at the notion of angering one of the strongest beings in their history. Abruptly, both Gaara and Yakimaru looked to the side. Ariana followed shortly after, speaking up, "It seems they are almost here. I shall take my leave." Serapho had almost choked on her tea when those signatures suddenly appeared, cold sweat running down her temples and neck. By the Satans, Surzich's was not joking in the slightest. They really had no chance against these monsters. A few minutes go by before the door parts again, and Ariana returns to the room and places down several cups of tea in a kettle before refilling Serapho's cup, and just as she reaches the door, it opens and Yusaka was standing there. At her back were Naruto, her master, and Yujito, both stern-looking. Ariana bowed her head and steps aside, allowing their entry first, speaking formally. "Lady Yusaka, Lady Yujito, Master Naruto. I have prepared and served tea for your consumption." The three nodded as they passed, Naruto responding, "Good, report to your station and stand by for new instructions." Ariana bowed again, replying promptly. "By your word, Master." As she left, Naruto and Yujito nodded to their fellows still leaning on opposite walls to one another, who nodded back with their tea mugs in hand. Serapho had never been this tense. Up close, the power coming from the 10-tailed kitsune was suffocating, almost completely blocking out her senses, and truly Yusaka paled in comparison. To think just one additional tail could be so drastic in power level. Then again, even the 3-tailed woman held power outstripping Yusaka by a comfortable margin. They really need this to work, Serapho realized at this very moment. Clearing her throat, Yusaka begins this meeting, "So, Satan Leviathan. You called for this meeting. What can we, the Yaokai faction, do for you?" Serapho utilized her entire life experience to calm her nerves and senses, steadying her breathing as she looked at Yusaka, who was sitting between the two Super Dai Yaokai, speaking firmly. "It is rather obvious that, in light of recent events, that we devils as a society have a lot to make up for." Yujito, Naruto, and Gaara all snorted at that statement. Yakimaru sighed hard into his drink. Serapho fought with her many centuries of experience to mask the flinch from their action. Yusaka made no move that she noticed anything. The lone devil continued, "And so, we are now, more than ever, wishing to cement a full alliance with you, along with our own allies within the biblical faction." Yusaka nodded at that, expecting it after what has happened over the last few days, since the battle between the Yaokai and the dragons. That being said, she could also feel the sneer forming from the other Yaokai present. Even she herself could feel her own sneer forming, but professionally pushed it aside and offered a smile. "Is this something you have discussed with your allies?" Seraphil wanted to lie, but her gut feeling told her that would be unwise and send the absolute wrong message. So, with a barely resigned, thought to be unnoticed, sigh, she responded, not as of yet. Rather, I would like to establish the groundwork for facilitating this outcome, as I am certain the others will also seek this. Ara smirked out of sight of the devil, Yakimaru nodded at her choice not to lie to them so blatantly. Naruto used his teeth to hide his smirk as did Yujito. They both knew the truth, they all did. The devils were scared. Scared that they were coming to wipe them out. This peace treaty was to prevent that. How foolish. Isaka though, had to play the diplomatic game for now and so raised an eyebrow. Oh. Should you not confer this with them before asking for this? Jumping the gun might be construed as a sign of ill faith, no. Seraphil tried to smile reassuringly, it was fake and they all knew it, but she spoke firmly. I am sure that our allies will understand our prudence. I see no issue. Isaka hummed at that, though Naruto felt like messing with this devil just a tiny bit, thus he stared down into his tea, eyeing it in faux disappointment, mumbling, kinda cold. Everyone heard him as planned though, drawing attention as he puffed a minuscule amount of his white flames into his half-full cup of tea. It vaporized the cup in its entirety. Seraphil paled whilst remaining blank face at the display. Ara had to look away, biting his tongue not to break his stoic mask in public. Yakimaru smiled at the joke played. Yusaka looked at him bewildered. Yujito smirked at his antics now looking at her own cup much the way he had, saying just as low as he did, not really my thing either. Again, dark azure flames were breathed out and not even ash remained of the clay cup. Naruto smirked at that, well Yusaka knew what they were doing now and sighed hard at their antics. In order to try settle her beating heart and fraying nerves, Seraphil tried to distract herself with a throat clearing and asking, Lady Yusaka. Isaka's gaze returned the Satan-level devil and Seraphil asked. Can you perhaps introduce me to your guests? I have not yet had the supreme privilege of them yet. Naruto and Yujito snorted at that, both mirroring one another as they leaned on their right fists, legs still crossed. Yusaka though nodded and gestured to her right, ah, forgive me. This is Yujito the Nekamada. Yujito nodded at her, offering nothing on her face, though her tail swayed slightly behind her when Seraphil nodded back. Isaka then gestured to her left, and this is my own progenitor from a forgotten past, Naruto the 10-tailed kitsune. Naruto nodded, not going to say anything to counteract the kit's clear misinformation campaign by stating that. Then again, it isn't completely inaccurate either. It doesn't matter either way really. Seraphil went chalk-white at that. Yusaka is this kitsune's descendant. That means that the kitsune all have a chance to reach his level of strength. There must be a very specific way to evolve to the 10th tail, which is why none other has ever been able to attain it. With his return, however, that will likely no longer be a limiting factor. He will likely be training his kin to reach their potential beneath his wings, most likely the Yaokai all will, so yes, this treaty is a must. Now more than ever. Seraphil promptly bows her head, it is a pleasure to meet you both. My name is Seraphil Leviathan. One of the 4 Satans in charge of diplomatic affairs for the new devil faction. Yujito, the most familiar with the devils from the stories she had been told of them, spoke up, that reminds me. From what I have been informed, in regard to your faction, you do not have total control of your people. So, when you say, new devil faction you are purposefully ignoring the hardliners, yes. Seraphil knew this was going to be difficult, but damn, this was taking her beyond her normal level of focus, speaking up, we are not ignoring them. However, we are currently working to bring them into the fold. They have been resisting our overtures and have sided with enemies known as Cow's Brigade. Naruto perks up at that name, speaking airily, oh, those upstarts who thought I was joking around. The ones who sided with the lizards. Yakimaru spoke next, reminding the devil she had 2 others outside her field of view, ah, so that's the name of the troublemakers in this age. Guess we should work on wiping them out like that last group. Ara nodded, replying. Indeed. Should be straightforward this time though. Red and black won't interfere like last time. Yujito nodded to that, being rather thoughtful, stating. True. We'll talk about it after we rescue the lost ones. They'll likely have information about their locations. Wipe them out in one go. Saves us from a protracted battle, Naruto nodded before looking forward at Yusaka. Kit, we'll leave back here to you though. Yusaka fought down the blush with her entire might as it was clear to her that he was playing along with her earlier misinformation and only nodded once, replying. It will not be a problem. Seraphil swallowed thickly. The casual way they spoke about dismantling an international terrorist group told of their experience and the fact that it was their pacifist that suggested that this was not the first time they have done so, referring to their time as this age was terrifying in of itself. She was dragged from her thoughts by Yusaka, who asked her. So, what are your plans with your old faction, then, Lady Leviathan? It is a point of contention for us as they are not exactly that keen on our continued existence. Seraful did not miss the hardening of Naruto or Yujito's eyes at that statement, no doubt both ready to go there and wipe them out for even thinking of harming their descendants. She spoke up. We are planning another overture next month. This is twofold as a way to unite our people once more and weaken the Cows Brigade in the same breath. Yakamura nodded to that, approving of peaceful integration between a fractured society. That is good. Talking can solve many issues where wars would leave scars. Only if they are receptive to the idea, Gaara countered, earning another sigh from the turtle who nodded in agreement. Isaka clears her throat, regaining the room's attention. Is that why you are trying to achieve this treaty now? Well, you have the council support. Seraful again wanted to just lie and say yes, but her gut feeling told her not to. Even if they did sign one, it is not like all devil kind will respect it. This is largely to escape the wrath of the elder Yaokai. Not themselves. Fortunately or unfortunately depending on who you ask, Naruto spoke up, let's just cut the crap, nah. All eyes land on the man who had narrowed eyes on the Satan, who gulped nervously under his piercing gaze. Naruto continued, you were sent by that other guy to stop us from going and ending your entire regime, race, and families in our revenge for the slights you have incurred upon our own, right? Isaka spoke up swiftly, snapping to her fellow kitsune. Elder. Naruto simply glanced at her and she froze, turning forward and lowered head, as he looked back at the lone devil present, Seraful responded firmly. That is certainly one way to put it. Naruto nodded slightly, they all expected this after all, so he continued, so, what is it that you think is going to happen? We gave you all an advance warning already. We are going to recover the lost Yaokai from your lands. As long as you do not hinder us, them, or attack either of us or them, we will not cause any harm. None missed a flinch from the devil who hit it well, for a civilian. All four super Yaokai now narrowed their eyes on the woman, who suddenly felt like she was surrounded by predators. Yujito hissed. What are you not telling us, devil? Seraful did not say anything. Naruto glanced to his fellows who all had equally solid gazes to himself, and they all nodded as one, realizing this week of relaxation has been cut short. Letting out a tight breath, Naruto stood, leading Yujito to her feet too, Naruto informing, in that case, we are advancing our plans. The others nodded, pushing off the walls and standing tall, Naruto looking to Isaka, kid, take care of things here. Isaka could only nod back as the four super Yaokai looked to the still Seraful, Naruto speaking for them, time to go, devil. Seraful stood silently before replying, I just want to say that we are gathering your kin to bring them back to you. That was the order of the four of us Satans. Yujito responded icily, yeah, sure, but how many of your council members are following it? Gaara added, having been a cage with many councils who tried to outwit him, a freaking Biju, councillors are never fully loyal to their leaders. They will always look out for themselves. Seraful swallowed hard as she was guided outside, all four super Yaokai acting as her guards. She had come to try and delay them, only to find out that they were relaxing for a week that she had inadvertently advanced to right now. She had failed her duty it would seem, and now the underworld was about to receive a very violent wake-up call. The Noki Plains. Day 2 of the standoff between the Devil Army and the Yaokai Defense Force is reaching its zenith. Kuritsuchi has literally stared down their military encampment with a brief surge of her chakra that melted a trench between them without even trying to. Her children, the apes, chimps and chimpanzees, have been running stealth raids across the plains whenever they detect or spot a fleeing Yaokai refugee. Then again, they have also picked up a few young, lower-class devils who were dragged along by the Yaokai friends. They too were rescued. Despite this all, Kuritsuchi just knew that the recent arrival, an extraordinarily looking pompous creature that arrived less than an hour ago, is going to cause issues. Not for her, nah, but for them. She has already sent her warning about crossing the still molten trench she was maintaining. Sure, these things can fly, but it's their funeral if they pass that heat haze. Glancing back at her own troops, she notices that they too seem to have felt the shift in the devil's camp and were preparing themselves. Good. Her brats are not stupid. Looking back, arms still crossed, Kuritsuchi wondered what the others were doing about now. She suddenly got a tick mark, recalling that fool's rapping, the bugs yapping, and no doubt that cat snapping. Of course. They'd be relaxing and playing around. Typical. Kuritsuchi's attention is drawn to the approaching sleaze bag who steps up to the other end of the trench and clears his throat before lifting his chin like some upstart wannabe, speaking with so much arrogance, she thought she could see it, I am. Don't care bad, Kuritsuchi waved the brat off. Just stay away from the edge or I'll melt you to sludge. She shrugged after that and it was clear that her tone and attitude was not conducive towards this parasite before her. The five-tailed lady did not care. She was of Iwagakure no Sato. Rock nins did not retreat, bend, nor break. The will of stone remained strong within her. The man opposite frowned, shaking his head in disbelief of this lowly Yaokai, thinking she could order him around. You seem to be misunderstanding something. We are here to make sure that you understand that this land is under our jurisdiction. You will respect. Kuritsuchi snorted, she hasn't been this annoyed since that time the foxes had swapped her shampoo with beetle dung that one time. She paid them back obviously, but then the knucklehead got involved and things got. Shaking her head, putting those thoughts away for later, Kuritsuchi stared dead in this thing's eyes. Listen, kiddo, you guys make a single step I do not like, I will turn the very air you breathe to ash and cinders. No negotiations. No backtalk. Just facts. Now fuck off before I melt you. You wouldn't dare, the devil hisses back, and it was at this point that the devils will forever remember one of the cardinal rules of dealing with members of the Great Ten Yaokai. Do not stare at the tanuki. He will crush you as it makes him feel uncomfortable. Do not touch the cat. Only one man can, and that is clearly not you. The turtle is patient, but that does not mean it is infinite. Do not cross it. Whenever dealing with a five-tailed ape, under no circumstances dare her not to do something. Or dare her to do something. She will always, and I mean always, do whatever will be the worst outcome for you on some kind of agreed-upon principle that the Yaokai all seem to be aware of, but not written down. It is still under review, and recovery is of highest priority. Thus, Kuritsuchi heard the magic words and smirked a bloodthirsty smirk, the area instantly shooting up 50 degrees then 100, before she whispered, oh, this is going to be good. Upon that final breath, the devil attempted to leap back only for a magma vent to open up between him and the devil encampment. Kuritsuchi clears her throat and the middle-aged man, fancy-clothed noble slowly and mechanically turned back to see the five-tailed Yaokai holding what appeared to be a bowl of superheated stones. Upon seeing this bat swallow hard, Kuritsuchi smiled sinisterly, I dare. This was the signal as her kids began lobbing flaming rocks and superheated condensed balls of lava, magma, and balls of gum like rubber over the molten ground. A few of the devils attempted to fly over the line to rescue the councilman, but their wings were nearly burnt up when they got too close. Then the thrown rocks began exploding in the air, molten rock shrapnel exploding from the explosions, cutting off their aerial advantage. The battle had begun. Kyoto Yaokai District. Serapho was being escorted out of the district, surrounded by the 4 super-powered Yaokai as they moved through the gates of the shrine. The many Yaokai around were bowing before them or waved from a distance. For the most part, they were returned with nods and smile. Just before they were about to move towards the boundary line, the 4 escorts froze abruptly. Serapho was confused before following their gaze to the right and not seeing or sensing anything before she heard the growl from the 2 kitsune and tanuki. The Nekamada groaned and hissed. They all leaped up to the roof, then blurred away, leaving Serapho confused for a moment before she took flight after them. Curiosity overrides her fear for the situation. Something got the attention of these Yaokai, and it was enough for them to forget about her. She lands beside the kitsunes who were standing atop the buildings near the shrine, all staring at a particular direction. Glancing around, Serapho noted that the civilians had all been evacuated already, the yellow-bricked red-tiled rooftops houses that are seemingly empty now too. Serapho followed their gazes, focusing her senses just as a portal opened and out stepped one infinity dragon, Office, hovering calmly and blank-faced as the other super Yaokai had arrived, landing in a semicircle around the arrival. The devil swallowed hard. This was a battle of monsters that she might be a bit too underpowered to allow for her involvement. Though, it offered a chance to show their earnest interest in peace with the Yaokai. Naruto spoke though gritted teeth, voice tight yet commanding, Office. Do you dare show yourself after what your kin have done to mine yet again? The Office nodded once, responding with her normal lack of empathy, I do. I did not want to come off threatening. I seek only to speak. The kitsune of 10 tails growled at his tail swaying violently, Naruto snarling. Speak. Why do you have to speak to us about it, Office? As he finished, truth-seeking orbs materializing at all the Yaokai's backs in various numbers. They played absolute havoc on the devil senses of Serapho Leviathan, but what floored the Satan was the fact that she saw the Office, the Dragon of Infinity and the Void's original inhabitant, take a step back. Make that 3. The Office seemed to recover her resolve and responded, a subtle hint of unease within her voice. I wish to recover the White One. He had not returned on his own, and I can now sense that he is here. Serapho could not believe that she had been able to watch the barely noticeable, incredibly subtle flinch from the dragon god when all the super Yaokai growled menacingly. The scarlet kitsune this time snarled out, that lizard is still here. We will hunt him down and… Naruto cut his fellow off, growling, I thought that you were warned about the consequences of your kin entering our domain, Office. The little girl-looking dragon nodded once, Office spoke. I recall. Then, why do you allow the attack on my kin? Naruto asks firmly. It took a moment for Office to respond, simply, they had been warned. They did not listen. They found out why we warned them. The silence that followed was tense as thoughts tided over. Seraphil remained a background character as she watched this standoff, one she will likely never be able to witness again. Naruto takes a deep breath before speaking lowly, Hinoka. Hinoka growls at the unspoken order, clearly not wanting to obey it, until Naruto's simple glance at her, and she finally complies, no doubt begrudgingly, allowing the 10 tails to nod a childish-looking dragon of the void. Office wasted no time in summoning the white dragon from a localized portal, falling onto an invisible floor of energy before her, one arm missing, and looking slightly dazed for a split second. It did not take long for Volley to notice Office, but then his gaze landed on numerous super strong Yaokai, then finally landing on the Kitsun, who was glaring something deathly at him with strange black balls behind him. Volley growled with his eyes starting to glowing blue, but before he spoke Office did, her monotone cutting through his battle haze and bloodlust. Albion. Did you not hear the warnings regarding these 10 existences? Did you not warn this hybrid? Volley's arm lit up, the white armor of the divine dragon coming into view, Albion informing. I did, Lady Office. He, however, decided that he knew better than to listen, and along with Crom attacked them. They were both soundly defeated. Office nodded one simply. Expected. She then looked at Naruto, continuing, as you can see, Albion is not to blame for these transgressions. The hybrid is. As for the other one, feel free to end his existence. He did not heed our words and thus we care not for him. Naruto nodded, accepting that. Very well. In that case, perhaps a compromise. I do not want to continue our cycle of hatred, yours hold for mine, or mine for yours. The Office inclined her head, I recall that concept we discussed prior. What do you propose? Much to the surprise of those around him, Naruto abruptly took flight, elegantly and without difficulty, as if gravity itself could not touch him. He glides up to be level with the 2 dragons, Volley growing incredibly nervous about the proximity. The other of the legendary 10 joined him in the air but remain at a safe distance. Naruto stops and looks from Office, then to Volley, then down to his gauntlet, then back to the infinite dragon. He finally speaks. Albion is free of guilt, but this hybrid is not. Why not just separate them and allow them to go about their business separately? If Office was surprised by the notion, she did not show it as she pondered that. Volley on the other hand, had a feeling of dread slowly overtake him. If he lost Albion, his power would be greatly diminished and would likely die as a result of his removal. Wait, is that even possible to do? Naruto's next words terrified him, I have already dealt with the arrogant red counterpart. He will never return to this plane of existence. The Office looked at the fellow immortal and nodded. Then I support this decision. What will Albion do otherwise? Naruto shrugged, his right arm beginning to glow with power as he prepared to remove the gear. Not my concern. Maybe try and give him a new body, restore his old one. Not my business. Just ensure to keep your kin in line, or I will allow my kin to run wild, understood? The Office nodded whilst watching the power of the kitsune within his arm, making a note of its complex structure and wondering if she could match the sheer control on display here. I will go and remind them after this. Volley too was fixated on the glowing arm, his senses were going haywire right now and he was desperately trying to activate a way out. None of his magic was working, nor connecting, it made no sense. Thankfully his answer was given to him from the Infinity Dragon, who looked to him, Office informing. Time-space here is locked down. That red vixen has the area sealed so tightly not even I can break through it. She is a pain to fight. Volley looked around and found the red head that was glaring at him right back, clearly ready to rip him apart, he whispers. Her. The voice so cold, it flash froze his blood, caught the hybrid's attention, Naruto whispering. Yes. My second in command. Looking back, the Lucifer human hybrid was met with a face of absolute murder, those blue eyes told of his future torment, but again, it seemed that he was powerless as his body was yanked to an upright position. He was spread eagle, allowing unfettered access to his chest. Naruto nodded to Office for the assistance before he floated forward, standing within arm's reach of his target, though it seemed both Office and Seraphil were more than a little interested in this procedure and had approached his sides, all their senses trained on this. Naruto raised his right arm and slowly thrusted it into Volley's chest, descending farther than physically possible as he reached his elbow, but did not burst out the other end. Office could clearly see where the arm went and the various intricate movements of the kitsune. Leviathan could sense the reaction to his movements, but not the movements themselves, nor could she see everything in its entirety. Though, what she was sensing was mind-boggling in of itself. Even more so on the biological front. Volley wasn't in pain, but could feel the power Albion had granted him diminished by the second, like being aware that he was losing his sight without losing it. His body was growing tired and his mind a haze. For Albion, this was a totally different experience, as if a hand was pulling him together and cradling him gently as if a hatchling. A random thought on that, as in the eyes of this ancient kitsune he was likely considered as such, despite being so long-lived himself. A truly novel experience indeed. Naruto frowned as this was taking far long than he wanted. The red dragon was rather simple. Most of his power was concentrated in his armor core. Pulling it out was rather simple. This one, however, was far more integrated. The power was all throughout the hybrid's being. Abruptly Office came forward and placed her hand on his arm, channeled her power into the technique, and the fragments all began to collect rapidly, without any further effort on Naruto's part. Once done, Naruto slowly and carefully pulled out a humming blue orb with no residual energy or power leaking from it to the host, unlike with the red one which they were then forced to collect up manually. All eyes stared at the orb for a solid moment. Seraphol was bewildered by what she had sensed and the effect of the Kitsun and Infinite Dragon combined power could achieve. It was a good thing these two were both antagonistic to one another, even if they are far more civil about it than most, or she doubted anything would ever be able to beat them. The silence was broken by a very long yawn from the gem, Albion muttering, "That was something interesting, I never thought I would be free like this." Naruto handed the orb to Office who took it, but when they both touched it, there was a brief surge that forced Naruto's hand off the spherical object. Naruto growled at the dragon's soul, but Office raised her hand, stating, "I will discipline." Naruto nodded. "Fine, but if he steps out of line even once, I will end him." He then looked to the limp form of the hybrid and pondered what to do with it. He had no real need for him, nor was he pertinently interested in his fate either. Shrugging, Naruto called out, "Ariana." The human-formed dragon maid known as Ariana appeared, her purple-scaled dragon wings proudly out, that actually surprised both Office and Albion, as the new arrival bowed before Naruto. "Yes, Master Naruto." Naruto pointed to the half-human, half-devil thing, "Take him to the kid in the shrine. Have her decide his fate. I don't really care at this point." Ariana nodded and flew over and retrieved the one-armed half-devil and flew off back to the shrine when Office finally spoke, "My kin." Naruto glanced at her. "I told you, did I not? I am not keen on the idea of this hatred between us. She is just a means to that end." Office nodded as she looked to the red vixen, "May I leave now, please?" Inoka glanced at Naruto, who nodded, so she nodded at the infinite dragon god, who sensed the lockdown lift and nodded her thanks before, looking to the Kitsun, Office stating, "See you soon." Naruto quirked a brow with a low growl, "I wouldn't if I were you." Office nodded as she opened the portal, but Naruto had to ask, Office, drawing the dragon's attention as he pointed to her frame, "What's with this getup? Normally. Felt like it. Is it not suitable for you?" Naruto waved that off, looking away from the Pittite form. "Do not even joke like that or I will have to remind you the last time you tried to sneak attack my den." Office nodded once, rubbing her flat stomach, recalling those very dangerous molars. "I recall." Naruto nodded as she finally turned and left with the blue orb in hand. But that done with, Naruto looks to Seraphol who only now remembered her position in all this and gulped. Bremery Estate grounds. Surziches and Grafia exit the main building, his parents following, as he comes face to face with the joint Gremory and Asmodeus family militaries that he was planning on using to pull the council forces back from the Kong territory. Just as he goes to speak, the Phoenix arrive with a full brigade, Ruval Phoenix dropping down as their leader, "Sorry we are late, Lucifer-sama." Surziches nodded, "It is fine. We were about to head out ourselves. Any word from the others?" Ruval nodded once, "Lord Falbium is currently meeting up with the Agares, Citri, and possibly the remaining houses, willing to aid us." "It's the best we can hope for," Surziches mumbled as he looks over at the gathering force, nodding once before speaking aloud, "This is not a drill. Understand this, if we fail to force our fellow devils away from Kong territory, we will launch into a war that will end us outright. These new Yaokai are old. Older than even the dragon elders. Older than even the biblical god. Thus, far, far stronger. That send chills through the entire gathered army," Surziches continued, "as such, they will not hesitate to wipe us out if we are deemed too much a threat to their younger counterparts. We must assuage their fear of us by any means necessary. If you spot a Yaokai in trouble, rescue them. If you see one in need of food, gift them some. This is a long campaign that." Every resident in the underground froze in unison and totality upon sensing the otherworldly level of killing intent, power, and the utter guttural roar that traveled the world over. Twice. Surziches paled to match his wife's hair, though she too had also. They both knew this intent and that roar. It was him. Surziches turned slowly to Ruval, who looked back at him and was unnerved by the chalk-white appearance of the leader of the devil race, the first super ultimate class devil that has surpassed all before him. This reaction. Did it have to do with this uncomfortable amount of killing intent that is now hanging around? His thoughts and heart dropped upon the Satan's next words, Surziches whispering, yet it traveled. We were too late. Inoki Plains. Furitsuchi just bulldozed through another gathering of bats, their magic bouncing off her harmlessly, and she casually pulled up the ground and threw it at another group. The chunk of earth splattered 20, wounded almost double that, as it was the size of a football field that she goosed casually. Just as she was preparing to call forth her magma breath, Kuretsuchi felt it. The arrival of her kin, and then the heavy blast of killing intent sent excited shudders up her spine, then that roar was panty-wetting, and she really wanted to break things, like a lot of things, right now, destroy a civilization or two perhaps, and thankfully these bats were being ever so generous as to come before her. Her grin was damn right demonic, and this is coming from devils of the underworld. Yet she was denied when a very familiar thunk rang out and caused her to pout, just as the very familiar silver flashes flow over the battleground. As usual, not one of the 200 or so, give or take 10 or 20, remaining survived the flashes that stoked at her front, that goofy grinning face of that stupid fox, sorry I'm late, got lost on. Kuretsuchi punched at him, magma coating her fist, at supersonic speed that he effortlessly ducked, then blocked her raising knee, and popped up again, still grinning as she hated. Yet before she could get any angrier, he pecked her lips with his own before he jumped back, and now she was going to skin him alive. You punk. Taking a maiden's lips like that. Naruto quirked a brow, still grinning like his name's sake, maiden. You? If I recall. He ducked aside, avoiding the superheated rock wave, before commenting further, I mean, that time in. The ground erupted in a geyser of molten metal that was also avoided as he landed beside her, hands in pocket smirking, fine. I won't bring up that other freaky time either. Her next fist was caught by Kurabi, who looked between the two, grinning like a fool too, that was rather. Don't Kuretsuchi look damn right murderous glancing back into the shades of the eight tails, who actually shuddered under that stare. Be cool, be silent so none know we are the client. A molten fist smacked Kurabi from behind, sending him face first into the dirt ahead of them, and the former Wagakure Cage huffed and folded her arms, unashamedly mumbling about just having a healthy appetite and appreciating the male form. Naruto would have sweat dropped if he thought he'd get away with it. He wouldn't so he didn't, so stayed perfectly still until the kunoichi looked to him with a brow raised, so, what brings you here? Naruto was swift in the reply, well, heard that many of our kin are here that need rescuing from the bats. He said bats with so much venom, Kuretsuchi wondered if Utakata had given him pointers, but spoke up, we do, and they have all been making their way here. Naruto nodded but remained silent as now Kurabi had rejoined them, so Kuretsuchi continued, problem is. As great as my kids are, they aren't the stealthiest nor the fastest. Strong and sturdy, without question, but stealth is more that cat's domain. Naruto and Kurabi nodded to that, it goes without saying, so the five tails continued. Though, from what we have learned from the ones we managed to make it here, was that the bats are hunting them down for fabricated offenses. Entire families are being rounded up and detained. The two men got incredibly serious at that, looking to one another, then back at the five-tailed gorilla, Naruto speaking up, we shall move forward with a multi-pronged rolling fist then. Yugi and Fu are already pushing forward to scout out the path. Han will be here soon, then, with the three of us, we'll lead the charging fist. Kuretsuchi grinned, finally able to unwind from all this defensive play, but that reminded her, what about that squirt? Naruto sighed at that, Kurabi though pointed to the defensive lines, Sandy will be handing out candy, for smooth sailing with no clang. Kuretsuchi nodded before looking back at Naruto, then, when do we start? Naruto grinned as he glanced back to see Han land with them, all of them now grinning, as he looks at Kuretsuchi, eyes vibrant and bloodthirsty, right now. Grigori headquarters. The place is hive of activity. It wasn't just the headquarters, but their whole territory was in a massive hive of chaotic activity. Civilians evacuated deeper within safety bunkers and zones, all combat forces activated and deployed territory-wide. Within the main headquarters the only thing you could hear was the shouts of orders from the higher-ranked officers, but they were broken up by the loudspeakers repeatedly, scramble. Scramble. This is not a drill. Scramble. Barakiel barges into Azazel's office to witness him finish arming up in his old war armor, clearly ready for a battle unlike anything they have seen since ever. Barakiel spoke first, initial reports suggest that it's them. The few refugees have only confirmed this. Azazel nodded, reaching for a locked cabinet, but pauses. No. Bringing such a weapon will send the wrong message. Though, not having it and needing it to defend himself. No. Even with it. His defenses would not hold out against this level of strength. Finally, the Archangel of Lust turns to his friend and colleague, Azazel spoke surprisingly calmly. How many of these refugees can fly? A handful at most, Barakiel reports decisively. Though will likely need to be carried if we wish to maintain speed. Azazel nodded. It was understandable in the state most were in. Get a pair and get them geared up, we move in 5. Barakiel nodded once and departed. This was not a time to dally, and no doubt even their cousins in heaven are sensing this potent power engulfing the entire underworld. Heaven's 7th level. Michael and Uriel stare down at the chaos unfolding in the underworld with growing concern. The devil military is deploying in a scattered and disorganized manner. Their fallen brethren are mobilizing every single soldier they have with no clear direction, evacuating civilians, and a heavyweight energy is permeating the air. Even from here, they could sense the loathing and deathly intent. This is when Raphael enters and the two other seraphim look to him as he reports, nothing. No report on this 10-tailed kitsune. Michael frowns, but Uriel speaks, is that even possible? A creature that even our father did not know of. Raphael nodded, face of perfect impassiveness. It would appear that is the case, yes. Uriel looked to Michiel as did Raphael, asking what shall we do? This clear that our allies are undergoing a large-scale operation. Michael could see that, but what was bugging him was that they couldn't see what exactly the issue was, so looked to Raphael, Raphael, go and ask our brother for details. I do not want to think that he is ignorant of our concerns. Raphael nodded before vanishing in a flash of light, leaving Michael to look to Uriel, prepare our forces. No doubt there is a reason for such a build-up, and I do not wish to be caught off guard. Uriel nodded, firmly, I believe it is prudent, but leave Metatron alone and out of this. Michael nodded distractedly as he continued to observe the underworld's chaos, trying to understand what in his father's light is going on down there. Ezra Town. Panic. The only way to describe the normally peaceful idyllic town on the fringes of devil civilization. Beyond this town were the largely untouched and undeveloped areas of the underworld and the Yaokai region claimed by the Kong clan. That was until a few days ago when a council-issued army is deployed here which out the residents on edge. Then 2 days later, a portion of them set off and have since not been heard from. Until a few minutes ago. The advance team had been wiped out and the enemy is tracing them back. When that news spread, the civilians were rushing to evacuate the town. Its new garrison were fortifying their positions for any possibility. It would not be enough. This would be the side of a reckoning that would cause a major shift to devil nature and create even more havoc and destruction for many people, innocent and guilty alike will suffer, and the hands of others wills, at no fault of their own. Ally and foe alike will shift and make the destruction and death spiral over the coming generations and give a glimpse to the end times. Though one truth will always echo in the hearts of the devil race by the day's end. Do not, under any circumstances, challenge or force their will upon others for the Yaokai will not stand quiet. Pray and beg, for their gods will not aid you, nor will they offer any mercy, for they had already been forewarned of the swift retaliation that will follow. All parties were closing in from various vectors, with different objectives, and it will all clash in the skies and on the ground of this once peaceful town. Naruto, Kurabi, Han, and Kuritsuchi stand off in the near horizon, observing the fortified town ahead of them which Fu had told them of earlier. All the nearby military camps they had already trampled leading them to this point. Yujito had already reported to have evacuated the few hiding Yaokai among the population, so they were cleared to wreck the place and break through to the next town. Naruto looked to Han, who looked back and grinned, before both looked to Kurabi, who smirked as his shades gleam as he pushes them up. Upon his nod, Naruto looked to knuckle-cracking Kuritsuchi who was ready to explode right now, and the two share a nod. Naruto looked back toward the town and let out a white flame-laced breath, face breaking into a bloodthirsty, malice-laced grin. Time to teach these bats the consequences of kidnapping our kin. Han let out a deep breath too, the steam was superheated and scorched the ground at his feet, smashed through their puny defenses, and stomped them into dust. Kuritsuchi spat out a ball of magma off to the side, declaring, turn them to ash and rebuild. Kurabi chuckled, shaking his head in his typical cool man way. And push for a new day so we all be cool, okay. Yeah. But that roar, the four transform into their combat forms, not their full size, but rather matching their predecessors. More combat focused and easier to use their base combat moves. No need for their advanced shinobi techniques, just their natural animal attacks should work fine. Maybe a bit overkill, but like all pyromaniacs, none of them cared to check. Their joint roar shook the area and drew the attention of the defenders who saw the four super Yaokai appear on the horizon. The kitsune they were warned of, all silvery white, and its 10 tails waving behind it. The horned horse standing at the front, white too and standing tall among steam that seemed to escape its entire form. Beside the horse, a bull with rippling, bulging muscles, dark purple-brownish skin, 8 thick tails with thick horns, and a thick nose. Lastly, the large red ape waving around 5 tails in the back grinning menacingly. The commanding devils gulped along with their subordinates before barking out orders though a few froze upon seeing the bull and horse preparing to charge. Both tapping the ground with their hooves, shaking the earth beneath them each time. This distracted them from the two at the rear that had gathered boulders, and Kuritsuchi was imbuing lava into them, whereas Naruto was charging his chakra into his throat. The second she threw the boulders high, in a parabolic arc to cover the town, Naruto breathed his flames to ignite them and set the timer. A perfectly timed collaboration between the two they have used many times in the past. It made super effective anti-air during their war with the dragons. Capable of plunging or direct fire. Also doubles as long-ranged artillery with explosive results, and the devils were about to learn this the hard way. Streaks of flame rocks filled the air, causing defensive barriers to go up. As the boulders finally begin to fall, reaching their top speed, they abruptly explode into a much smaller, far more numerous splitters that fall at speed of their original shape. These rock splinters shred through the barrier and devastate the entire town, as if 100,000-pound bombs just carpeted the area, setting fires, punching through and collapsing buildings. The defenders who survived the initial attack witnessed the already airborne second volley, and their will to fight was washed away and distracted them from the two charging Yaokai. A few of the older noble house devils noticed them and lashed out with whatever spell they could think of, from water bullets to ice shards and even a few lightning strikes, but they simply bounced off the charging duo. Completely ineffective. The resulting smash sent concrete, metal, mortar and man flying hundreds of meters in all directions. The ground shuddered from the impacts, forcing many to the floor or to the sky. Those that escaped upwards assumed them to be safe. Again. They were wrong. Airburst rock fragments from the ape and fox shredded through the airborne troops as the bull and horse trashed the town underfoot. The superheated gases incinerated anything unfortunate enough to get caught in it. The eight tails swayed around, knocking down structures and people alike. The roars were what Surzich's came upon. As his forces arrived, they watched the devil forces there, the ones they were supposed to stop, get stumped underfoot, or those in the air be shredded to pieces by exploding, flame-coated rocks. This wasn't a fight, but a systematic annihilation. He is cursing himself for not moving faster. But his thoughts were cut through by Ruvel, who called out. Lord Lucifer. Incoming. Snapping up, Surzich's sees a massive boulder, engulfed in blue flames, falling towards his troops. Powering up his destructive magic, he blasts the thing out the sky. Only for it to explode and rain down even more shards of molten rock. Scatter. He orders and they do so, but more than a quarter of his forces are injured or killed by the falling debris. This is what Azazel arrived to see. A massive explosion of rock that shattered and shredded a flying devil army. The town ahead of them was ablaze with two of those new Yaokai tearing it apart from the inside. Beyond the walls however was the kitsune and ape, who were igniting rocks and throwing them in a high arch to explode above flying forces to shred the area with an airburst of flaming rocks. Ingenious use of physics and momentum paired with magic and chakra. Azazel was brought out of his thoughts by the potent killing intent leveled at him, coming from all four Yaokai. Blinking. He notices they were all staring at him and his forces, and that ape had another boulder in hand, waiting for something. He realizes then, they do not know what they are or what they are doing here most likely. So, they are playing the wait and see. Nodding to himself, Azazel was about to speak, but a new voice did in a monotone. Why are you here, Raven? Turning around, Azazel saw only his forces, but they were all looking above him. So he does too, only to find a green-haired, slim-framed caramel-skinned woman hovering there silently and staring at him with bright orange compound eyes. She was calm and unbothered, detached could be used to describe the vibe the fallen angel was getting. He blinked, who and how did she get so close without any of them noticing until she spoke? Is she one of them? A bug of some kind. Oh right, he recalls now. One of the super Yaokai was the seven-tailed bug. This must be her human form. Clearing his throat, Azazel spoke, my name is General Governor Azazel. Leader of the fallen faction, and currently myself and my forces are here to render assistance to an ally. However, we are unsure of the situation thus, can you please bring us up to speed so I can decide what to do to solve this issue without any more bloodshed. The woman wore a frown as seemed to think on that for a moment, drifting away from them elegantly to put some distance between herself and them. This made Azazel nervous. He had seen how effective their anti-air was against the first devil group. The fact that she has put such a distance between them suggests they have already got them locked in. She turned her back and faced the others, letting out clicks and clacks, which is when Azazel barely caught the flickering of her wings. They were moving at such a high frequency that they seemed to become invisible. He himself could only catch brief movements of them, only blurs. A loud neigh brought Azazel out of his observations to the horned horse below that was breathing out steam of some kind. Then a loud roar from the kitsune followed. The woman seemed to nod, understanding whatever was said, and she turned back to Azazel, we can sense our own among your numbers. We will talk with them before deciding anything. Azazel nodded, looking back at his flock, who brought through a few Yaokais. One was a beetle that chirped excitedly upon seeing the mint-haired woman, who herself smiled at that chatter. The other two were parrotkin, taken for their vibrant feathers and rarity. The Governor-General watched as the beetlekin clacked and clicked at such a high speed that it was impossible to attempt to make sense of it. The Yaokai leader just nodded every so often and returned clacks even less so. After a full minute, they fell silent. The air was tense as it seemed the woman was contemplating what she had heard. A full minute before the green-haired woman nodded again, clacking to which the beetlekin nodded back, and together they took the struggling parrots and moved off from the fallen group. Aizel tensed, prepared to dive out of the way until the woman turned back and nodded, "Please wait here. I will inform the others that you are a neutral party and not to be harmed." Aizel nodded as he left out a breath of relief, catching his soldiers all doing the same, not that he blamed them. He nodded to acknowledge, and she flew off at speed with the refugees. This is when he spots Urzich's and his troops regrouping below, the Satan staring up at him, and he signals stay down and wait. A visible side of him taking a deep breath before nodding allowed Aizel to look over to see the kitsune on his hunches, clearing looking at something. This is what Raphael arrived to see, a flock of fallen off to one side, seemingly waiting for something. A ruined devil town currently being trampled on by two super powerful Yaokai, if his senses were accurate, with that kitsune from the other day sitting nearby, and devil army units attempting to escape from the town. It was very confusing. Following his instructions from Michiel, Raphael makes a discreet flight over to his target, who watches his approach carefully, Aizel speaking up once he got close, "Raphael. What brings you here alone no less?" Raphael glanced around at the situation, "We can't see what has been happening. All we know is that you have deployed your entire force. We have come to ask why." Aizel blinked at that. They did not know anything. Oh boy. This is either tragic or hilarious. Taking a calming breath, Aizel decided to enlighten his brother, "Well, Raphael, this is what I have gathered this far. Gremory Estate. Since the departure of former house member Surzich's and the bulk of the Gremory military forces, the entire estate has been in lockdown to ensure the safety of the family within. The remaining military units are on full alert and are spread out all over the estate ground in randomized patrols. Didn't stop Yujito from sneaking in with her kitten Kuroka as they slipped into the room holding the current heiress and her best friend and queen. As they land with the silences afforded by their cat-like grace, Kuroka moved to the door and placed a privacy and barrier seal tag. Once activated, Yujito pulled a scroll from her belt and unraveled it to reveal a reverse summoning seal. As she stared at it, she sighs aloud. "The things I do for you adorable kittens of mine." Kuroka smiled and bounced in place, "But for mother, we are so adorable though. Are we not?" She sticks her tongue out and Yujito play glares at her as she places the scroll on the floor. "Careful. I will call your father to discipline you." Kuroka giggled as her tails wave, "If you say so, Naya. I think I could give him a good time." Yujito actually hissed at her, "Not before I shred you to pieces, you won't." Kuroka actually took a step back and nodded silently before the puff of smoke and there stood Kaneko, confused momentarily before noticing the president, asleep on the bed. A quick glance at her back shows her foremother nod to confirm she was good to go and Kaneko followed the elder cat along with Kuroka as they approached the unconscious duo. Yujito takes a deep breath. "Take my tails within yours. This technique is one of the ones I picked up from my other half. I can't do it via chakra and proximity like he can." Upon feeling each of the kittens take a tail each, Yujito went through the mental process of getting set before going through 6 hand signs quickly, Yamanaka's secret art. Mental connection. Her right hand began glowing a soft dark blue and she places it back on the mind's eye of the devil heiress. The effects were immediate. Ria's mindscape. Kaneko parts her eyes to find the entire orc standing before them on the orc main clubroom. All sitting around as if this was a normal day at school, uniforms and all. Both sides blinked at one another unsure what was going on. Yujito broke the stretching silence, looking at the white-haired kitten. "Go ahead, kitten. This is what you wanted, right?" Kaneko looked back up and nodded, "Yes. Thank you, foremother." She steps forward and the others look to one another before looking back, Ria speaking up, "Kaneko. How? Do you know what's going on?" Kaneko shakes her head before speaking up, "We are in your mind, President." Rias looked confused, glancing around at Kiba, Akeno, Asia, Zenobia, and Issei, who all look back just as confused. Then, why is everyone else here too? It was Kuroka who answered the question. "Most likely as you are the king, the earpieces. The feedback loop from the piece extraction from Shirin snapped you all here. Just a guess though." Akeno thought on that, it kinda made sense, but also raised more questions than answers. "Then, how are you here? If you don't have your piece." Yujito raised her hand, explaining, "We snuck into your bedroom in your family estate so that my kitten here can talk to you all. Right now, I am using one of my techniques to allow this meeting." Issei eyed them warily, speaking disdainfully. "A technique, huh? Like the one that took my gear and arm from me, huh?" The 3 cats looked to the one-armed Issei, he looked like a shell of his former self, with Yujito responding, "No. What my partner used to do that is something beyond my own current abilities. Maybe in the next age I'll learn it or the cycle after that. Who knows?" Zenobia speaks up, eyes narrowed on the tallest blonde, you speak like you are unbothered by the world around you. Yujito shrugged again, I was here before your gods, before your races walked the earth, and even the race before that walked the world. I will be here after the fact too. That is how old we are. That really unsettled them all, were they even bugs to these individuals? No, they weren't. It was Riaz who spoke, hollow and vacant of life, that did we ever have a chance? Yujito chuckled softly, shaking her head with her reply as equally so. No. Not really. Though, that is not why we are here. As of right now, my friends have begun their assault on your country. We do not have much time. All the devils tensed at that, except for Zenobia who raised a brow. Yujito continued though, as the forward team, my job is to locate and rescue any Yaokai ahead of their charge. Right now, however, my kitten has asked of me to meet you all again, for a few words. So do not waste my time. All eyes fall to Kaneko, who spoke up, I do not hate you. I do not wish for your demise. I have asked my grandpa and he said that he will think about bringing you back to Kyoto if things get bad. Riaz growled as she stands, glaring at her former rook. Bad. Kaneko, they are destroying our home. How can you ask that of us? Kuroka narrowed her eyes on the reed. Though Kaneko shook her head, speaking softly and reserved. No, that is not it. Listen. The kendo stopped Riaz with an arm as she looked back to the small cat, soft smile and tone. Explained Kaneko. Kaneko nodded, smiling at her senpai, Grandpa is super strong. Scout not needed. He is making a big scene to draw attention to outskirts. Kiba caught on, to draw attention to himself so the scouts can recover everyone and reduce the casualties on both sides. Right. Kaneko nodded firmly, pointing at the knight. That. The kendo too nodded, understanding, before looking back at the now relaxed Riaz, who can see what was going on now. Tactically, everyone is on edge and won't likely see through the ploy. The queen states, see. It isn't as bad as we thought. Riaz nodded, looking to her then at Issei and frowning, then at the unknown blonde, if that's the case, why did your friend take the Red Dragon Emperor? He wasn't a threat. Yujito snorted, jabbing a thumb at the former vessel of the Red Dragon Emperor please. An idiot like that with that kind of power. Do not insult my intelligence. Besides. We already dealt with White One too. Neither will be an issue so get over yourselves. The eyes were wide at that. Issei slack-jawed, muttering, you killed both of them. Yujito glanced at the boy, speaking clipped. Volley is being held until he is sentenced, but has had his gear removed from his persons and handed over to office in order to help facilitate peace between us. Both have received warnings that any further action on their part will result in punishment them both. Everyone looked at her incredulously, beside Kaneko and Kuroka, who knew this already, Akeno muttered. You threatened the Infinity Dragon. Yujito nodded firmly, we did. And can live up to it too. She giggled recalling their last run-in, before chuckling out, you should have seen it last time. Office tried sneaking into Neru's den when we were anyway. She blushed recalling what she was doing there, and the others seemed to understand that too, gaining tints of red to their cheeks of various shades. Kuroka and Akeno both though seemed to enter a dream state, imagining being dominated by that overwhelming power of the kitsune. Riaz did too, but was far more discreet than the others. Yujito hissed threateningly drawing all eyes to her. She cleared her throat before continuing, as I was saying, Office tried to sneak up and Neru reacted like light itself. The following beatdown and the ferocity displayed was well. She began biting her lip and allowing her mind to wander as her thighs began rubbing, before Kiba's very loud throat clearing drew the woman's attention back to the room from Erotica Lalaland, and he asks, so, what did Kaneko want to ask of us? Just to come with her? We've all been stuck here since. It's been a few days since, Kuroka added from the window pane, looking back at the group, 2 days actually. The trapped group all nodded, Kaneko spoke up, so, if you want to be with us, just come and see my foremother or grandpa. Riaz asked, brow raised. Grandpa. Yujito taking this one, what she calls my partner. It is rather cute watching them interact. Especially in that meadow. You were so small and cute, playing with the other little ones. Yujito basically squealed causing Kaneko to flush red in embarrassment, though her friends looked on amused. Yujito continued, oh, I think this is how you do it. All eyes fall to her, and there was a small screen appearing out of nowhere. Everyone watched as it flicked and a video of some kind began to appear. Everyone was amazed until Kaneko rushed forward and pulled on the older cat's battle dress, foremother. You promised. Yujito smirked, nah. I did not. You didn't even know I could do this. Kaneko hung her head bravely before looked back up at her, a dangerous gleam entered her eyes that Yujito recognized and did not like the look of. While that was going on, the others watched as a bunch of baby foxes were playing in beautiful meadow, they caught sight of the 2 super-powered foxes, relaxing on the side. Suddenly, a very familiar white kitten jumped on top of the 10 tails, sharing words that sounded like, "Can I learn too, Grandpa?" Before it hopped off and rushed into the pack of young foxes, play fighting. It is soon joined by another. It was the definition of cute. None were spared. The girls all squealed. Kiba and Issei had to thump their chests repeatedly, not to break their bro codes, but agreed to the side of absolute cuteness. Zenobia was more than a little interested in the area though. She didn't recognize the place or anything, but the surroundings looked perfect. Like the rolling hills of home. Everyone was brought back to Yujito's face of horror as she whispered, "You wouldn't." Kaneko looked just as firm, tail stiff as a sword, as she glared at her foremother, "You know Grandpa will do whatever I ask." It was tense for a good 10 seconds before the scene vanished and Yujito huffed, "You are brave, kitten. I give you that." Kaneko nodded before turning back with a puffed up chest until Yujito's next words reached her ears, "Guess, we can't up your training then." Kaneko paled and Kuroka grinned, "Oh, how the mighty have fallen." Rias clears her throat, getting everyone attention, looking at the oldest cat in the room, "May I ask, how do we get out of here?" Yujito shrugged, "Dunno. It isn't why I came here. Nor did I care to check. I am not the medic nor mental warfare expert." Biba gulped, "Mental warfare expert?" Yujito glanced at him, "All wars happen in the physical, mental, and emotional worlds. Mastering them all is the most effective way of crushing your enemy in such totality that a scar so deep that even their descendants dare not approach on basic fundamental principle is formed. Be grateful we are not unleashing our full might upon you." Biba swallowed those nuggets of information hard. These beings have lived through cycles of humanity and more than likely know how to wage an effective war better than anyone else. He nodded, "I thank you for the advice." Yujito nodded before looking to her 2 kittens, "Come on you two. Time to head back to our bodies. We still need to head to the Satori area." Rias jumped up, "What about us?" Yujito sighed and was just going to ignore her until Kaneko used her kitten-eye jutsu on the elder cat, whispering, "Please, grandmama." Yujito huffed and glared at the upstart, "You have a long way to go to try that on me. Who do you think invented that?" Kaneko pouted and Kuroka cackled at that attempt, shaking her head. Sighing again, Yujito glanced back at the redeed, "Fine. As a favor to you as you helped my kitten survive until we awoke." "What does that mean?" Xianiva muttered, only Kuroka to frown and responded flatly, "Several Yaokai clans had been wiped out at this point. Including the Nekamadas and Akasho's sister clan. That is all I will say." The devil swallowed spit as Yujito went through hand signs, stopping on the ram, looking directly at Rias, stating, "Remember, you owe me." And the whole mindscape went dark. Void. In the space between worlds sat Office, looking at the white dragon emperor's orb and pondered on how to proceed. An idea came to mind, but first she needed to understand the energy better. Thankfully, her gaze fell upon the blue orb. Before Albion could react, the infinity dragon grabbed it and began to seemingly play with the kitsune's energy he had taken. After needing it for a while, coming to grips with the concept a bit, a sense of understanding dawned on her face. Albion though asked, "Lady Office?" Office nodded, applying her own power to shape a form atop the form reminiscent of her own, using the white one as a base. Albion growled and groaned, feeling as if being torn asunder and stretched apart. It felt like days but was only an hour or so, but when Office was done, there stood a human-looking child, pale skin much like her own and white hair, with a long bang of black over his right eye and scales. A face a strange mix between Office and not. The 10-year-old form had strange tri-toned eyes that looked black head-on, but from the side shimmered 2 tones blue. Truly unique. 2 white scaled tails from his rear, with an unidentified markings running across them that the infinity dragon suspected were connected to the kitsune somehow. Albion however inspected this form he had taken in response to whatever the infinity dragon had done, disbelief written across his now human face as he wiggles each of his digits independently. Eventually, he looks to Office, asking, "Why?" Office just stared back, inspecting her work and general theory on the resultant interaction between her power and that kitsune's. It isn't what she pictured, nor did she want to acknowledge her failure. Perhaps there was another way to achieve this, she didn't know how and not knowing was irritating her. Maybe taking this back to basics. What were the basics? She didn't know. She has always been unknown. Her spiraling thoughts were cut into when Albion asked, curiosity overloading his small frame, "Lady Office. What will you do with that energy you took from the kitsune?" Office did not answer directly, allowing her to focus on the small marble-sized orb that came from her chest, a place she had hidden that small part she, just as Albion had, managed to skim off the kitsune. As Office stared at it, she knew she could not absorb it either despite her better understanding of it. It would still reject her attempts of integration. Though, recalling their collaboration in recovering Albion showed that their power was compatible with one another, proven further with her recent feat. Head tilting to the side, she stared at the swirling mass of energy. Break the cycle of hatred. Her black eyes snapped to the new human form white dragon emperor beside her. Break the fighting. Albion was genuinely confused, it was written all over his baby face. He had listened to what the Kitsun said about breaking the hatred between their kin and the Kitsun, but what did that have to do with that collection of chakra and power? I understand that, but… Office carefully held the ball of energy between her hands and softly flowed her energy within the small orb, and Albion gawked at what his new senses were telling him. He whispered lowly, "Lady Office, are you?" Office nodded as her form shifted, growing to that of a woman in her early 20s, matching that of the Kitsun, with her long void black hair, now reached down to her calves, wide hips, well-toned figure, and busty full figure. Her dark hair contrasted her pale skin as it framed her face, that was still as round and cute as with her younger form. They both watched the orb as her body eventually absorbed the orb she was working on again carefully. Office closed her eyes and whispered to herself as she continued to monitor the merging energies within her now, but isolated. This will lead to peace. Albion remained silent for a moment, contemplating the future of his race with the decision of the infinite dragon just made for herself. Was it for herself or for everyone else? He did not know. Everything over the last few hours had been full of firsts, and to be honest, he was getting hyped up as this was getting interesting. He would be able to enjoy this himself now too, fully indulge in his newfound independence, as he was no longer tied to another from birth to death. No longer fated to battle the Red One. Though his excitement was halted by Office, who drew his full attention. Office spoke with her normal disinterested manner, "We shall test you. Stay here in the void. Will not be seen by him." Albion quirked an eyebrow, marking his confusion, but her look seemingly firmed up, not brokering any argument, and so he just nodded before glancing around the kaleidoscope of cloud surrounding them. At least to himself, he never thought that he'd ever be able to exist here like the void dwellers for long periods of time, but he has been given a new body, and surely testing it out would be great fun. Nodding at that thought, the boy looks to the grown form of the infinite dragon, Albion asking her. "Lady Office, do you?" Office spoke over him, raising her hand, "Power collecting, mother. Run." Albion was confused for all of 2 seconds before he leaped clear of the void blast that blasted his previous position. He blinked at that, looking over his form and its seeming ease of evasion. It was as he thought to dodge, his body had already began moving on its own. Another spike, and Albion snaps to see Office powering up further, announcing simply. "Run. Ezra Town." The Kitsun moves in towards the town, no longer acting as an anti-air battery, and strolling in after their charging duo. On Naruto's snout was the rescue trio, with Fu, whereas Kuretsuchi was relaxing atop his head, staring up at the purple sky. She does. Naruto entered the town and stands with the others among the ruins of a town, flames and burning ground all around them, yet among it all was a safe zone where they gathered. Although Naruto thought it was until smelling the carbon monoxide laying heavy in the air and frowned. A quick blast of wind as him at the epicenter displaced it and put out most of flames around them. Han did not look pleased, but then again, he got to trample stuff and break down that massive fortified wall. He was satisfied. Just as the fallen and Raphael approached, Naruto's ear twitched and Kuretsuchi and Fu felt him tense as if preparing for a fight. Fu quickly moved the refugees off to the ground while the others remained motionless. Kuretsuchi too was now on edge. Naruto is not weak nor is he delusional, something is out here and is a threat. A real threat. Her blood and chakra began to pump through her system in an attempt to be ready for a real fight. Not the skirmish they were playing with. Kuretsuchi had remained still like her fellow shinobi. Suddenly, she found herself launched into the air. Looking down, she watched Naruto get tackled in the side by a dragon. Not just any dragon. A Bahamut clan dragon. She'd recognize those scale patterns anywhere. Her rage skyrocketed as she snarled and transformed into her full combat form. Much like her forebearer, she was an ape but held 5 tails with darker maroon fur and black armored chest, white sage marks appearing across her frame in the same manner Naruto typically has when fighting. Lines running from each tail tip and all 4 limbs, joining up her back before connecting with her crown of horns. As she falls, she roars with all the fury she could manage as her fur engulfed her entire body as she slammed down with the force of a strategic missile attack. As soon as Naruto flicked up Kuretsuchi, Kurabi watched as he was tackled and bit into by a dragon that seemed familiar. But he didn't have time to ponder it as another appeared attempting to do the same to him and he cocked back his fist, "I ain't lost my cool to fall for that trick, you fool." His punch shattered the dragon's jaw and that is when Kurabi recalled these dragons and grew angered as he thought they had taught these idiots what's up. "You Bahamuts, still around then. Let us correct that." As he charged, horns down, he transformed into his full power mode, white sage markings flaring across the muscle-bulging frame. Like the others, they flowed from his limbs and tails connecting up his back and all the way up to the tops of his horn. Kurabi's horns punched through the second dragon's stomach, earning a roar from it. He roared louder. Just as Kuretsuchi dropped down and slammed down on a third. Han was surprised at the fact that Naruto was tackled but caught sight of the one responsible for it. He neighed just as Kurabi punched a second dragon. Seeing this, he turned to find Naruto crashing down nearby, clearly caught in the jaws of his attacker. Not only his watch. Han released a massive omoi-direction eruption of various gases as he grew to his full height, sage power rippling through his muscular body, his black markings stand out on his white skin, and he charged the one attack Naruto, watching as the kitsune blasted off several shots at the dragon's eyes. The dragon shifted and avoided the strikes to his clamp down harder on his foe, but did not see the horned horse approaching and smack into the side of its frame, snapping its wing and stabbing his side, earning a howl in pain. Naruto, now free, gathered a stupid amount of flames before blasting his former captor face with flames that sucked all the sound in the area away. The shockwave from Kuretsuchi's landing, Han's tackle, and his flames knocked the largest and most likely the leader off the kitsune. The largest did not take being interrupted too kindly and punched the horse in the forward leg, causing Han to stumble, but his horns dragged through the fleshy stomach. It then twirls and smacks Naruto clear towards the young angels and devils. Smashing down just before them. Han followed suit in the opposite direction, but then it was tackled by a massive horned armored beetle. Its wings caused the very air itself to shudder and whine under their weight. Her pincers punched through the scales, peeling apart its armored hide with little issue. The fallen devils and Raphael watched everything unfold abruptly. The power being unleashed was blocking out their senses at their potency. These attacks were all genocidal in strength. They all knew that this was a battle way above their capabilities. Even more so when each of the ancient Yaokai seemingly power up with strange markings appearing, their outputs becoming unreadable except the kitsune, who was taken out first. The eight tails just batted away one of the ancient dragons before it charged and punched through it with its target's scales effortlessly. The horned horse knocked the largest gray-scaled dragon just as the ape smashed and the eruption blasted them all away from the fight. It didn't last long as the kitsune is batted in their direction. The 10-tailed kitsune landed ahead of them, sliding to a stop just before it crushed them. Many were surprised that it was down like this, its power seemed unavailable, yet this caused the devils to rush over as this was their chance, but as they encroached on it, the kitsune shifted. Slowly, gets up, but its broken leg was evident, though he groaned. A few of the devils rushed forward, this was their chance to bring it down and end the threat, despite Surzich's roaring at them to stop. Fortunately, the Fallen and Raphael landed between the two groups. Light spears active and a very stern Azazel who declared, "Stop or die." And they all did, just as the kitsune let out a growl before from all over its body, emerging from beneath its fur, poked out massive anchor-like objects, large, solid-looking, and very dangerous, if what their senses were telling them. Suddenly they shot out. Everyone ducked, and suddenly they slammed down, shaking the ground, and by the time the last dropped they realized it was encircling them. Before they could cry out, a power surge ripples across the chains before a thin mesh spread between them. Again, before panic could set in, all within felt it's a warming aura that caused them to realize the same thing. The kitsune was healing them. Raphael was the most surprised. This healing effect was far more potent than his own, and it was by far more versatile. All the devils and fallen were being healed without discrimination. Even the critically wounded devils from earlier being brought back from the edge of death. Just then a massive burst of light that blinded anyone unlucky enough to have eyes, regardless of where they were looking, then a fire blast exploded on the barrier, but it failed to even cause it stress out. Those within sighed in relief as they knew they would not have survived it. Back in the fight. After the barrier went up, Kuretsuchi kept the dragon she dazed from her slam beneath her, with her tails wrapped around their wing roots preventing flight. As it wiggled beneath the ape, yet she was not going to allow this thing. Though another did attempt to tackle her off, but Kurabi had her back, his tentacles grabbed the brat and yanked him off, and tail slammed him into the ground, neck first. Nearby, the airways were filled with two young Bahamut dragons attempting to knock down Fu, who ducks and weaves around them like she was dancing a tune only she could hear. Then just as they caught up, she barreled rolled only for them to attempt to do so, but she unleashed her sparkle powder as they shot fire blast. Blinding them. Suddenly they were run through by a horn, skewered as Fu dove, and they both smashed into the ground. In a panic, the maroon-scaled one spat a fire in the direction of the pain. Fu took flight again abruptly, the fireball smashing harmlessly on the barrier of Naruto's. Just then, Han came flying over towards the barrier himself. Only for Kuretsuchi to land behind him and catch him. They both rose and Han gave Kuretsuchi a nod and they looked back at their individual targets. Four dragons stepped up, facing off the two Biju who stood against the barrier at their back, the tension spiking, doubly so when both the five-tailed beasts opened their mouths, but did not roar. An abrupt and heavy weight settled on all, with even those within the barrier feeling it, and despite being protected by it, many were forced to their knees or flat against the floor. Only the strongest of those gathered were able to look up from their knees to see the collecting ultra-dense chakra balls that was breaking the ground and causing the loose earth to raise into fine dust. The ultimate move of their predecessors, perfected and broken through the previous limitations however, that would be overkill for such pathetic opponents. Thus, both decided unilaterally that this cycle would be introduced to the base, the go-to, the unrivaled tailed beast bomb, enhanced by their sage powers. As they charged it, the dragons too had yet to be defeated and upon recalling the power of this attack, are pooling their own power to return fire. Thankfully, Fu came in with another flash powder strike as she dumps her enemies on the foursome as she flies past to aid Killer Bee. In unison the ape and house unleashed their attacks at speeds difficult for the younger species to track, but that was unrequired as the subsequent shockwave blew away the atmosphere, created a new sun that turned into a black hole at the flashpoint with such force that the barrier shuddered notably. It held out. Unbeknownst to all, Office, Albion, and Big Red all sensed the discharge of the two sage-enhanced Bijuu bombs. Phoenix Estate. On the edge of the estate, Yujito was staring off in the direction of the ongoing conflict. She and her kittens had all heard the distinctive roar of the kitsune, but it was brief, and Yujito could sense the activation of everyone's sage mode, but Naruto. He seems to be sitting out in his defensive barrier. Is he injured? Did he not activate his sage mode in time? She was brought to the task at hand by Meguri, landing beside her, stating. For mother. It appears that the bulk of defense force has left. They have a skeleton force, and our objective are inside. Yujito nodded to the report, replying. As expected, my Naruto is an expert in drawing attention. Looking to her side where Kuroka too was looking off to the distant battle, Yujito orders. The three of us will infiltrate as planned. According to Little White, their names are Nai and Rai. The other two mod but Kuroka asks. What about their peerage members? Their king is a lustful bastard. Meguri snickered, replying. Takes one to know one. Kuroka hissed at that insinuation. I have standards. These devils not so much. Before Meguri could respond, Yujito cut in, a breath her azure flames slipping out due to her increasing irritation at both these two bickering and her inability to aid Naruto directly. Kittens. They both fell silent, looking to the oldest cat who was pointing to the manor ahead of them with a smile, Yujito ordered. Get moving or I will have you both over my knee. Both Nico vanished promptly earning a tired sigh from the former Cloud Kunoichi, who wondered if Naruto would teach her the dreaded dad stare that seemed to work wonders on the Nekamada as a whole. That drew her gaze back towards the horizon briefly before vanishing too. She had her own part to play and it was best she got back to it. Inside the large estate was just as Spartan of guards, the servants were rushing about and did not notice the passing of the three outsiders. Kuroka them directly to their targets, both were in their room with two others, another set of twins, and were loudly complaining about not being allowed out. In front of their door stood a relaxing girl with dark hair and Chinese-looking attire. It was clear that she was not expecting trouble this deep in Phoenix territory, let alone their estate. Yujito pulled a kunai, ready to end this devil's life, but Meguri was faster with a sleep-inducing Yujutsu spell. This naturally drew the attention of her fellow cats, who were perched beside her on the ceiling. She shrugged as Yujito drops down first, the other two right behind her, and she takes hold of the doorknob, pushing it open to find their rescue targets lounging around the room. Upon the entrance of the three cat ladies, the four devils look over and freeze. When the door shut, Yujito looked to the two with cat features, one red one blue-haired and spoke. Nai and Rai right. Both girls looked to one another before looking at the tall blonde and nodding hesitantly. Yujito nodded back before stating. We are here to collect you. It is time to come home. Again, the twins looked to one another, confused before looking back at the lady, Nai saying. We are home. Rai finishes. And as pawns of Lord Phoenix. The three newcomers snorted as one, Meguri speaking up. This is no home. The devils have been taking advantage of our kind for far too long. We Nekamada are gathering together again, under a single banner for our future. That is why we are here for you. Rai and Nai were stunned by that, their kin were gathering, and they were being invited back too. But will Lord Riser let them? He is their pawns. Aizel and Nell, the other two devils present, did not like what was happening and recognized a black cat Kuroka and knew this was serious. They were pawns and stood no chance against a stray bishop like her, so discreetly called their queen Ubaluna and remained quiet to not draw attention to themselves. Nai abruptly asks, standing up and facing them. Who are you people? Yujito was about to answer, but Meguri and Kuroka stepped forward, both smirking as the former announced. Meguri, clan head of the Nekamada clan. 7 tails and eldest kitten. Kuroka gave her fellow feline a side-eye glance before looking between the two twins and announcing herself. My name is Kuroka. Former devil bishop turned Nakasho leader. Our numbers are low, but we have plans for that. Again, the two reincarnated Nekamada were at a loss for words. The clan head of their race was standing before them, coming personally to retrieve them. It had to be an honor for this right. Rai then points to the blonde lady behind them, asking. And you? Again, before Yujito could answer, Meguri did. Watch your tone, young ones. For this is the one you owe your life to. Rai and Nai flinched back at that shout as Kuroka continued. This is our foremother. The first Nekamada herself. Yujito cut in, embarrassed enough about the kitten's boasting, stepping past them both. My name is Yujito, the original and progenitor of the race. Both Rai and Nai dropped to the floor, heads down, forgive out rudeness. Even the turquoise-haired twins bowed their heads. This woman was basically the same as the original Satans, but for the Nekamada. Yujito inclined her head before ordering, stand. We have already gathered the others. All that remain are you two. We must go. The twins lift their heads up, pain faces evident with Nai voicing it. But for mother our king. Rai continued. He won't be happy about our leaving. Yujito narrowed her eyes on them, they both squeak and bow again, tails puffing slightly as they call out in unison. Forgive our rudeness. Instead, Yujito looks back to the door and spoke coldly, your stench means that you cannot hide from us, devil. The door parts and the remaining members of the peerage storm in along with the king and his family, the adults with stern visages, the king however with a smirk. The peerage members took up aggressive stances in a semicircle around the three intruders, with their king and queen in the center, and Riser inspected the three Nico girls. Or more accurately, Yujito from top to bottom and was liking what he was seeing. Ignoring the three slashing tails, Riser spoke. My, what a fine specimen of a woman you are, progenitor-chan. All the cat Yaokai in the room groaned lowly, a lot of slashing tails going about as Yujito stared hard at these things before her. After once over she dismissed them as she looked back at Nai and Rai who had stepped back, saying. These things can't harm you as long as you have these. She promptly takes out two slips of, what seemed to be, paper and hands one to each of the twins. Both inspect the paper and before they could ask, Yujito informed. Put them on your chest and channel chakra. Trust me. Wordlessly both did so, and as soon as their chakra touched it, the paper glowed briefly before sinking beneath their skin, and they felt slightly stronger than before. Nai and Rai looked to one another confused before looking back at the blonde, Yujito nodded stating. Think of them as talisman. It isolated those nasty pieces. I can't remove them myself, but when we get back, they will be. Okay. All the devils went wide-eyed at that declaration, none more than Riser, who could no longer feel his cat twins' pawns, which told him that they were not lying. Growling, he stepped forward, his queen at his side. Riser glared at his fellow blonde, announcing. You will give me back my pawns and submit to my rule or. His breath hitched, eyes dilated, throat going as dry as the Sahara, and weak in the knees by absolutely unholy level of killing intent leveled upon him from Yujito at his words. The three tails turned back to face them directly, the intent seemingly doubled, causing the low-class devils to pass out immediately and the middle class to wet themselves. The high-class devils, however, were on their knees, wide eyes upon this being before them, as she slowly and deliberately approached the members of the Phoenix household. Yujito stopped before this insufferable existences to her and her kittens, really wanting to tear them apart. Seeing as they have regenerative abilities, she could do it repeatedly and not kill them. It should be fun. A very dark grin split her lips as she locks onto this man's face of growing horror as she spoke lowly. You things think what? She crouches down, coming face to face with these baby little bats, Yujito continued. That this world is your playground. That all must answer to you. You think you have power and none can stand against you. How arrogant. Extending her claws, her gaze to them drew his eyes as they came to a rest at full length, she spoke slowly. The dragons once thought like that. We had to humble them in the language of violence. A language they understood well and we're rather fluent in. Her claws come to rest against his cheek, resting against his skin not drawing blood yet, but it was clear that Yujito was tempted. Oh, so tempted, dragging her claw down and watching his flames heal the slight scratches she was giving him. Some call us arrogant, self-righteous, and everything in between. There is some truth to that, I will admit openly, however we have not once attacked outright. We retaliate against oppression. Nothing more. Nothing less. Many gulped at that, none more than the Phoenix House members who could only watch as the original Nekamada played with the youngest male Phoenix. Yujito had kept her intent on them after all. Yujito chuckled as she lifted her claws and the flames healed the shallow cut as she spoke. That being said, from what my kittens have told me, you devils have been abusing your inherited power and taking advantage of them in every way, shape and form. So, naturally as any mother would be, I am not exactly happy with any of you for your crimes against them. Finally, she stands looking down at these amalgamations of the 7 sins, sneering at them, Yujito snarled. Be thankful that we are only here for the lost sons and daughters of the Yaokai and not to wipe out you filth. Were it not for my other half, I would have burnt this world to a crispy wasteland. Looking back at her kittens, she continued, Nai, Rai, come. We have to leave now. Leave anything devil related. You will have new stuff once we get home. The twins nodded, standing up and joining up with a group of their fellow cats. This is when the shockwave of the twin Bijuu bombs were launched before the explosion and chakra wave that fly over the room that stunned all the Yaokai in the room. All but Yujito, who smirked. My someone was foolish enough to confront them. Kuroka stammered. Lady, that. Yujito glanced over at the Nakasha with a very dangerous smirk, nodding before explaining. One of our basic attacks. Though, the fact that it has been used suggested that someone pissed off one of my fellows. She shrugged as she approached the door, before finishing. At this range, I can't tell you who they are fighting. Just that 2 of my friends decided to show someone that they were foolish to try stand against them. Reaching the garden of the Phoenix estate, the 5 Nico leaped back from the rising golden flame wall ahead of them, with Riser landing along with his parents, glaring at the leader. You will not be leaving here. Yujito took a half breath and breathed out blue flames at the devils. The Phoenix all smirked or grinned, collecting their own flames and shooting their own flames, causing a massive explosion between the 2 parties. The smoke was blasted back by a rain of blue fireballs that took the Phoenix by surprise, as they hadn't sensed them. They all take to the sky, believing that they were safe only for the azure balls to curve up and follow after them. Panic before the Phoenix 3 fired back at the pursuing fireballs. Yet it was not enough, as they were promptly shot down by the barrage of azure flames that seemed to overwhelm their own fire. By the time they had died down and the Phoenix had looked around, the Nico were gone. Ruins of Ezra Town. The light had died down and revealed 2 of the Bahamut dragons were outright obliterated, the other 4 were barely breathing and with scorched scales. This was a remarkable sight for the young species. That attack was out of this world and unstoppable for most. What shocked them out of their fear-induced trances by the kitsune raising to its feet, fully recovered and ready to rumble. The second the barrier dropped, the thick air and dense killing intent flattened the younger groups, with a few throwing up at the feel of it. The kitsune let out a deep roar as similar markings begin to fade into view, up his limbs and down his tails. They join up upon his spine and run up to his neck. His presence had exploded, but before that, another portal opens and out steps 2 people, dragons without a doubt, but in human form. For Naruto, however, he recognized that form and spoke up. Office. Your kin are really testing our patience. The office nodded, knowing that he was not going to pacify it as easily as before, though she did attempt to. I am not sure what I can say. I had been doing some things elsewhere and did not know any of these hatchlings were awake. Naruto's growl echoed across the underworld. Office swallowed before adding, I am here to force their return. I apologize for their disobedience. The stare down was intense, even more so when Naruto was joined by his fellows, all supporting their sage markings. It took a full 30 seconds before the kitsune grunted once, stating. This is the last warning, Office. I am sick of saying this and holding back my own. Our patience is not infinite. To make the point clear, all 5 Bijuu briefly flared their sage-enhanced chakra that even had her feel the pressure as she nodded in understanding. Office replied promptly. I will see to it now. And with a click of her finger, portals opened beneath all the dragons nearby and, along with herself and her charge, they all vanished back to the dragon territory. Naruto and his kin released their sage modes, their markings fading away as they glanced back at the younger species of angel, fallen, and devils, most unconscious, but their leaders are awake and looking petrified. As they should be. But the excitement passed, the former shinobi turned Bijuu approached the young group as they shrink down out of their combat forms and into their casual animal forms, which were the sizes of stallions. The other leaders gulp as they hadn't returned to their human forms, which was suggesting that they were ready for a fight. Who swoops down and fully reverts to her human appearance, landing casually on Naruto's back sideways and began kicking her feet as they reached the group. She speaks. This is Aizel of the fallen group, the ones with the blackish wings. He wants to negotiate with us to stop the bloodshed. Naruto looks to the man who stood straight and on attention along with his men and woman, who really did not want to piss these guys off after that display. Aizel bowed profusely. It is an honor to be in your presence. Furitsuchi snorted as Han and Karabi chuckled and Naruto grinned with Fu, both shaking their heads at his stiffness. Fu eventually looking to the solo angel with a head tilt to the left, saying innocently. Dunno who that is. Raphael seeing this stepped forward and bowed as Aizel had done prior, speaking formally. My name is Archangel Raphael of the 4 Great Seraphs, 3rd leader of the heavens. I have come before you to find out the problem and offer our aid to prevent an outbreak of war and preserve as much life as possible. Unprompted, Surziches steps beside the archangel, earning all eyes on him, and officially introduced himself. I am Surziches Lucifer, Satan of the new faction and leader of said faction. We came here to intercept the council's army and prevent an outbreak of war between our peoples. The gazes of the elder Yaokai were as cold as Void is rumored to be, with Fu acting as the mouthpiece, saying, "Consider yourselves lucky that those lizards showed up, or we'd have finished you all off and pushed further in. Remember that." Surziches nodded repeatedly before all the elder Yaokai perk up and look over to their lefts, where all eyes followed, seeing an armada of flying Yaokai, all carrying groups of their fellows. This was a surprise to the leaders, as rough numbers showed thousands of civilian Yaokai were among the group that was clearly heading towards the Kong territory. The train of large insects, tengu, and bird Yaokai remained unbroken for several minutes as new arrivals landed with the leaders and elders in the form of Yujido and her squad of Kuroka, Mugari, Kai, Nai, and Kaneko. Yujido announcing, "Sorry we took so long, guys. How did things go over here?" Fu just shrugged, hands flipping around. So. Some Bahamut clan lizards broke our momentum. Big O forced their retreat. Yujido nodded as she approached the Kitsun and gave him a once-over. An extensive once-over. This earned a rolled eye from the Kitsun, but his fellows were clearly amused by the action, with even the other faction leaders gaining knowing smirks. Naruto eventually let out a small growl, and Yujido snapped up to his blue eyes that narrowed on her. She narrowed them back, and the stare down would last 5 minutes, so Fu spoke with the leaders. "We are here for our kin." She jerked a thumb to the flying train as she continued. "That is all. Though, when we heard what that lady did not say back during that sham of treaty talks, we advanced our plans from next week to now. You devils had forced our hands." Fu glared at the redeemed Satan that remained firm, but it was then Raphael who stepped up, posing. "May I ask for your names before I clarify this, please?" This snapped both Yujido and Naruto from their stare down and joined their fellows to look at the angel. It took a few moments before all the animals erupt into smoke and revealed the elders' human forms before the three factions. Kuritsuchi steps forward, her smirk dangerous, with her hands on hip, wearing her trademark Awagakure leather armor, but with silvery white threading. "Don't ask where she got said threading, as Naruto would deny it," she states firmly. Kuritsuchi of the Magma. 5 Tails and mother of the Kong clan. Han folded his arms, breathing thick, bellowing smoke from his nose that sizzles against the ground and melts it slightly. He was wearing a recreation of his old armor, upgraded with seals and one of Yakimaru's scales, a combination that made it harder than any known substance. He grunted. Han the Unstoppable. Karabi throws his hands around with his light grin, donning simple dark navy blue vest, thick yet loose trousers of the same color, yet he was still armed with his 8-blade set. He raps. Yo, my name is Karabi, no need to worry B, for I am a killer with a B running the show with my 8, so relax and chill as I have cake. Yeah. Fu seemed to float around the group once before returning to Naruto's side with a petulant smile, in a full Jonin outfit of Taki, modified to allow her wings in and out, announcing, "I am Fu. Rhinoceros beetle of 7 and best flyer of all time." Yujido notices the eyes on her, so she grunts, "Yujido. Original Nekamada." All eyes land on Naruto, who just shrugged, announcing, "Naruto. 10-tailed kitsune. The original kitsune." The 6 shinobi did not miss the swallowing of spit once they figured out what the last two meant by the term original meant in this context. It was amusing, so Kuritsuchi added to her own. "Oh, right. I'm the original ape." Han and Karabi also nodded along to that, and Fu giggled. "Ah, we all are. Though, I think it's strange that we never tried." She looked to Naruto, who shrugged, answering back. "Well, after you and Gaara did that whole armadillo thing, I was already busy with the Nekamada. We just kinda fell asleep after that." Fu thought on that and eventually chuckled that turned into a cackle, hands raised, before yelling. "Tactical assault possums." Though she was quick to calm, then shrugged. "True. Maybe next cycle." Naruto shrugged back, replying casually. "Perhaps. Let's see how this one ends." Yujido hissed, glaring at the 7 tails. "Over my dead body." Fu grinned at that, nodding. "Can be arranged." Meanwhile, the young faces were absolutely terrified at the casualness of these ageless Yaokai. They were the originals, that was now clear just how insignificant they were to these entities. They were discussing things in millions of years like it was next week. It was rather disconcerting seeing as they were all long-living species, and yet, these people did not seem to be on the same level as them. Perhaps this is how humans viewed them. Something just beyond their comprehension. Raphael broke into the conversation, asking. "Yes. Well, I was going to ask if you were truly just here to recover your kin from the underworld. Am I understanding that right?" All 6 elder Yaokai nodded simply, Yujido speaking up. "Originally, we gave the devil there." Gesturing to Surziches before she continues. A week from 2 days ago, to inform his kin that we will be coming to reclaim the lost children of the Yaokai. However, we discovered that something was happening down here and had to accelerate our plans. Raphael nodded, though it was Azazel who spoke next, perfectly formally. I had heard of something going down in Devil territory a few hours ago. I gave orders to my own to rescue any fleeing Yaokai from they come across as a priority. He looks to Surziches, stating firmly. I have no idea what the heck is going on with your council, Surziches, but they have hunting teams rounding up entire families of Yaokai on trumped-up charges. My men intercepted those they could but. Azazel shrugged after that, though the weight was lifted when Yujito continued. We got them all out. All eyes fall on the pale blonde with flaming blue tint as she continued. Thanks to Fu, my kitten spread far and wide whilst everyone was focused on the battle here. We found the prisoners and liberated them. We also recovered the bodies of the deceased prisoners from their cells and turned them over to their families. Her frigid glare on the Satan was matched by her fellow Biju at that, with Naruto growling lowly. It is taking me a lot of self-control to not just wipe out your entire race, Surzich's Lucifer. It won't be the first time we have, nor will it be the last. So, boy, I suggest you go home and pray to whatever you devils pray to that after we are done tending to our own. Brought up to speed that we do not find any further reason to exterminate you and your kind in totality. Am I clear? The absolute seriousness of the 10-tailed kitsune's voice left nothing to argue with. It was so solid that many would later say that this was the only verbal contract that was soul-binding, and none dared question the authority of the words spoken. Raphael and Azazel both would record it as such. Those who bore witness to this occasion would spread it to their families passed down for generations. That is to say that the whole underworld felt the steel in the statement. Surziches had cold sweat running down his temple at the stares he was getting from the elder Yaokai gods before him. As such, none blamed him when he bowed a full 90 degrees, his men and woman at his back taking a knee with the heads down, fists on the floor, as the Satan declared. We, as a people, have heard and understood the statement and will do everything in our power to ensure that we do not squander this chance you are giving us. Naruto and his group then turned to Azazel, who had remained at attention, with the kitsune stating firmly. Although we are still unsure about your faction's involvement with our descendants, Governor General Azazel, we will be looking into it as soon as this is over, and should we find anything that sticks out. His eyes narrowed genocidally, which caused every single fallen angel alive, regardless of where they were, to stiffen and ramrod straight. Naruto continued. We shall be paying you a visit. Azazel took a knee and bowed his head. This was no time for pride nor arrogance, as these beings were fully capable of making his own vanish from history. I fully understand and will cooperate with any of your inquiries. Turning to Raphael, the 6 Yaokai maintained their tungsten gazes as Naruto spoke. Same with you, Raphael. We are going through our history and as you are guiding the humans. The weight of the air seemed to double as he hisses out. I will hold you and your kin responsible should we find them hunting mine, just as I hold Office and Great Red responsible for theirs. Am I clear? Raphael inclined head and all before responding. I shall convey this to my brothers and sisters. We shall contact you in Kyoto to discuss any transgressions on our side. Naruto nodded before glancing over and noticing the train had finally tapered off before looking back at Surziches and informed him. Contact your old faction counterpart. Naruto air quoted the old faction with so much sarcasm that even the secretly listening dragons, gods, and goddess the world over, to sweat drop. Naruto continued. And tell them that if they do not want to be wiped out in totality, that they should join your council within 6 months, or we will come back and wipe them out. I will allow free reign to my kin here. He gestured to his family members, who all broke into grins that did not fill the devils with comfort. Naruto finishes this little gathering with. This is our final warning to you all. Behave and play nice, and we will have no reason to return. Kyoto Shrine. A few days later. Naruto strolls into the office of the current 9-tailed leader of the Yaokai. Yo kid, how's things going? Isaka glances up from the paperwork with a frown, eyes sharp. I am not a child, elder. Naruto shrugged off the attitude with practiced ease, recalling his own kids in the prior cycles, as he spoke again. I see. Then you don't want that training then. It's cool. I'll just go find Kunu. Wait. Yusaka calls, jumping from the mountains of papers, reaching for him as he stares back blankly. With flushed cheeks she bowed her head, if you aren't too busy. Naruto nodded with a smirk. Sure, I was planning on heading to my den to stretch out my tails a bit. Could show you a thing or two, kid. She nodded as she basically teleported by his side, glaring at him slightly, but ultimately said nothing whilst following him out of her office. As they reach the garden, Naruto poses the question that's been on his mind. Say, Kit, have you told our kinsman about our relations? Or lack thereof? Isaka let out a tight breath, shaking her head hesitantly as she has been meaning to, but it never felt like the right time to do so. No, elder. I never found a good time, and with everything going on with all the returning families. Naruto nodded at that, altering his course for the Kitsun compound. In that case, no time like the present. Misaka froze and snapped to him, mouth agape as she squeaked. What about training? Naruto shrugged with a level of indifference that none can ever hope to match, saying briskly. Two birds with one stone. We can do both and more, so hurry up. Misaka was unsure about this, but followed shortly after before asking. Perhaps, Elder, I can bring them to you? You can get ready for us in your den. Naruto paused at that for a moment, then turning to the golden-haired vixen, wondering what she was up to, but ultimately decided to go along with her and nodded. Very well. You remember where it is? Upon her nod, Naruto continued. I will go ahead and speak with Hinoka. So please do not take too long. He then strolled off, leaving Misaka to go retrieve the others. The blonde sighed heavily, wondering if this would be a good thing or not for the Kitsun clan as a whole. Not that she has much choice now. Naruto's den. Naruto strolled into the den, in his small fox form, the Pactor secured in place by the seals, and comes across the snoozing Hinoka. Sighing, he mumbled to himself. And she claims I'm the lazy one. Her ear twitched and Naruto chuckled as her nose then twitched before her scarlet eyes part and come to rest on him, before narrowing. Speaking softly, Hinoka whispered. I sense that you thought something stupid just now. As she broke into a yawn and stretch, traditional canine behavior, and Naruto's sweat dropped at her finely tuned intuition, replying. Your instincts need calibrating if that's what you think I would do. Her dry look could give Gaara a run for his money, Hinoka stating. You seem to forget how long we've been together, considering how many cycles ago the Shinobi world was. Naruto sighed, shaking his muzzle. I have not forgotten. Quite the opposite, in fact. I plan on breaking the news to the Kitsune of the cycle and sent the golden kid off to fetch them all. Hinoka pondered that for a moment before understanding dawned on her and nodded. Then, we are bringing them all out. Naruto sighed before nodding. Yeah. It'll be painful, but if these kids want to understand who they are and grow, knowing where they came from will be invaluable for their growth. We won't stay awake forever, and they need to be able to stand tall with their tails high and proud. Hinoka nodded before offering. Should we call the current gods before I raise the barriers? Naruto nodded as he laid beside her, a small portal opening up beside her, allowing them both to see young Amaterasu sitting at her desk running through paperwork as she sipped tea. Naruto snickered, seeing that even the gods are bogged down in bureaucracy and red tape. This caught said deity's attention, snapping to the portal that she had not sensed and was clearly surprised by it, Amaterasu muttering. How? Hinoka, although equally amused, spoke calmly. Who do you think was blocking your sight? The dark-haired beauty known as the Sun Goddess was surprised by that, but Hinoka spoke before she did. That does not matter right now. Instead, we are contacting you as we plan on explaining things to your Kitsun and figured you'd want to be here too. It's your choice obviously, but. She trailed off and Amaterasu nodded, understanding what wasn't said as she stood. I will be there immediately. Hinoka just huffed, replying. Or you could just, step through. I am planning on expanding this place to accommodate the situation. Amaterasu was surprised before looking around for a moment to check her appearance before stepping into the portal and into the den before it closed behind her. Were it not for her godly abilities, she knew she would be blind as this darkness was unnatural, and thus Amaterasu asked. Where are we? Naruto responded calmly. Our den. Well, my den, but you know how things are. Amaterasu would have smirked if she wasn't suddenly blinded by a bright sun in the sky, a field beneath her feet and hills, as far as the eye could see appearing all around her. She was wide-eyed at the sight of this all as it registered as all real to her senses, with even the warmth of the sun on her skin feeling like it should. She muttered. Where is this? I didn't detect anything at all. It just. Naruto let out a deep heavy sigh as he explained. This was the world several cycles ago. These were known by the humans of the time as the Kitsune Plains as we lived here and the forests over there. Gesturing to the forest near their back. The goddess nods to this information and looking upon the forest, then back to the wide open fields of lush green grass and wildflowers. It is beautiful. Amaterasu felt compelled to ask. How many cycles is this ago? Both Kitsune thought on that for a time before Hinoka answered. About 6, maybe 7. We don't know. Time for us is rather loopy and stringy. We will likely sleep in a few decades or so and likely sleep for another cycle or two. Amaterasu was surprised by that, looking from the landscape back to the two legendary Kitsune asking. Only a few decades. Why? Both shrugged, or at least that was what the goddess assumed was a shrug, Naruto answering. Well, for me, my sleep was interrupted by the dragons and Yaokai here flaring their chakra constantly above me. I wasn't supposed to awaken yet. Hinoka nodded before continuing. I was already awake when he awoke. I was just planning on observing the world for a bit before going back to sleep, but sensing his full awakening. She breathes out as she trailed off, though Amaterasu was even more curious about this, but was interrupted as the numerous kitsune began arriving through the still visible route up to the outside. Kunu was leading the other young kits down first, knowing where to go without needing to be guided, and made a beeline for the two older kitsune and chirping loudly and repeatedly. She must have said something stupid, as Hinoka playfully slapped her with one of her tails gently, that earned a squeal from the kid, who attempted to bite down on it. Isaka led in the adults, who were all surprised and in awe at the sight of such a beautiful landscape. The squeal from Kunu though drew all their attention to the two elder kitsune, currently lounging around on their side in their animal forms, calm and docile, as if nothing in the world mattered. Isaka realized that to them that was likely the case. As they encroached they then noticed the calmly standing goddess of the sun, Amaterasu, who looked regal and composed if not a bit uneasy on being present. This was curious. As the small clan of kitsune stand before their forebears, Yasaka stepped forward and joined them before turning back to her kin and began, "Now, the reason I have asked you here is because there are some things we must establish between us all. Things that must remain within our clans and from the others." Many nodded to that, yet before Yasaka could say anything more, Naruto did. "Before that, however, there are some people we wish to introduce to you all." This caught everyone's attention as both he and Hinoka looked to the treeline, the normal place for their phantoms to enter from as opposed to just randomly appearing and breaking the illusion. It did not take long before 10 figures to step out from the shadows of the foliage, all much like the fox Yaokai in the meadow already, but with the same long tails that Naruto and Hinoka had. Most had pale red or silver hair which told of their origins and were of various sizes, but Hinoka was the one to confirm their suspicions. "These 10 are my first 2 litters. Our firstborns and direct descendants." As they stopped before their parents and turned to the kitsune, Naruto explained further. "Well, not them themselves, but rather physical illusions of them based on our knowledge of them that can act and make decisions that they would have as we had raised them for 300 years. Everyone was amazed by that. These 10 kitsune were the direct descendants of the 10 tails, born from a 9 tails, and truly they were likely trained too, which meant that these 10 were likely absolutely powerfully overpowered, even against the current lineups. Nico compound. Yujito yawned as she entered the cafeteria after her nap to find the 2 Nico sisters staring at one another. On one side, Kaneko glaring at the other side, where sat Kuroka, and the original Nekamada decided it was best to quell this conflict that the younger one had for her elder sibling, both trying to keep it hidden from her was adorable, but now irritating her. So, Yujito bonked them both, startling them both as they had not sensed her approach, as the oldest cat asks them both. "Explain yourselves." Kuroka glances at her foremother then to her little sister, before explaining their story with Kaneko adding her own parts. Yujito listened to this confessionals from both sisters and remained outwardly calm, but internally wanted to go burn these nefarious devils and their allies. Then how the devils wanted and did wipe out the Nekamada clan of the underworld, Yujito is leaning more to mass genocide again, and maybe just wipe out the old faction while she was at it. Upon them telling the story, Yujito had take several deep breaths and the tea prepared by Rai and served by Nai. Both have had their pieces removed and they were no longer devils. After calming down and settling her emotions, Yujito spoke again. "I understand your grievances, both of you, however I agree with little Kaneko. Kuroka however also is not wrong in her actions in killing that bat. So, until you figure thing out between one another, as sisters, I will allow you to stay separately." Both kittens nod so Yujito continued. "Kaneko, you must come to terms with the fact that your sister loves you more than anything else. I know even if I were to strike you, she will react with all her might against me to protect you. Do you understand?" Kaneko nodded as Kuroka blushed prettily, desperately trying to push it down, but it was useless. The white tea spoke up. "I know my niece-sama is like that. Never listen. Always flirting. Super eki. Embarrassing." Yujito snorted into her cup, swallowing her mouthful before she says. "I understand she is rather playful, her desire to protect you and your shared race evident, and so I will not condemn her or her actions." Though her feline eyes narrowed to lines as she stared at the troublesome black cat who couldn't meet her progenitor's fierce gaze, Yujito continued. "Even if she is testing my patience." Sighing after a while, Yujito looked to the younger Nakashuo saying. "You are certainly owed an apology from her. A heartfelt and true apology from not just your sister, but the devils too. I will talk to the kid about it, Naruto too." The 4 younger cats all nod to that with the newcomers speaking up, Nai first, "Foremother, is this Naruto person's?" Rai finishes. "Your partner?" Yujito nodded to the inquiry stating. "The other progenitor of you all. The only man I have and will ever lay with." The 2 newcomers nodded along with that information, Rai asking. "Can we meet him?" Yujito shrugged, but only responded after swallowing her mouthful, "I don't see why not, but..." Focusing on her senses and not picking up Naruto nor Yasaka, Yujito nodded. He is busy right now but I will talk to him later. Have him come over and meet you all. What if Ancient Immortal Naruto High School DxD end here and thanks for watching my video till the end.